Medarhan, our protagonist, is facing this demonic guy who's not only the strongest mage in the world, but also the patriarch of the #1 mage family, and his father who's asking what the youngest thinks he's doing. In front of him, our protagonist kneels to explain himself. That's because he's been causing a mess lately, and his name is spreading through the whole continent. He's now known as the Lightning Fist Mage, a young unknown kid with the rarest magic element and an unorthodox way of using mana. But until some time ago, he was so weak that his family threw him into a concentration camp for him to die, and people forget that he was part of the family to begin with. That was the best way to remove the name Zed from any relation to the family. So the MC obeyed. He hid his identity and began his survival. But now, a few months later, his father is demanding that the boy should proudly proclaim that he's from the Arahan family to everyone and stop hiding his lineage. But why? Why does the same family who threw him in a concentration camp now want to be associated with the youngest and talentless Zed? See this tooth flying and this body unconscious? That's the result of another fight against Kim Ji-ho, an MMA legend who's defending the title for the 17th time. He's 45 plus years old and has never lost a single fight in his career. Everyone thought he had a broken leg since he hasn't been using it in the last fights, and Blue Shorts here thought that he had a chance. Even though his heart skipped a beat when he saw Ji-ho in front of him, he decides to go for a grapple on his leg. Without being able to kick, there's no way the guy would stop him, right? But that's when the flashbang hits and the tooth flies. Ji-ho's leg wasn't injured. He just didn't use it to make it easier for his opponents. It's more than clear that he's leagues above everyone else, which for him right now is his biggest problem. No opponent can even entertain this guy. But as the elevator climbs to the top floor of this luxury apartment, and after passing through stacks of fan presents, he takes a shower and hops on his final challenge. Last Saber, a game considered impossible. So hard that even the most avid Korean tryhards gave up. But Ji-ho has been playing non-stop for 10 years, while defending his MMA titles, all because that was the only place where he could find a real challenge. So he goes to face the Demon Lord once again. But today something was strange. The demon stood in front of him with almost no HP left. He asked himself, "What's this? I'm going to win?" Slashing the boss, he begged it to defend itself better, to not die, to resist, and to make the fight harder. But every single combo was hitting. He was dodging instinctively without trying, and with a sad face the moment he didn't want to reach came. He had defeated the last remaining challenge of his life. So a loud lightning bolt crackled in the middle of the city and hit his apartment directly. When he opened his eyes, it was raining, and before he could muster a word, someone put a hand on his shoulder and asked what he was doing. They finally have a chance to flee from this place. He should run. He's a bit confused and sees the number 172 on her shirt and instantly wonders where the hell he is. In front of him, there's a bunch more inmates trying to escape from a prison that looks more like a castle. Looking at one of the flags, he thinks he recognizes the eagle's pattern. But then 172 tells him to wake up to reality, because this is the last chance they'll have to escape. If not now, they'll never get out of the butcher's prison. Look at the guy's face, man. And obviously, he already recognized the name Butcher's Prison. I already like the start of this story, right, bro? The guy got escaped by lightning. God looked down and said, "That's enough. Go to another world. This one's already too OP." Obviously, even though the protagonist realizes what's happening, he's still kind of dazed while 172 pulls him. Next to them, a bunch of prisoners keep going by, pulling the gate in a tug of war. Kim Jin-ho wanted to believe this was a dream, but at the same time, it felt way too real. He starts running beside the girl, trying to understand how he ended up inside the game he used to play, until he decides to calm down and escape this place first, and then worry about how to solve this mystery. But suddenly, he stops and tells 172 to pay attention. This was weird. This was supposed to be the most secure prison of all, and everything was way too messed up. 172 says it's because Director Clark isn't there. Looks like he stepped out to deal with something, and this is everyone's chance to escape. Kim Jin-ho, however, suddenly grabs her by the collar and runs in the opposite direction. She tells him to let go, saying he's a maniac, but he was sure. This prison was way too secure for it to fall into chaos like this, and something told him that whoever went through that door wasn't going to live much longer. 172 is trying to resist, telling him to let go of her. And at that moment, the others manage to open the door and start celebrating, saying they're finally free. They're all going out while our boy takes her further inside the prison. But obviously, the smiles of the escapees disappeared really fast, bro. Out of nowhere, arms start flying, legs everywhere, and Director Clark is right in front of them all. The guy turns and says this place really is full of pathetic worms. He gives the order for them to be killed, and the troops storm in. 172 asks why he's there, while our boy says right away that this was clearly a trap. Now the criminals are all rushing back into the prison, desperate, bro. The walls were painted in blood. Sometime later, Clark tells them to gather the survivors. The line of criminals forms. Bro, only our protagonist and his friend are different there. Copy and paste was used hard. She's right next to him, almost throwing up. Actually, wow, she threw up in her hand, all of it. It would have been better to just vomit on the floor. And worst of all, for vomiting, she got punched for moving. Jin-ho is shocked that they're that violent even with kids. No wonder riots happen there all the time. If something like that happens again, he's going to have to get involved in a fight. And then Clark shows up in front of him like 78 meters tall, saying the kid is either really lucky or way too much of a coward to have tried escaping. But to him, that's typical. Every mage is like that, nothing but a coward. Calling people like them rivals is disgusting. He gets in our protagonist's face and says that Arahan is going to regret surviving today. The guy leaves and the protagonist stares at his reflection, wondering if he really was just called Arahan. A week later, a beautiful blue sky and our boy is working. They had to spend the whole day stacking rocks. But not because there was a big reason, just so they wouldn't be idle and had something to do. Looking at his own hand, all busted up, our boy, who I don't even know what to call anymore, Kim Jin-ho 218 Arahan, will figure it out later. But this same guy is complaining that just lifting a rock already makes him run out of breath. And this body is way too weak. Not to mention, they said he's a mage. But he tried to use magic and nothing happened. It seemed like a complete failure. But to him, it made no sense. Arahan should know how to use magic. That's because Arahan is the name of the most powerful mage family in that region. That's when it hits him. He was from that family, probably, but was discarded for having no magical talent. Considering how cruel and sadistic that family is, that would make perfect sense. Then the guard tells him to take that rock over to the other side. The protagonist just obeys and carries the rock. He's looking forward to something specific. On the system window, it says that due to excessive data, synchronization is taking a while. The guy was so overpowered in real life. This guy is struggling to download his files. Yesterday and the next day, a meal time. Or well, meal is a strong word. At the time of rock with water and bread, which also looks more like a rock. The protagonist complains he's been training hard, but with food like this, he won't build any muscle. Then 172 shows up and asks if he's not going to eat the bread again. He says no and tells her to take it. Now I'm confused. Jinho says this friend is peculiar. What do you mean, it's a guy? No way. No, I think something's off, probably. Kim Jinho is wondering why this person, and I'll just say person for now until I know if it's a guy or girl, is locked up in here being so young. And 172 tells him to be careful lately. It seems like because of our guy, everyone's workload increased and nobody's happy about it. Now that made sense to Jinho why so many people were staring at him in that place. And 172 tells him to be careful, especially with 589, the leader of the prisoners, who also has a notorious reputation in the arena. Jinho then says it's better not to talk to him, since she might end up at risk too. But 172 says she already knows everyone, so she can just ignore it. And our protagonist stands up, saying they're going to find out right now. A bunch of prisoners start approaching, and he says the situation she mentioned is about to happen. At that moment, 172 is startled when she sees the guy's number. Right, bro? In theory, he's the leader of the prisoners, right? But honestly, I think he's the leader of the bald gang man. So far, only our protagonist and that friend have hair. No way, that's a coincidence. And the leader says he heard the reason their workload increased was because of that kid. 218 just wants to know what he has to do with that. Well, I mean, it is your fault, right, you bastard? He's about to make up an excuse, but there's already a hand the size of his head in front of him, bro. It opened a crater in the ground and 172 yells out for our boy. But someone grabbed the leader by the neck. What's that, bro? You think Kim Jinho is going to play around? He already lands a knee right in the guy's chin. His friend and the bald guys are all freaking out, calling out to the boss. And the protagonist's expression changed, right, man? He's not the same as before, and now his knee did absolutely nothing. 589 asks, what was that? And now our boy gets grabbed by the collar and is about to get airplane spun, man. The guy was thrown against the wall like protagonist in a couple's fight. Bro. His friend's right there scared, calling out to 218. But the boss says if he didn't die just now, he can rest assured he's marked for death. Whoa there, boss. You better watch out, because the synchronization just hit 100%, bro. Look at the villain's little grin. Finally, someone installed fiber optic in this cursed system that never loads. And the beatdown is about to begin. He's already getting back up, surrounded by that aura or with his fist full of blue energy. The kids all dragging balls now with those auras, doing that little hand flex and foot warm-up. Whoa, man, he's already in MMA stance, telling the guy to step into the ring. The boss laughs, saying for someone abandoned by his own clan, he really thinks a lot of himself. But Jinho just tells him to shut up already and come into the ring. The boss, tired of the talk, runs straight at him, bro. Our boy sees an opening in the leg and takes a low kick. But what? You thought it would be easy. The guy grabbed his foot, saying the kid's gonna learn a lesson now. But again, what? You thought it would be easy. Our boy pulled the B-blade move, started spinning and landed one right on the side of the head. The boss looked a little dazed, but before he could recover, bam, one more under the chin. Man, the guy just wanted to fall, but the kid wasn't about to stop there. Takes another solid kick and stumbles back. With that, the boss hit the ground out cold. And our guy, still being dramatic, says that's why he doesn't like using his leg much. Suddenly, the whole prison's already pulling out their apple slicers heading toward our boy. Because you can't even call those sticks knives, right, man? But our dude stepped on the boss, pulled his arm, and warned. If they came any closer, this guy was going to need help eating for the rest of his life. With that, the bald heads all froze, not knowing what to say. Jinho stomped on the arm again and said he still saw a lot of people standing there. If they wanted to stop this, then call the guards. Right away, one of them takes off running, saying that when the guards come and free the boss, he's gonna die. Apparently, in the end, all the guys surrendered and just carried the boss away. Sometime later in the cell, 172 wants to know how he did that, saying it was way too amazing. Not to mention, the kid looked like he had grown taller out of nowhere. What happened? The protagonist says it was the result of hauling rocks back and forth. But obviously, that was the result of syncing his real-life stats with the game's. It's the first time the protagonist brings his real-life body, because it's more overpowered than the one from the game, you feel me? Usually, it's always the guy who has a trash body and ends up in an amazing one. And now what our boy is impressed with are the stats. Zed Arahan, full of S-rank immunities. Bro. Immortal Duelist, Challenger rank, S-rank Archmage. Man, Grim has it all. What he finds strange is that his class is really Mage. And because of that, he has 50% or less agility, strength, and resistance. And even though he's in the Mage class, he literally has 0 mana. In other words, he's losing half of his attributes for absolutely nothing. Not to mention that this makes no sense because he belongs to the Arahan family, which is full of geniuses. Meanwhile, 172 is just staring, wondering what this lunatic is rambling about, laughing to himself. There's no way the guy's lying on the bed, trying to figure out how it's possible he reincarnated into such a garbage body. But first, he needs to calm down and start considering his options. He's got that so-called growth penalty, which is what's cutting 50-50-50. But even then, it's still better than 0. Not to mention, physical strength is something he knows how to develop even better. The only obvious problem is that the food there is terrible and isn't helping at all. What he's curious to understand better is this whole pile of S-rank talents. If he had all that and could have mana, then he'd be completely busted. An Archmage's blessing like that is for very few people. But it's all good. He's going to try to find a way to solve this no-mana issue. There's got to be some solution. Right then, suddenly, the guy from outside the cell starts calling out several numbers. Everyone called is forced to leave the cell. He asks what's going on. And 172 says those are the people in the death queue, bro. Basically, they'll have one last meal, and then it's goodbye. He says he gets it, then asks the friend's name. To the sadness of some and the joy of others, the name is Ryu. So yeah, he really is a friend. And our boy introduces himself as Zed Arahan. Arahan's a pretty ugly name, so from now on I'm calling him Zed. Cause Zed is badass, you feel me? Zed asks Ryu if he's going to be in prison long. Who says he'll be escaping soon? Protagonist wants to know how. He says it's simple. The guard up front has a key. Zed thinks he's going to steal it, but Ryu says it's impossible. The guy may be retired, but he's a 5-circle knight. Director Clark is the epitome of a knight who hates mages. That's because in the world of Last Savior, knights and mages hate each other. And now Zed's wondering how he's going to escape this place that's guarded by a 5-circle person. Weird. This is the first time I've seen circles used for someone who doesn't use magic. Then Ryu says it's not that hard. You just have to steal it without him noticing. For someone who came from the streets, that's easy. The only problem is that Clark's very attentive. So far, he hasn't seen a single opportunity. Zed smiles and says now he really sees a way to escape this place. The next day, work is about to start again, and one of the guards announces that by orders of the boss, they'll have to carry even more rocks today. The people are complaining, saying it's not going to work. Soon, everyone's going to die. The guard puts a sword to someone's neck, and one of the bald guys says, he just wants to know why they're pushing them so hard. There's no reason for this. The guard looks to the side and says they should already know whose fault it is. Obviously, everyone stares at Zed, and then the guard coughs and says he'll be back in a few minutes. 172 warns him that clearly they're setting him up for the others to jump him. Oh yeah, our protagonists already notice that these knights who follow the code of honor are acting very differently than they should. While Ryu is off running, he's not getting involved in this. But it looks like he's got some kind of plan, because he says he's not going to let Zed die. Obviously, all the inmates are coming to the same conclusion. To make the work easier, they're going to have to kill Zed. The protagonist smiles and says it really is an unavoidable situation. All the thugs rush toward him, saying he's way too confident. But as soon as the first one comes in, bam, he gets welcomed with a knee to the chin. Bowling ball drops to the floor, and everyone's scared now, wondering who's going to be the next crazy one to charge in. But Zed just says for them to all come at him at once already. And there goes the crew again. But the first one that comes is again met with a hammer blow to the head. While he's throwing elbows and smashing, Zed is pissed that these bastards keep coming one by one, and then another and another, instead of just attacking him all together. Another one falls to the ground, and he says these guys are really lacking aggression. And just as he notices something, he ducks just in time and dodges an attack. Another knee, and more headbutts, punches. It's a full-on brawl everywhere. And from a distance, Ryu is watching all this. The boy was leaving a trail of bodies on the ground, and he had no idea Zed was this strong. But right at that moment, someone next to him calls out to Ryu and tells him to come along. Meanwhile, Zed is already drop-kicking guys in the stomach. As always, they pull out those 3cm knives, which I mean are big enough, impressive even. At least that's what she said. But Zed already lands one on the next guy's face, telling him again to come at him with everything. And obviously, at that point, he was having fun. The guy fought his whole life. So if there's one thing he likes, it's having his life on the line. There's nothing better than dodging an attack that could have killed you. That adrenaline is what got him so addicted, both to that game and to martial arts. He hits one more in the chin, another in the back of the neck, while going crazy bro. Clearly not right in the head, obviously. until someone steps on his back and calls out for the damn Zed Arahan. Majin Buu grabs the cracked-out albino kid Buu and tells him that if he doesn't stop, his friend's going to die. Obviously, yeah, Ryu had been captured, but our boy just smiles and says they made a huge mistake. Ryu was trying to break free, biting and everything. And the cracked kid Buu says the kid's going to die to a two-circle knight, so it's not that shameful. He jumps in to attack, but obviously Zed dodges it with ease. The guy looks like he doesn't even know what just happened, saying Zed disappeared. And when he looks to the side, there they are, already chatting calmly. Kid Buu wants to know what just happened, what kind of magic he used. Our guy says, wasn't magic, bro. A movement of skin starts to approach, looks like a ballerina, but lands a perfect hit to the neck. The poor guy got dragged across the floor. But right then, Clark shows up calling for number 218, saying he's going to have to explain himself. But someone speaks up and says 218 was the victim. It's Ryu, who explains that he had been taken hostage, and it was Zed who saved him. Clark looks at the pile of guys knocked out on the floor, and he seems pissed that these guys only ever get beat up. He then says he wants to ask Zed something. He wants to know if, somehow, he's been using mana. Kind of uninterested, Zed says, maybe. But then Clark activates his aura. The prisoners on the ground get up just to say they can't breathe, while Ryu, who is still standing, drops to the floor. Now that makes sense. But through all that, bro, our guy is just standing there, untouched inside a mana barrier. It was one of the S-rank traits, resistance to suppression. He finally figured it out. It was a mental immunity ability. The guy is so full of himself, he says it all makes sense. He reached the pinnacle of Earth, won 27 fights in a row at the top of the world. There's no way some mediocre person from a world like this would ever scare him. Clark, however, didn't like seeing the kid still standing. He's losing his mind. He wants to know how the hell a bastard with no mana is still resisting this. The guy even pulls more of the aura and starts pushing harder. Any more and he'd probably crap his pants for sure. But S-rank suppression resistance is absolute man. And with his hand on his waist, he's totally chillin'. Clark's expression changes. He can't even understand how this is possible. The rest of the guards are begging him to stop, saying at this rate, everyone there is going to die. Suddenly, Clark deactivates his aura. Staring at Zed, he says it's best he try to calm down. Otherwise, at any moment, he's going to cut his throat. He gives the boy one last stare and turns away, telling everyone to get back to work. But man, Zed tells him to wait a second and says he's got something to say. He says he's tired of doing that idiotic rock stacking thing, and he's more than fed up with this bunch of prisoners attacking him. And that's why he's planning to end it all. Ryu asks what this lunatic is talking about, to which Zed replies he wants to join the death row, bro. Clark questions whether he has any idea what he's saying. It's not something he can just change his mind about later. Barboy says Clark can even record it in a crystal ball if he wants. He's not backing down. Clark says, perfect then, and tells someone to bring a registration item. Right away, Zed says that now that he's on death row, he wants to request his last meal. He wants a birdie steak. A big enough portion to fill his belly. Looks like that's something really expensive, because the guards' faces say it all, bro. They say it's madness. Obviously, that top-quality steak is prepared only in the Southern Empire. In the game, it was one of the rarest foods you could consume. Delicious enough to restore even strength lost to age. Some people even ate it in the middle of battle to buff themselves and win the fight, man. Our boy, though, seems to be planning to stockpile it. I don't get it. Let's see what he's up to. He tells Clark that considering the family he's from and the cost of his life, it's a fair request. Besides, he warns that he knows what the real thing is like. So if they try to trick him, the whole deal will be voided. Ryu, though, wants to know why the hell this lunatic is trying to die. Then Zed says he'd forgotten about his friend. The two of them are on death row now. The staff hesitates, but Clark interrupts and says to follow orders. Since it's the life of an Arahan, it's worth it. Our girl thanks them, while obviously Ryu is freaking out, wanting to know why he is dragged into this. Next scene, he's in his room getting ready, apparently just finding that steak takes over a week. Our boy is using this time to keep training. Ryu, on the other hand, thinks it makes no sense. He's going to die anyway, so why bother exercising? Zed then reveals a special little system. 100 is the max number for any attribute, and all remaining experience gets funneled into the one that hasn't been leveled yet. And since he has 100 in every other attribute, obviously all the experience he earns goes into mana. Right in the middle of this, a guard shows up calling for the two of them, and Zed already celebrates, saying it's finally here. The meal, the extremely rare steak, is being prepared. As soon as Yuk the beef takes a bite, he cries with emotion, saying he's never eaten anything so good in his life. To which Zed says, don't forget, that's thanks to me. Some of our guy's negative status effects are being partially erased. He can feel like part of the experience that was blocked is finally entering his body. Meanwhile, someone enters Clark's room and says the banquet has begun. He celebrates and orders no one to approach the two of them, while wondering what the hell happened that day. The boy didn't resist, and yet Clark felt something strange. It was like his magic didn't resonate. Even though he's retired, he's still a 5-circle knight. A young mage with no mana should not be able to do something like that. Something terrible must have happened that day. But today, he's sure he'll get the information he needs. Looking at the bracelet, He's sure the humiliation will be hundreds of times worse. Sometime later, the banquet is over and the two of them are stuffed. Ryu says he's ready to die, but our boy says, unfortunately, he's not. Now his body was full of energy and strength, the same feeling he had when he spent the whole day punching the sandbag. The door opens and he turns around saying that they finally arrived, already asking Clark what he plans to do now that they've eaten everything. Clark starts to say something, but our boy tells him to wipe off that sad smile. He should be disappointed. There wasn't even a little bit left. Clark, though, is just getting more and more pissed, saying that this bastard thinks too highly of himself just because of his bloodline. But it's all good. He puts a hand on his shoulder, thinking it's fine. He'll make the boy succumb to agony today. Poor old man, 40 years old, struggling to deal with a teenager. Ah, now it's revealed. Clark wants to take advantage of having someone from the Arahan family there to extract information. Any detail about how that family works is worth good money. He then activates the power of the bracelet, and Zed notices it instantly. That man is a magical tool. Clark asks what he's thinking about that sensation. But of course, Zed is just standing there, completely fine. Ryu is nearly fainting and collapses to the side. Then Zed tells Clark he should behave a little better. Clark loses it and goes in with both hands on Zed's shoulders. But nothing happens. Zed just gives his hand a little pat. And now, apparently, the fight is about to start. Because he tells Clark that he warned him to take it easy. If he wanted to kill someone, he should have done it the proper way and not just keep whining. Clark, though, was all twisted up, not understanding why his magical tool isn't working. That would only be possible if the kid had a magical circle above his. But at his age, there's no way. That doesn't make sense at all. Which only leaves one other option. He must have some kind of bloodline from the Arahans that cancels out powers. Clark, man, to get to the 5th circle, he had to train and practice hard his whole life. But even if failed mage discarded by the family can resist this artifact, suddenly the item shuts off. And Zed asks if he's finally going to stop with this nonsense. Apparently, Clark gives up on threatening him and just lowers his head, saying that he can resist all he wants. Now that the decree has come down from the Majesty, he'll be executed tomorrow morning. He should enjoy his last night in this world. Sometime later in his room, he's making some notes. Even though he couldn't learn much, he's writing it all down. The problem is that he's dozing off, exhausted. His mana was used to the limit to activate that artifact. He wants to finish the report, but the pen slips from his hand. A while later, Ryu wakes up in the room, and Zed wants to know if he's finally getting up. He tells him to stop complaining, even if he feels nauseous or like throwing up. But our boy compliments him, saying he really does have fast hands. Aw man, I wasn't going to say anything, but I felt that moment when he leaned forward to fall. It was suspicious. I thought he's sitting down and falls forward. Got up just to fall again. Weird, right? But now there's the reason, man. Our boy praises him, saying he did a good job. For anyone else, it would have been insane. But he was really quiet and sneaky. Ryu, though, says it only worked because Zed distracted Clark, and he wants to know if he's really okay after all that. Our boy says he is, and then Ryu says there's definitely something shady about him. At that moment, Zed decides to ignore that and check his status. Mana is still at 0, but now everything else went down to -40, meaning he's a bit stronger. That steak really made a difference. His body is becoming more and more comfortable to inhabit, and he can't even imagine how good it'll feel with 100% stats. Then he tells his friend they're going to have to escape tonight. So if he's recovered, it's time. Ryu says this is madness. Clark is going to notice them showing up any second now. But our guy, obviously aware, says not to worry. He's probably sleeping. Ryu is curious, but the reason is obvious, right folks? That bracelet Clark used pulls an absurd amount of mana from the body, but it causes exhaustion right after. And since Zed saw the item shut off earlier, he knows the guy is asleep. All thanks to the fact that he was taken to that room. And this guy walks around with the keys. The plan was easy. The time to leave had come, and the two of them get up. Ryu is hesitant, but our boy says the hard part is already over. He kicks the bars, and they fall right down, bro. It's not like a few bits of metal were going to stop him. Obviously, on the outside. The first guards already react, wanting to know what he thinks he's doing. To which Zed replies, "Isn't it obvious, bro? I'm escaping this place." Didn't even see what hit them, and the two are already outside, running through the yard. But turns out those damn organized guards are already lined up at the gate. Oh, poor guys who showed up to stop him, man. Just look at the guy in the middle. Bro, you've got 0 chance. The guards shout at Zed to stop, but Zed just rushes forward, scaring Ryu. The first guy in the way looks like he's got 6 kids Zed's age. He runs past, dodging easily, then plants a hand right in the guy's face, slamming one guard into another like playing bowling with dudes. Poor guards are already all laid out, bent and twisted. Before the second one could react, bam, a hit straight to the jugular. A clean tap that knocked the air right out of him. Zed keeps moving in from the right, and now the rest were basically getting eaten alive. He kicks the first guy he threw, while the ones behind are more focused on defending than attacking. Some fool tries a sword swing, but Zed ducks under it and lands a heel kick straight in the guy's ribs. The guy practically fell on his feet. Zed even blocked the next sword swing with a hand on the ground. Another kick. Man, this dude is the king of Taekwondo. Another fool went face first into the dirt, and 2 more poor souls came from behind. And look at the psycho's face, huh? enjoying himself like always. I don't even know what he did, but he landed a kick on one guy that knocked him into the other. Meanwhile, Ryu can't even believe what he's seeing. Sometime later, just look at Clark's face now, totally dumbfounded. Realizes he fell asleep at the worst possible time. His guys are all wrecked on the ground, begging for forgiveness. Unfortunately, number 218 had escaped. Obviously, he gives the order immediately to start the hunt. But the scene shifts now, to a hotel in a village near the detention center. Ryu is looking around, checking if anyone's coming. Obviously, he and our boy stand out a lot in those orange uniforms. At least Ryu knows the whole area, so he starts showing Zed around and explaining how things work. First thing they needed to do was blend in better with the locals. So they hit up a beggar's stash to steal his clothes, bro, saying that was the best way to hide. Ryu says he'll go grab some food, and our boy asks how, since they don't have any money. But the little thief is a femboy, right, bro? He's gonna steal it easy. And he even tells Zed to just wait there like a side character. He'll be right back. 1 or 2 hours later, our boy has a different colored eye. That's because the thief even brought him a contact lens. They're in the southern region where people adore the old hero, and that's why blue eyes are kind of a trendy item. Our boy guesses it might be because of the clan that the main character Torres Barrel belonged to. That was the Sword X family, and their enemies obviously were the Arrowhands. Just like they hated each other and were opposites. Even the eye color was different, and obviously for that reason, he couldn't go around flashing those glowing red eyes. Sometime later, they're in a cabin in the forest. It's kind of like the beginning after the end, where the protagonist gets lost in the forest with the elf girl. Except here, in this case, it's with the femboy instead. And only now is reality starting to hit Zed. He's wondering how the hell he ended up inside a game, and what kind of situation is this where now he has to sleep in a stable. But the madman says that at least life is fun. What Zed really wants to know is why this crazy guy Ryu is always glued to him. Also, it seemed like the guy kept calling him a side character, which didn't make any sense. He still needs help, so he'll keep Ryu close for now. But he needs to be careful. He doesn't know him well yet. He doesn't know how long he can trust this person. Thanks, man. Our boy's all lonely, huh? Though it does make sense, right? He was 40 years old, spent all of his time fighting and playing games. There wasn't a single soul in that house. Next morning, he wakes up and is already impressed that none of this was a dream. Ryu says he's impressed that a noble like Zed can sleep in a place like this. Zed asks him if he likes this place, and his friend just says something obvious, right, bro? There's no such thing as liking when you're poor. You sleep wherever you can. Even though our boy hijacked this guy's life halfway through, he was also super rich in his previous life. And like a good capitalist, bro, he gets up and says it's time to make money. You can't level up and get strong if you don't even have a place to sleep or eat. Ryu says that's going to be really hard. They're definitely being hunted by Clark, and soon enough they'll be found. Zed asks if he's talking about stealing, but our boy says that's impossible. There's no way to steal enough to get rich in a place like this. First, they'd have to make money in a fair and honest way. In other words, the arena, right boys? And there we are in the underground arena, where sand flies and it's face-to-face, forehead to forehead. Look at that smug little grin. If there's one place he feels at home, it's right there. And now that I realize it, doesn't this dude kind of look like a male Mikasa from Attack on Titan? Little scarf, that black hair, like it's Mikasa? Incredible. And there they are, bro, in the crowd in the madness of the fights. Ryu, of course, already says he must be thinking something weird, because this must be the wrong place. But the madman says no way, this place is perfect. Man, the guy's biting someone's shoulder, but then bam, gets cannon punched in the mouth. It's pure brawling. No rules here, bro. Punches to the ribs, bites wherever you can get him. It's chaos. The crowd's cheering, loving it. While Ryu is horrified and our boy is celebrating. The fight level was better than he expected. He thought it'd be a bunch of amateurs, but turns out they're not so bad after all. Then Walmart Yujiro Hama comes running in and lands a solid one on the big guy. The guy suffers for a second. Actually, more than a second, because he gets hit with a whole combo. Ryu is freaked out, telling Zed to rethink Thiz, but then he notices his friend had disappeared. Everyone in the audience is panicking, bro. Hama has blood on his hands. But look who's standing there holding his arm. It's Zed, telling him to go a little easier. Walmart Yujiro is standing there, confused, bro. Of course, Ryu already thinks the guy lost his mind. And the girls in the crowd think this is the modern world, asking the ref if he got paid to let someone die. Yujiro rips his arm out of Zed's grip, asking if he's some kind of noble and if he has a death wish. But man, Zed says absolutely not. They should be able to tell just by looking. He's just some street kid. Then the crowd gets mad, telling Yujiro to beat up the brat who's interrupting the fight. Zed says that's fine then. He'll take responsibility with a fight that'll entertain everyone. Obviously, Ryu doesn't think it's a good idea and starts going off, ranting a million things in Zed's ear. But Zed tells him to calm down, saying all his friend needs to do is bet everything he has on him for this fight. Ryu doesn't want to. But Zed tells him to remember, bro, that meat they ate was way too good. So after this fight, they're gonna have another banquet. There he is, face to face. The other guy says he admires the kid for being crazy in the head. At least he doesn't look scared. But then something catches his attention. The kid's stance was active, his breathing seemed steady, and he was staring at him with a killer aura. Clearly, his posture was better than anyone else he'd ever seen in that ring. Suddenly, it's Yujiro who's shaking, telling himself it's impossible he's this scared of a kid. He decides to rush in, saying none of this makes sense. But he's immediately met with a cannon punch to the cheek, and boom, the nose faucet turns on. And Zed even plays the coach, telling the guy, "You never start a fight throwing a punch behind the shoulder." He already starts throwing a combo at the poor guy who's trying to dodge, but keeps getting popped right in the jaw. Our boy explains that you always keep your arm forward. It serves both for defense and offense. Poor Yujiro is eating a full face of machine gun punches. Zed just keeps that arm forward, defense, and attack. Yujiro's face is getting all swollen up while Ryu has his eyes shut, praying, and he slowly opens them just in time to see the poor fool already kneeling in the dirt. Meanwhile, Mikasa's over there, all smug smiles, "Huh bro." Ryu can't believe it, but I don't know how he can't believe it. Did he not see Zed beat down a prison full of people? Poor Yujiro, man. He's trying to open his eyes, seeing blurry shapes. He can't believe he's about to lose to a kid like this right in front of everyone. He tries one last punch, but Zed dodges with ease and goes full beatdown again. One last clean hit right in the middle of the pit, and he falls flat on his back. Our boy already turns to the ref and tells him to call the match. He won, but right bro, this is a betting house. And the guy knows if he declares Zed the winner, a lot of people are gonna be mad. But he doesn't really have much choice. Yujiro's not getting up, so that's it. Zed's declared the winner. Obviously, the smug one says the fight wasn't even enough for a warm-up. Sometime later, with a bag of coins in hand, he asks his friend why there's only this much. In theory, it was 60 people betting against him and only one in favor. The betting guy says the calculation is correct. He followed the exact process. Zed insists. With the amount that was bet, it should have been way more. He calls for Ryu, and just by the look on his face, it's clear he didn't bet everything on bro. Right then, someone tall approaches, long blue hair walking up, and we can already see the storyteller's talent. Huh. Little red dress. Only problem is, she's got villain face. Like no way she's gonna be a friend to our boy. She's clearly gonna bring nothing but trouble. She walks up saying she wants to have a little chat, but he just asks, "Who are you?" Man, the world's not even modern, but this one's already got filler done. Look at the size of that lower lip. She says that for him not to know who she is, this must be his first time here. She's the owner of the arena, known as Herna, but Zed already walks past her, saying it's good to know, but he's not in the mood for talking. Ryu's already noticing, this is not going to end well. And two gigantic guys, bro, already blocked the way like a wall in front of our boy. And boldly, he looks 90 degrees up and asks if everyone wants to end up on the ground. The iron-jawed dudes are all confused, thinking the kid's gone completely crazy. From behind, Herna says that the warrior he defeated was brought in from the big city. He needs to understand what that means. She will let him go today, but he can be sure they'll meet again. Somewhere much more relaxing. Good boy, this one's dangerous. She plays this kind of dangerous game. Run, boy. And she says she really likes very strong boys. Yikes. Looks like he slipped away just fine though, because there we are the next day at a bar, and Ryu's exhausted, saying that Zed's crazy in the head for acting that confident in front of that woman. He has to understand, she runs that whole place. Our boy though says she just seems like an old fox addicted to money. Ryu says he's right about that. She's known as the fox around here, meaning she probably tried to get close to him to gain some kind of advantage. But man, it's not the first time Zed's been seen as a genius. As soon as he started getting famous and winning a bunch of fights, a million calls started coming in, everyone offering contracts and endless options. Back then, he was a bit more naive and got scammed several times, but by sheer luck he found his manager, the one who made him a champion. Obviously, all of that taught him very clearly what it takes to reach the top. Since he called her an old fox for her wisdom, soon they'd find out who was really wiser. The fancy meat they ordered is served. Ryu already wants to dig in, but our boy tells him to wait. Clearly, they were being scammed. This was far from the quality they'd ordered. This wasn't that ultra-rare steak. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to serve it to everyone in the bar. Ryu says, whatever, I'm hungry. Once the steak hits your belly, it's all the same. But Zed says if they paid for a birdie steak, that's exactly what they're gonna get. He calls over one of the waiters, who immediately says if he's going to complain, he better leave because no one likes his presence there. Zed completely ignores what the guy said and just says, this steak is fake. You'd better bring the real one before complaining about me. The waiter asks if he's lost his mind. Our boy tells him to call the boss, and now the guy's certain this street kid is nuts. But he says fine. If he really wants to meet the boss, then follow him. Obviously, this doesn't lead anywhere good. Inside the boss's office is a fat guy and a bunch of goons, already pointing knives at the door. The guy asks if he's the customer causing trouble, to which Zed just replies that the ones causing trouble are the people selling fake stuff in this place. The fat guy sends the first goon forward, saying the kid doesn't understand the situation he's in. But Zed's already smiling. Another little fight for him to enjoy. The bar guys, poor things, all rushing just to get smacked in the face like always. Another one gets his arm broken, then a hit to the neck of one, dodges another, lands a clean shot, and throws the guy on his back. The fat boss, who was celebrating at first, is already starting to see the situation turning bad for him. The whole group is lying on the floor with something broken, and Zed is standing in the middle of them all. Ryu tells them to be careful, that this is the kid who took down Walmart Yujiro, and apparently the fat guy had heard a similar story, but thought it was just a rumor. Now he wants to know, what does Zed want? The boys approach and say he's actually quite reasonable. First, they'll give back the money he paid. Second, they'll pay for the steak he ate, at the price of the real birdie steak. The fat guy screams, saying they're just a bunch of little crooks. But he's probably screwed, huh, bro? Because Mike falls and Ryu's in bed all happy, celebrating and saying he's never slept in a place this soft. He then turns over and praises our boy, saying he really is amazing, as expected of a noble from a powerful family. Zed says it's easy to negotiate when you have power, right, bro? And with that, another night falls. As always, man, Ryu's there with that peculiar look on his face in the middle of the night, out of nowhere. Suddenly, he gets up and calls for Zed. He asks if he's ready. Our boy doesn't answer, so Ryu gets up and leaves. But obviously, right, man, Zed was awake the whole time and saw the whole thing. A few days pass. Ryu walks into the room saying he's starving. He wants to know what time they're going out to eat. Zed, as always, has been training all day. Ryu asks how it's possible for him not to take even a single break. The protagonist stands up and takes a look at his stats. He says, unfortunately, they're not going up anymore. No matter how much he trains or checks, Mana is still stuck at 0. Maybe it's because he's going from nothing to 1, right? That's the hardest part. It's taking a bit longer. He turns to Ryu, saying training is over, and it's time for them to go get a steak for breakfast. It's been 3 days since they last went, giving the guys a chance to recover. Because the last few times they went, they ate 10 portions, and in the end, the staff had to pay them. Then Zed asks Ryu how many coins they still have. He replies that they're almost out, because the cost of living in this city is crazy high. Zed says he understands. But man, the truth is, this is a game he played for 10 years. He knows the economy very well. 50 gold coins, what they earned, is not the kind of thing you burn through in a couple days like that. Maybe Ryu thinks he's an idiot, just a noble who doesn't understand how the world works. And now Zed wants to know, is it greed? What's he hiding? Or does he have some kind of addiction? For now, he'll keep pretending he hasn't noticed anything, because he hasn't seen any sign of betrayal. But eventually, he's going to need to understand why. Already at the bar, one of the guys opens the door and tells the boss that they're here. And this time, they've got a plan, man. He tells the guy to make sure everyone's ready. As soon as our boy shows up, he's welcomed with a candlelight banquet. The waiter says he hopes our boy feels at home. Obviously, Zed already finds this weird, and wants to know why they're being so friendly out of nowhere. The moment they walked in, he looked around. Didn't spot any assassins. The restaurant looked the same as always. Interrupting his thoughts, Ryu wrapped a bit of meat in lettuce and told him to take a bite. Our boy grabbed his hand and said, all right, he'd eat, but he'd keep an eye on everything around them. But obviously, as soon as he bites it, he feels something off, and tells Ryu to spit it out. He throws it out immediately, of course, wanting to know what kind of poison nonsense this is. Zed says the amount is small. It's not going to kill them, but something's clearly going on. He opens up his status screen, and now understands why the staff was being so friendly. Obviously, with absolute poison resistance, nothing happens to him. But the problem is that after eating a lot, he'd eventually die just the same. Ryu wants to know if he's really sure it's poison. He didn't smell anything, didn't notice anything, so why can't they eat it? Zen just says it's because he's an Arahan, just to change the subject, which makes Ryu mad. He says, so it's like that? This snob really is on a different level. That's when the protagonist smiles, saying it's time to make these guys pay for trying something like that. Sometime later, the boss shows up, clearly pissed, wanting to know what the kids want with him. Zed is sitting at the back of the table and says he's just curious and had a few questions. But the boss notices that all the plates are empty, so they ate it all, and the poison should kick in any second. But then he says he's not here to answer anything. He's not going to talk to people who just want to extort money from him. Zed says that, as he can see, the boss is completely misunderstanding the situation. He tells Ryu to give their friend a bit of meat so they can talk over a meal. Obviously, Ryu hands over that meat roll that's probably been in his hand for like 40 minutes, and the fat guy is just standing there, right, wanting to know why they're offering something like that. Our boy says it's a peace offering. If the guy accepts eating it, then he'll accept any condition afterward. The boss says he's not interested. He has no intention of making peace with the kid. Zed wants to know if maybe the guy just really loves giving him money, or if there's another reason he doesn't want to eat that. Like, say, if it were poisoned. The chubby guy stutters trying to reply, and Zed already says he messed up thinking he was going to walk out of this easily. He kicks the table, and all the meat they were supposed to eat hits the floor. Zed says he'd been going easy, but trash like him really does enjoy suffering, huh? Even so, the fat guy slaps the wall, saying there's no poison, and if they show any proof, he'll admit it. Our boy goes for his eye and removes the contact lens, saying that is all the proof he needs. Upon seeing the red eye, The guy knows immediately he's an Arahan. He falls on his butt, totally scared, afraid he's going to die. In just a second, he's already on his knees begging for forgiveness, saying he didn't realize he was a noble. The guy's sobbing, desperate, wanting to know why a kid from a family like that is wandering around pretending to be a beggar. At that moment, Zed realized something. The Arahan name held way more power than he imagined. He asks if the fat guy will do anything he says, to which the man replies yes. Zed says his first condition is that he can't tell anyone about his identity. The guy agrees. Then Zed gives the second condition. He has to hand over half of all his money, and in return, Zed will act like none of this ever happened. Apparently, the Arahan family is really dangerous, because I thought the fat guy was going to say, that's too much. But nope, he just agrees and says he's going to get it right away. He runs out saying he better hand it over quickly, before the kid changes his mind. Zed puts the lenses back in, and Ryu praises him, saying that his name really scared the guy. He didn't even have the guts to say anything, but Zed already warns that this will be their last night in this city. But look who walks in just at that moment, wanting to know what the rush is all about. The two of them turn to see Herna walk in with arms crossed, saying they've finally met again. She praises our boy, saying he's even more impressive than she imagined. Now Zed's hesitating, not sure if she found out he belongs to the Arahan family. It would make sense, and he sees the fat guy shaking his head no back and forth, so that probably isn't the case. Which means maybe she got some info from the prison. If the fat guy finds out he's an abandoned Arahan, the deal will be off, so he has to wrap this up quickly. He says fine, he'll accept a private conversation with her. Now face to face at the table, he asks why she's here or why she's been looking for him. Herna tilts her head to the side and says he's misunderstanding again. She didn't come here for him. She had a meeting with a client there. At that moment, Zed realizes. That client is Ryu, who apologizes for doing something like that. Herna says she's sorry, but unfortunately, she still hasn't been able to fulfill her side of the deal. Ryu stands up angrily, saying that's not what they agreed to, and that he's already paid a lot of money. But Herna says it's impossible to find someone who disappeared that long ago. They could be alive or dead. Zed finally realizes what's going on, and says they'll settle this a different way. Since she wants to negotiate with him, then she'll be negotiating with both of them. In other words, our boy will help her if she solves Ryu's problem first. Herna thanks him and says her request is going to be real simple. All she wants is for him to fight Walmart Yujiro one more time. Ryu says it's clearly a trap, but right then Zed already accepts it. Bro. Lip filler face is already reminiscing, saying not to worry, she'll hold up her end of the deal. Sometime later they're walking back through the streets, and Ryu's there holding a little coin pouch. Zed asks why he's making that face. It made a ton of money. But Ryu's apologizing, saying he didn't want to hide things from him from the start. Since she knows the city and everyone who passes through it, he figured she'd be a good source of info. But yeah, you should have told Zed beforehand. Zed says it's fine. Besides, he knew from the beginning that Ryu was stealing money. Ryu's a little shocked he knew, but Zed says, just so he doesn't feel too bad. He only just figured out that the money was going to Herna. Ryu wants to know why he didn't say anything, and our boy just says it's because he doesn't care. The help Ryu had been giving was worth more than those coins. But he does stay. He doesn't let things slide like that all the time. From now on, Ryu better not hide anything else. No matter where he was born, he can't act like garbage. Bro, what do you mean by that? You saying everyone who's poor is garbage? You bastard, come here so I can sock you. But Ryu's already teary-eyed, apologizing, swearing he'll never do it again. Even so, he begs our boy not to join the fight. They could just take the money and vanish from this place. Zed asks, how's he going to get info about his brother if they run away now? To which Ryu says he already figured it out. That woman's going to scam them again. Zed thinks about it. Ryu's not an idiot, so it's clear that him going to Herna meant he was desperate. He knew it was a bad offer, knew the chances were low, but he had no other choice. Meanwhile, that Dan Herna was the type to take advantage of desperate kids and leave them behind. And yeah, he admits he wanted to run away too, but he changed his mind. Ryu begs him to drop it. Obviously, he trusts Zed's skills now. But even so, Herna's definitely going to rig something. But Zed just says that's exactly why he wants to fight. Nothing better than cleaning up trash that's in your way. He's sure she's gone all out prepping this guy. Every cheat possible, all to make Zed lose, which makes it perfect. Meanwhile, back at the prison, man, I almost forgot about these guys. They're still out hunting for our boy. One of them comes to report to Clark that all the troops are ready. He slams the table, saying now they're finally going to take out that Dan rat that's been hiding right under their nose. From today, that damn Arahan doesn't leave alive. 3 days later, we're in the middle of the arena. Walmart Yujiro is raising his arms up, saying today he's going to kill the kid. Zed is amazed this guy's still so confident after getting his butt kicked so hard, and Ryu's still insisting he back out, saying they can still run any time. But there they are, face to face. The fight everyone's been waiting for, bro. The fancy twirly guy versus the city beggar. Suddenly fell. The look on everyone's face in the stands changes, and Ryu says things just got serious. Strangely enough, the guy had taken on the exact same stance as Zed. Yujiro is thinking that Herna better have a solid plan, and that's the only reason he even came back. No way there's an Arahan without mana. That wouldn't make any sense. But he was abandoned in prison, so maybe that's why. He decides to rush in, saying he's going to find out for himself. Our boy dodges the first move, while now it's Yujiro who's giving out tips. He says he practiced what Zed told him and really noticed it was useful. Our boy is dodging, impressed that the guy actually listened to what he said and practiced. But then suddenly, he notices the way the guy's positioning himself, and bam, he whips him on the side of the head. Man, Yujiro was left all twisted up with smoke coming out of his forehead. But out of nowhere, he starts smiling. Says the loser really doesn't have any mana. People in the crowd say that weirdly enough today he seems really tough. Everyone's cheering for him by name. But Zed already knew what it was. The Overbelt, an item that negates 90% of physical damage, which is just absurd in a fight like this. Normally it's easy to beat someone wearing it, since all you have to do is use mana. But in Zed's case, well, he doesn't have any mana. Ryu's over in the corner, trying to understand what's happening. Why this guy's resisting Zed's attack so easily. He tells him to be careful. Clearly that woman did something. But Zed's smiling. He tells Ryu just to watch and pay attention. His friend doesn't get it. Why the heck is he smiling like that? Meanwhile, Yujiro asks if he's going to give up. Suddenly, Zed lets his shoulders drop and says he's actually surprised. Yujiro immediately notices. The boy's fighting stance had changed. He was going to ask Zed something, but he just got smashed on the side of the head. Even with 90% resistance, his ear was already purple and turning necrotic. A kick to the stomach. He starts stumbling backwards, confused as to how he's even taking real damage with that belt. But man, of our boy Zed had a grin on his face. It's not every day he gets to fight using 100% of his strength. Whenever he did that in the ring within less than a minute, the other guy was already unconscious on the ground. Because of that, he'd never really been able to go all out before. But here was a guy standing in front of him, taking all those kicks and still on his feet. That was the first time he'd seen something like that. And instantly, he wanted to kick him some more, to see what it felt like again. Yujiro throws his arms up, convinced another high kick is coming. But then he gets slammed in the ribs. His guard drops. He takes one in the face, goes to block low, and gets hit in the gut. The poor guy couldn't even tell where the attacks were coming from anymore. That was it. He couldn't even see what was happening in the fight anymore. While Zed is telling him not to dare collapse now, Yujiro tries to say he gives up and takes another one to the chin. The crowd is stunned, and now our boy breaks the belt. The item shatters. Yujiro feels a chill go down his spine and collapses to his knees. Right then, the protagonist asks him why he's not getting back up. Man, Yujiro was about to apologize again and say he forfeits, but gets another shot right to the face. Zed's not letting him say the word forfeit. That wasn't nearly enough yet. But just then, Yujiro sees something strange. Zed's contact lens was breaking apart, and he could see the red eye underneath. The guy was about to say the name Arahan, but passed out cold, falling backward. Suddenly, the protagonist feels something strange in his chest, like some kind of alien energy coursing through his body. He decides to open up the system window. And man, just like you guessed, finally his mana had gone from 0 to 1. It might not be much, but to him, the feeling was way better than expected. Because yeah, man, he's got an S-rank Archmage talent, so that makes a huge difference. But then he notices, strangely, the whole place had gone silent. Ryu comes running and asks why he took the lenses out. Zed bro, he just points to himself and asks, "Can everyone see my eye?" And Ryu says, obviously. Not only that, his eye looked even redder now, almost glowing. From the stands, everyone recognized it instantly and shouted the name, Arahan. Nobody had any doubts. They just took off running, bro, shouting that anyone seen by those eyes dies. My god, what the heck did his family do in this world, man? Just seeing the eye color was enough to make everyone bolt. Not even Itachi, if the Mangekyo Sharingan caused that much fear, bro. Right then, Zed ran off too, saying that soon the guards were going to show up, so they better disappear quick. Meanwhile, Miss Fat Lips over there was fuming, saying she never should have listened to that damn guy from the prison. She gets up, saying that now she's going to have to deal with this Zed guy herself. Obviously, she's furious because she lost a fortune, since that guy she hired, right man, wasn't cheap. Not to mention that belt cost over 200 gold coins and was destroyed. At that moment, she knows that damn brat already made her lose around 2,000 coins. She's screaming in rage, puts her hand on her face, saying she should have listened to that guy and killed that brat from the start. Meanwhile, our boy and Ryu, man, they're already getting ready to leave that place. The problem is that now there were guards everywhere. Sometime later, Ryu comes out of a barrel asking if things are finally calm. He tells the boy to stay there because he's going to get a carriage so they can leave. But right then, a guy with orange hair stops and says that Herna sent him. She has some information that Ryu is looking for and that you should go talk to her. Besides, they'd better know there wouldn't be any other carriages running in that city. I thought the boys were going to run away, but there they go again, going to meet up with the crazy lady. Will obviously knows it's a trap, and Zed already knows too. The friend thinks it's crazy, but Zed says if they don't take care of this now, the problem will follow them for the rest of their lives, so it was time to finish it. And just like he imagined, a little while later, there's Herna with all the guards. Even that bastard Clark Mustache showed up, man. all crooked, thinking he's not going to lose. And Clark guarantees that if someone dirty like those two really did steal a key and run away like that. Hearn is laughing, says he was an idiot. If he'd stayed on her side, things wouldn't have turned out like this. But Zed says that even if he could go back in time, his choice wouldn't change. Besides, he wasn't planning to die quietly. At that moment, Clark draws his sword and says Zed Arahan will be executed right now and no one should interfere. The protagonist just tells Ryu to stay back, and Clark says it's comical. The boy really thought he had a chance in this fight. Honestly, for a mage, he was brave. Our boy says he has a 50% chance of winning. That actually is kind of a psychological game he plays with himself. Against someone stronger than him, he always believes that because then he doesn't give up. At least he has a chance. And against someone weaker, he doesn't get too careless either, since that person also has a chance. This little guy's got quite the strong mindset. To him, it didn't matter how strong the 5-circle knight was. The odds were still 50-50. Either he wins or he loses. Then Clark starts coating his blade in aura and says the boy is confident until the end. His aura expands and he warns that the boy will die confident either way. Then he charges forward, calling out to Zed Arahan and telling him to die. The protagonist just watches him coming, saying that was exactly what he wanted. He didn't want much, just the opportunity to risk his life and the chance to lose. At that moment, he became a challenger once more, and the signature expression of the rank S determined challenger activates. All his attributes temporarily increased by 10. He sees Clark's blade coming and a purple explosion hits the ground. He calls out for Zed, and in the middle of the smoke, Clark is standing there silently. He had opened a crater in front of him, but where was the boy? That's when someone tells the captain to look up, man, there were some lightning bolts coming. Huh, what's this? Out of nowhere, the boy was flying and glowing. What's happening here, man? He activated the Reborn Thunder transformation. Ah, I get it. He gained 10% more in all stats, probably got more mana, and now he has enough to use power. He's an S-rank Archmage. That little transformation kind of reminds you of Killua's, doesn't it? When he has all Lightning Eye, except this one's the golden version. Our boy immediately charges in, Clark is surprised and has to defend against the flying kick. Man, he was already a beast in hand-to-hand combat, now he's gonna beat people down with magic. The fool is pushed back and keeps wondering how this is even possible. He can't believe a brat like that could have Lightning Kai. Unlike the basic elements, almost no one had resistance to lightning. But this was an element that not even the founder of the Arahan clan was supposed to have. So why did this discarded brat have that power? The guards and that fool Herna are all standing there with their jaws on the floor. Ryu off to the side isn't even impressed anymore. Clark, though, stomps the ground firmly, thinking this is what he hates the most, people who have everything handed to them just because of their bloodline. He slashes towards Zed, saying he hates people like him, when our boy just does a Matrix-style dodge backwards. Man. Clark insists, sending a cross slash, while our boy dodges one, dodges another, and starts getting closer. Clark, however, had managed to slash for the side of his head and was sure the kid wouldn't dodge this one. But his sword seemed to collide with some kind of electric barrier. The kid kind of had a natural shield, and now he was right next to him, landing a solid hit in the ribs, and damn, that frame is beautiful. Take that in the chest, fool. While he's writhing in the electricity. Man, the Korean moon is going wild. A purple explosion hits, and the guy's back. Yeah, he's something. The problem is, man, the guy was already the king of dodging, and now he's all electrified. Dodges another strike, comes from the side, and lands another one on the chin. Clark can't understand why this kid is fighting like this. He was supposed to be a mage. Obviously, mages use barriers and stay at a distance to cast spells. And that's why when a knight gets close, they're always defeated. That was kind of the law of this world, and a law that had never been broken. And that's why this kid in front of him made no sense. More lightning flying around and Clark trying to hold the attacks back. It was the first time he had seen a mage of this style, so he had no strategy. He decided to change plans and back off to use those long-range sword-slash attacks. But Zed is way faster, and in a second, he's face-to-face again, landing another punch right to the face. Clark couldn't see any openings and takes another one in the gut. Man, now he got launched all the way to the other side, crashing into a tree. The poor guy's spitting out like 3 liters of blood while the soldier beside him asks if he's okay. One thing's clear, he's a man of honor, man, because even with the others trying to help, he says nobody should get involved. Then he turns to the boy and says that really, he lost to Arahan. At the very least, he should be killed now. But Zed asks if the guy wants to know why he lost. Clark says no, just kill him already and stop being annoying. But Zed doesn't care, he says he's going to tell him anyway. He says the only reason he lost is because Zed's been training way more and putting in the effort. Obviously, it's Clark's weak spot, and he says it's ironic. Someone with a bloodline like is talking about effort and training. The strength he has is simply because he was born with Arahan blood. He really has no idea what true effort looks like, effort from someone with no talent at all. But Zed responds that he's sure Clark should have been stronger than him at that age. If he'd have fought better and trained to become even stronger, he shouldn't have lost now. But he's blinded by this inferiority complex. Besides, a knight should never blame another person for their own defeat. Clark stays silent and says, yeah, that's ironic, while thinking he never imagined that a kid like this would remind him of the true code of a knight. Then he tells Arahan to just end it already and kill him. The problem is, Zed knows that if he kills this guy, someone known as the Five-Circle Knight, he's going to start being hunted. But he also couldn't let him walk around out there talking about him to everyone. At that moment, the Challenger talent and the Lightning talent deactivate. He suddenly raises his hand and everyone in the forest screams, asking what he's doing. Herna orders the guards to kill him now. Surrounded by everyone, Zed thinks this number of people isn't ideal. But suddenly, he looks back and a strange mist starts approaching. The whole place gets covered by this energy, and he's trying to figure out whether it's a mage or someone approaching. The situation was worse than he thought, and he needed to escape. Suddenly, the mist seems to settle a bit. But in the next second, when he opens his eyes, everyone in front of him is dead. Man, he didn't even get to kill Herna, and nobody even had time to scream. The strange part is that the bodies are full of scratch-like cuts, and even Clark was killed. Then Zed remembers Ryu, looks back and calls for him. All awkward and bent over, he shows up from the bushes, saying he's fine. His friend asks if it was him who did that, and our boy says no, there must be some high-ranking mage nearby. Whatever it is, it's best they leave as fast as possible. Then Ryu sees a card among the bodies and tells him to check it out. It was way too clean and looked like it was deliberately thrown there. The two of them are leaving while someone watches them from up in a tree. Nothing suspicious about this hooded guy, right? If I had to guess, I'd say it's an Arahan who was watching to see if he'd get executed in prison, but now sees the boy as the real deal and is thinking, better protect this kid. He's the future of the family. And you guys, what do you think? Place your bets. Who do you think this guy is, huh? Tell us. Sometime later in the forest, he made a little campfire and is there looking at the sheet of paper, which was blank, until suddenly he puts a bit of mana into it and a symbol appears. It was a magic card that's actually used by secret organizations to kind of exchange encrypted messages, man. And Zed recognizes the symbol as that of the Black Mirror, a group that swore absolute loyalty to the Arahan and helps them with secret missions. When it comes to secret organizations, they're the biggest in the Empire. And on the back of the letter, you could see the number 4. If he's not mistaken, number 1 means accept or basically affirm. Number 2 is reject, number 3 is a proposal, and number 4 is observation and protection. Yeah, my guess didn't last long. That's no fun, right? I was right away. Looks like he really is being protected by someone from the Arahans. He finds it strange since in theory he doesn't have any mana, but then he remembers. Yeah man, now he does, he has 3, speaking of which. Considering it went up by 2 after defeating Clark, you can tell it works like experience in a game. Plus, now he's unlocked the lightning form, something that not only boosts his physical abilities but also creates a shield. Obviously though, he only has mana to activate it when using that Challenger talent. Then Ryu calls out to our boy and says he can't sleep. He wants to know where they're going and what they're gonna do. Our boy says that's obvious. They're going to the city of Frilda. That's the last place they heard about his brother. All they have to do is keep moving. Ryu, though, says maybe his brother isn't even there anymore. Besides, you couldn't even get to Frilda without using a carriage. Zed says he already knows that, and the route is going to be a little different. First, they'll pass through Tamaya. That village is the front line of the southern defense barrier. At that moment, a magic circle appears on the ground and a knight shows up through it. Whoa, man, isn't that blonde knight the character our boy used to play as when he beat the Demon King? Along with him, an army starts appearing, and he swears that he, Taurus Bahal, is going to hunt the Arahan who disgraced the name of that place. You then see him a bit earlier, kneeling down asking if someone called for him. He was face to face with the Lord, who says that a mission came specifically for the boy. An Arahan who was in a southern prison had escaped a few days ago. Not only did he kill the guards, but also other innocent people in the city, and he, as the successor of Bahal, must bring justice and honor to the family. The blonde guy immediately takes an oath that the orders will be obeyed. Meanwhile, in the middle of the forest, Ryu is saying this is madness. Zed just tells him to stop whining, saying it's been 5 days with the same talk. What the friend is complaining about is that they're the only idiots going straight into the front lines like this. On the Empire's map, you can see there are only a few exits, and outside the mountains, it's full of demonic beasts. Each of the major families is designated to guard one of these regions, and the south belongs to the Bahal family. The place they're going to is called Tamaya, a village right on the front lines and one of the places where demonic beasts end to appear. On top of that, since it's an advanced base, there's a teleportation portal there. Obviously, it's something so expensive that not even nobles can use it easily. But our boy got a ton of money from betting and looting everything from Herna. Still, Ryu keeps complaining, saying he has no idea how terrifying a demonic beast is. Time passes and night falls once more. He was chatting a bit when Zed suddenly felt a strange vibration. The whole ground was shaking. In a low voice, he stood up and told Ryu to get ready. Something was coming. Right away, they put out the campfire and hid behind the bushes to watch the camp. Ryu was praying that it wasn't a demonic beast, while Zed was hoping that it was a demonic beast. The problem was that it wasn't just 1 or 2 vibrations. There were at least a dozen, and he knows it's very rare for that many demonic beasts to break past the barrier. Which means, man, it was exactly what he feared. Taurus Bahal and the army were arriving. The guys were at least just passing by, and he was just praying that those 50-plus soldiers wouldn't spot them. But that's when one of the soldiers obviously detects the camp. Zed knows that if they're found, they have no chance. The minimum requirement to be in that group is to be a 5-circle knight. In other words, there were at least 50 Clarks there. Ryu says our boy should run. If he gets captured, there's a chance he'll survive. But Zed will definitely be killed. Our boy, though, tells him to stop shaking so much if he's going to say something like that. Besides, he didn't need to worry. He had an idea that maybe it would work. The soldiers are all there checking around the camp. Then suddenly, someone from the bushes asks who they're looking for. Hey, you crazy fool, you're really gonna rely on that protection card, huh? He steps out saying he's Zed Arahan. He's doing this insane move because he knows that once the guys realize the camp is still warm, they'll start searching the entire area. They wouldn't be able to get away, and if they were found suddenly, it would be worse. But right when he goes to say he wants to talk to the leader, man, a sword almost slices his neck. He tries to explain that he just wants to talk first, but there's already another one at his back, man. He senses the presence and goes to activate a circle at his feet, but one of the guy's attacks seems to hit something. Between him and Zed, there was nothing, but it got blocked. Our boy understands that it was the power, maybe, of the person who's been protecting him, and a voice tells the knight to stand down. The guy backs off instantly, and the rest of the soldiers order the person to reveal themselves. Zed knew someone was watching him, but he didn't expect that whoever it was had been this close. The human was right in front of him. He couldn't even feel their presence, not even with 100 perception. Well, man, and not just one person, but an entire squad was protecting him. Now that makes sense why the Arahans are so feared, right? I was wondering why everyone kept praising the Arahans, like, where are they? The problem now is that the protagonist is arriving, wanting to know who dares stand in the way of Bahal. Everyone celebrates the arrival of the successor, and the Black Mirror guys instantly recognize him as the so-called Bahal. For Zed, though, that presence was so familiar it felt like a part of him. The character he had played with the longest, the one who stayed with him until the end. It wasn't the time to be thinking about that, but he was feeling a bit nostalgic. Then Torres asks if he is Zed Arahan. Before Zed can answer, the guy just steps in front and tells him not to speak. Now Zed is trying to understand why these guys are going this far, and Torres then says he can finally meet the secret organization he'd always heard about. But he finds it crazy that they're acting like this even knowing who he is. The Arahan family had now crossed the line. He throws his sword into the air, saying that today they would pay the price with their heads. Suddenly, a voice says that's not going to happen. A red circle appears beneath all the soldiers. Zed recognizes the formation as a type of trap that has to be set up in advance, which means this guy was not only smart enough to predict everything that would happen, but also a seventh circle mage. Then the guy says that anyone who steps out of the circle will cause an explosion. Standing still, Torres wants to know if the Arahan family wants a war with the Bahal, to which the hooded man says, as he already mentioned, it's better for them to back off, since not even Lord Bahal wants a war like this. But that's when Torres activates the blade's power again and tells them not to insult the Lord's name. Zed, however, knows that we're still kind of at the start of the game, meaning Torres is still a sixth circle guy and he has no chance of winning this. If he starts a fight right now, all the knights there will be annihilated. The madman, though, is already activating the lion's roar without a care. Even though it's a 7-circle technique, Zed is hoping the guy gives up, otherwise he's going to have to see everyone's bodies lying on the ground. Our boy asks the human to deactivate the magic circle before they all explode, but the hooded man turns and says they only follow the Lord's orders, and one of the commands he received was to protect Zed Arahan, and he can't do anything that would go against that. Zed then asks why, instead of protecting him, the guy is trying to kill the Bahal successor, which will only increase his chances of getting killed in the future. If he really was such a skilled assassin, he should be able to get out of there without killing this guy. Then he yells at Torres to stop too, or he'll end up dying. But the guy just tells him to shut up, saying that he killed countless innocent citizens and prison guards. He'd have to pay the price for every crime he committed. Zed tries to explain that it's a misunderstanding and that they can talk. But man, Torres is already charging in, saying they'll talk when he's on his knees. Zed notices the circle didn't explode, which at least means the guy didn't get killed right away. But then an explosion sweeps through the area and Ryu calls out to Zed. Torres' sword had been blocked by a barrier created by the secret organization guys, and even with just the block and the sword's shockwave, Torres dropped to his knees and coughed up blood. Zed, Dan him, even walks over and asks if the guy, now that he's on his knees, is ready for a little conversation. But Torres just faints and collapses nearly dead to the ground. The soldiers run over saying he's dead, but our boy explains it's just a mana backlash from overusing his energy. It's best to let him recover naturally and not even try anything. The healers are already trying to heal him. Yuzuji, though, knows this is mana backlash, and you can't heal someone's backlash if you're weaker than them. Obviously, the only ones stronger than him there are the Black Mirror guys, and our protagonist tells the guy to go ahead and heal Torres, which obviously freaks him out. He asks if Zed is seriously telling him to heal this knight. Zed says that Torres is an old friend of his. I mean, it's not a lie, but it's kind of a suspicious statement. Obviously, the guy refuses to heal him, saying it's impossible that the two of them are friends. Zed then says that mages are usually smart. He wants to know if the guy really thinks that the death of an Arahan wouldn't lead to a large-scale war, and if that would be productive. But man, the guy just replies that the death of those successors would actually be good for the Arahans. Strangely though, Zed seems sure that's not true. Oh yeah, he knows, right? That in the future, demons are going to start invading, and they'll need everyone to win. The problem is he's running out of patience, and out of nowhere, he snaps man. He puts the sword to his own neck, saying that if the guy doesn't heal Torres, he'll die too. Which means, right, the masked man would fail his mission, since the mission is to protect him. The masked guy says even so, he can't act that way or the Lord would be furious. Zed says he doesn't care. He'll carry that burden himself. Suddenly, the masked man approaches Torres. His friends obviously hesitate, but Zed explains that the only person who can save Torres is someone stronger than him. If they don't accept the help, the guy will die right there. With that, Torres is finally healed and the soldier even gets a bit teary-eyed. At that exact moment, the Black Mirror guys vanish, as always, leaving behind a letter. Sometime later, near the village of Itamaya, our boy is standing in front of a tent, looking at card number 9. That one meant abandonment or survival. I think it means like, we're gone. We'll ask if that mist in the forest that killed everyone was also the Black Mirror, and our boy says yes. But now they're alone. Zed then notices something strange and asks Ryu how he knows about this organization. Ryu replies that everyone knows, it's common knowledge, even little kids in any town know about them. Zed can't believe it, a secret organization known by everyone. But Ryu warns that since everyone's watching them, they better be careful or they'll be killed at any moment. Zed, however, says there's no need to worry, that are knights who truly follow the knightly code. In other words, people who value honor. Mages, on the other hand, would kill a friend if it meant earning a few coins. The truth is, both sides are too extreme and kind of rational. But that actually makes things easier for him. With a knight, all you need is to challenge their sense of honor. And with a mage, all you need is an offer that brings profit. Then one of the knights shows up and says the Lord Hare wants to speak with him. Inside a tent sometime later, Torres talks with our boy. He starts by talking about tea, but our boy doesn't seem very interested. Then Torres gets straight to the point and asks about their situation. Zed replies that he's not very formal and wants to talk casually. They're both young, so they can keep it chill. Torres asks how old he is, and our boy says, in this body, I'm 15. Why does he always say the most suspicious things in the world? He just straight up tells everyone he's reincarnated, damn it. While the two are chatting, look, Ryu's over there taking notes that they're getting all buddy-buddy. Then Torres replies that even if he doesn't want to, he first has to thank him, because thanks to Zed, his life was saved. Our boy notices that just like in the game, and since he is a knight, the guy keeps his word of honor. His pride is too high. He'd never hurt someone who saved him. And if there's someone who knows Torres well, it's him. After all, he played 10 years of Torres. But that the guy says enough small talk. Let's get to the point. He wants to know what's this about the murder of the city people and prison guards being a setup. Zed says that's fine and starts to explain everything that happened. Sometime later, Torres says that if what Zed said is true, then trying to defend himself really is justifiable. The whole point of this, though, is figuring out whether it's true or not. But Zed replies that if it were a lie, he would have just let Torres die, and that would have been an easier way out for him. Strangely, Torres says that honestly, that argument is solid, bro. I accept it. That's it. The guy gave up on arguing. Then he puts a sack on the table and says that's a gift, man. It's some kind of powdered minar. Zed, however, replies that if he's trying to apologize, he's going about it the wrong way. What he really wants is help finding Ryu's younger brother who's missing. Torres says that doesn't make sense, that wouldn't benefit him as a mage. But Zed just replies that he doesn't care about that. It's a promise he made to his friend. The next morning, there's the badass again, every day, bright and early, doing a bunch of push-ups, fellas. Man, I gotta get inspired by this guy. And Ryu's all confused, wanting to know why he asked that favor when he could have gotten something much better for himself. Meanwhile, Tuvo was just off to the side listening to everything and watching our boy working out. Yo, this guy is peculiar. Fellas? I don't know. The only woman in this story was Herna and she already died. They really gotta introduce some new ones, cause this is getting strange. And oddly, he really is staring at our boy's abs, thinking like a mage without mana, and normally mages say physical training is barbaric, but this one works hard. Maybe he can relate to the kid, a mage without mana, like a knight without a sword. What impressed him was that even so, the boy didn't give up and kept trying to improve. It makes you wonder, if he were in a situation that bad, would he be able to maintain his dignity? In that moment, Torres met a mage who was more of a knight than any knight he had ever known, and he swore he would become his friend. Woo! Let's go, fellas. Finally some friendship, cause this was getting weird. Sometime later, he went to get himself a big ol' steak to eat. Obviously, the kind of feast that would power up anybody. And while Torres is being all friendly with our boys, the other knights are just off in the corner watching and not liking it one bit. He tells everyone to sit down and our boy is impressed, just like he thought. Torres is a man of his word and honor. Ryu, on the other hand, is a bit unsure, asking if he's really sure they can eat that. Our boy says he really doesn't know knights, just eat and say thanks. They start eating, but Zed knows nothing in this world is free. For them to be serving something that expensive, they definitely want something in return. Suddenly, though, one of the knights stands up, saying that unfortunately, this situation makes him uncomfortable, so he's leaving. The other guys say the same and everyone stands up, saying they're going. In just a second, it's only the three of them left at the table. Torres apologizes, but Zed says it's all good. Besides, it's better not to punish those guys, he wouldn't gain anything from it. Torres says again it's weird that our boy is asking not to punish guys who are always insulting him. But Zed says that's expected. Those guys have seen mages as enemies since they were kids. Obviously, it wouldn't be normal for them to suddenly meet one and just sit down and share a meal. Torres says that maybe it's true. Maybe he was wrong to even invite them to this. But at that moment, Zed says he must have something more important to say, right? Since he called them here for this. Torres explains that they're planning to leave this place soon, but he wanted to delay the departure by one day. That's because he wants to show everyone that Zed is a kind and honorable young man, and one day would be enough. Zed asks if he was okay with that, and he says yes. Sometime later, we're at the southern border near the wall of Enamaya. A creature is sliced in half and a knight celebrates. Torres praises everyone's work and tells them to keep moving forward. Zed, however, is there in the middle of everything, trying to understand why he's being brought into all this. He knows that this group is extremely advanced and usually deals with dangerous creatures. That's why after every mission, they either celebrate the fact that everyone made it back, or in some cases, they mourn those who didn't. Zed thinks that Torres' plan is to make him participate in this so the group will start to like him. Maybe it's an emotional decision, but it fits his 17-year-old kid. As they continue on, though, they find some marks on the ground. The crater is huge, and Torres asks if anyone knows what caused it. The guy next to him says it's probably a beast that hasn't been cataloged yet. By protocol, they should retreat now and record it in the books, but Torres says that would be overkill. They're not even in Danger Zone 1 yet, so even if it's a new creature, it should be low level. The others say that even if it's low level, it could still be dangerous when it's something unknown. Torres is thinking about going back until Zed says that he knows what the creature is. Clearly, it was a monster called Basilis. A mid-level creature, but with 25 circle knights and him in the 6th circle, it would be hard. Torres asks if he's not lying, while all the soldiers start saying they can't trust a mage. To which Zed simply replies that they should know Arahan mages have a much broader bestiary record than they do. The guys always think they're being insulted and start complaining about the kid, but Zed replies that they're the ones underestimating him. First off, they shouldn't even have the nerve to speak that rudely to an Arahan hare. Suddenly, Torres interrupts the conversation and tells everyone to be quiet. He goes to apologize to Zed, saying he had hoped things would go better, when suddenly, the Basilis appears behind everyone. Torres immediately yells for everyone to get into formation, but they already have to dodge the first attack. He asks if Zed is okay, who tells him to pay attention to the fight man. He nearly got chomped by another monster. That's when they realize it's not one Basilis, but two. And Torres is already activating his aura. And now that I notice, doesn't he kinda look like Vlad from Stellar Swordsman? Like a Vlad from another world, and man, all the knights are there with their aura lit up, charging toward the Basilis. Strangely, in this world, mages fight up close while the knights are the ones sending out those aura slashes. The problem is, those aura slash explosions are doing nothing to the Basilis, and even Vlad is confused because the attacks aren't working. Suddenly, the creature lifts up a tail full of spikes and Zed yells for everyone to get down. Nobody obeys, and Torres shouts at them to follow orders. That's when the guys throw themselves flat to the ground. But Zed notices one guy being stubborn, saying he won't take orders from a mage. Our boy yells again, but too late. The monster fires off a bunch of poisonous spikes. Those who were down didn't get killed, but the fool who stayed standing, obviously got hit. Was saved by Zed, right? Of course he had to be saved by the mage kid, dumbass. But our boy already warns them that on the next attack, the monster is going to aim at the ground, so that trick won't work twice. Then he tells Torres that he'll leave him and the knights to deal with the one on the left. In other words, the badass is going to handle the one on the right. Torres is a bit confused, but Zed just tells him to answer already, yes or no. So the blondie says fine. They'll kill the one on the left, and he'll take care of the one on the right. Our boy smiles and says he's counting on them. With that, the Meg squad jumps away, leaving our boy face to face with the other Basilis. Now that he's alone with the monster, the Challenger talent activates. With 10 more mana, he's able to activate the Lightning talent. He calls out to the monster, telling it to look over here. Charges toward the creature, which roars in his direction. But Zed, of course, is smiling. He loves risking his life. They said he's lucky to have found something like that. The monster tries to attack, but he dodges by jumping from one tree trunk to another and comes down from above again. The creature might look tough, but he knows where its weak point is. It's not about piercing, it's about striking it on top of the head. With that, the monster is all twisted and trembling, then collapses to the ground. Man, the beast is already dead. I thought that thing would be more trouble, honestly. On top of that, he gets an ingredient from its mouth, a red thing called Demon's Breath. It's a key ingredient that you can put into holy water to possibly turn it into an elixir. The boy's all in his swag mode, lightning crackling and little energy orbs floating around. And he says that the elixir is a perfect item since it has a small chance of boosting some of your stats. And since he already has all his stats maxed, well, it's a 100% chance to increase mana. Then he waves goodbye to the monster, saying he's off to help the knights. Torres was defending himself from an attack, but was sent flying. Even so, he was still managing to hold out. The problem now is that he's been separated from the knights and doesn't have any defensive support. Right then, he sees a firework shoot into the sky. Man, and it hits the monster square in the head again. Obviously, it was Zed asking if he's okay. Seeing the boy all electrified, Torres wants to know what kind of energy that is. The knights all arrive shocked, asking what that is. Ah, of course they recognize it instantly, right fellas? It could only be the Tan Killua. Torres asks if he's really using Lightning Ki, and Zed says, that's obvious, which leaves the guy even more confused since as far as he knows, the boy has no mana. The protagonist explains that he acquired mana a little while ago, which makes the fool even more confused. That's because in this world, you're kind of born with mana already formed, man. A baby might not have all the circles connected, but they already naturally have the talent for it. But if Zed was born without anything, right, that means he should have never been able to get it. It's the same as someone being born with 9 fingers and suddenly growing a 10th one. It really was a good comparison. At the very least, it's peculiar. While Torres is deep in thought, Zed asks if he can keep the item. Torres says yes. He's the one who killed the creature, so he gets to keep it. Our boys all smiles. Getting those 2 items really was a stroke of luck. Sometime later, the knights are all talking about how Zed killed the creatures. First off, it made no sense. A kid with no mana using lightning. Second, he was fighting physically instead of using magic from a distance. That's all anyone was talking about. And a bit later in a bar, the guy that our boy made kiss the asphalt comes to thank him. Zed says it's fine, asks if he's hurt. The guy says thanks to him, he's not. Ryu immediately wants to know what our boy did, suddenly getting treated with respect like that. To which our boy just says, whatever. At least now they're going to help even more in finding his brother. At that moment, Tora calls out to the 2 of them. He already compliments our boy, saying he really managed to change the knight's opinions. That's when he reveals that, unfortunately, he has to return home. He's sure the family head is going to go nuts when he finds out everything that happened there. Zed asks if he's not afraid of getting chewed out for getting close to an Arahan. Tora says he's already bracing for that anyway. He always knew it would happen sooner or later. Besides, he also plans to pass through Frinda to help look for Ryu's brother. Strangely, from that low camera angle on Ryu, the 2 look kinda like villains. But they're talking about how, now that there's a noble heir from this region looking for his brother, the odds of finding him are much higher. Ryu gets all emotional and thanks them both. The next day, they're in Frinda, a region in the south where the trade port is located. Finally, Ryu reveals the name. The person he's looking for is a girl named Lisa, 13 years old. She has long blonde hair that goes down to her waist. He roughly shows what her height is and says they'll be able to tell because she's adorable. Nothing dangerous at all about a girl like that walking around the world alone. Zed says they'll need to check the records of slaves that were sold and those that are still up for sale. Basically, all the houses that deal in that kind of business. The knight just agrees, and then our boy tells Hulk that they'll first talk to the merchant he used to work for. Sometime later, they're there looking at the entrance of a place guarded by some guy. Zed tells Ryu he won't be able to go in, man, and meanwhile, he's already dressed up in a fancy suit. Obviously, he's going in as someone interested in buying a slave. Right away, the guy at the door, trying to act tough, is bowing, saying it's amazing to receive someone as distinguished as him. That's without even knowing who he is, right, man? He asks if the boy is looking for something specific, and Zed says he wants to know if this is Hamill's trading firm. The guy says he must be mistaken. This is a slave market. Suddenly, he stands up and says that apparently the boy isn't a noble, and that it's better for a kid like him to just leave. Zed finds that weird and says he is a noble. The guy replies that every true noble refers to slaves as if they were products. In other words, the fact that Zed asks if it was a trading post, it makes sense. Zed tells him to stop being stupid, but the guy says he must have been sent by DeVio. Once again, our boy curses him out, and the guy tries to throw a punch, and 10 seconds later, there he is, all wrecked, getting slapped in the face with Zed telling him to answer already. Turns out that the original Hamill's trading firm disappeared, and these guys took over, and Zed wants to know why. The guy explains that the previous owner went bankrupt, so they kinda just took over the place. Zed wants to know who this DeVito guy is, and the man says he's the biggest slave trader in the entire southern region. Now Zed's got one more name for the list, and he wants to know where the rest of the people from this place are. When the guy asks if he means the products, implying that slaves are nothing more than items, he gets another slap to the face. Zed tells him to say that again, and bam, another slap and another. Then he tells him it's about time he learns that people aren't products. Even if he's trash, he should at least try to live with a minimum of decency. The guy apologizes, and some time later, he's pulling back the curtains. Behind the bars, there's a bunch of worn-down people, chained up and imprisoned. Zed asks if there's anyone else, and the guy says no. That's everyone. Zed finds it strange. There's no blonde girl, no kids, nothing like what they're looking for. But that's to be expected, right? Children are usually the most expensive slaves out there. Most likely, a girl like the one Ryu described would have already been sold a while ago. He turns to the guy and says that today he's lucky. He's going to get a chance to become a decent person. All he has to do is bring all the money from this place and the prison keys. Next scene, the fool is behind bars, and our boy tells him it's his turn to experience that life. Outside, the former slaves are all thanking him for his kindness. Looks like he took all the money from the slave traders and distributed it among the freed people so they could restart their lives. A golden-hearted boy. He also took the opportunity to sit and talk with some of them to hear their life stories and gather information about this world. A white-haired guy introduces himself as Gordon and says he used to be an assistant to the Cherville family. Zed replies that if he worked for those people and didn't get killed, he's already lucky. To which Gordon says yes, at that time the heavens must have been on his side. When it comes to blacksmithing, the Cherville family is the most powerful. In times of crisis and war, everyone looks for the magical tools and weapons they used to produce. But because of a betrayal against the Empire, all of them were killed. With that, they vanish from history, and nobody even likes to mention their name anymore. Obviously, though, the Empire was stupid. Since they didn't let a single descendant live, the techniques they had were lost forever. And now that the number of magical beasts keeps growing, not having quality weapons is costing them dearly. With his hands all beaten up, Gordon says that all of this is just past glory. Our boy says it really is sad to know that such great techniques have been lost to time. Then Gordon says that, as a thank you, he's going to share some information, but only because Zed saved him. It's a secret that has to be kept. Our boy says it's fine, but even so, the old man glances around and says they'll have to talk somewhere else. Outside, he explains that the true heir of the Cherville family, known as Lacto, is still alive. The truth is that his main assistant died in his place so he could escape. He changed clothes, disfigured his own face, and was never recognized again. If the plan worked 100%, he's probably living somewhere in Myers. That's a great piece of info for Zed. The only problem is, someone being hunted for treason obviously won't be easy to find. Zed thanks him, and Gordon says he only told him because he seems like a good person. All he asked was that nothing bad happened to Mr. Lacto. With that, they go back into the bar to eat. Will, though, is eating but looks kind of sad, and Zed wants to know why. He can't be down just because they didn't find his sister in the first place they checked. There are much bigger slave dealers, Devio for example. Gordon seems to hear that name and tells him to be careful. That guy is on a totally different level from the place they destroyed. Zed's feeling confident and says he's got a Bahal squad with him, so he's not afraid. But Gordon tells him he has no idea. Devito has connections across the entire empire. And apparently, one of the rumors is that his biggest client is none other than the Arahan family. Of course, right? At that moment, our boy is using his blue lens, so nobody there knows he's actually an Arahan. He's already imagining that the Black Mirror guys must be buying slaves to train and turn into the shadows of the family. Feeling a little awkward, he says it doesn't make much sense. Why would the Arahans come all the way south to buy slaves? To which the old man says it's because the prices are unbeatable. Plus, if they buy up all the best slaves in the south, they're leaving the powerful southern families without options. Zed stops to think for a second and says, yeah, it really does sound like something the Arahans would do. The real problem now is, what if the Black Mirror folks are protecting Devio? That means if he attacks them without revealing his identity, it could start a full-blown war between the Bahal and the Arahan. Ryu calls out to our boy, a little hesitant, and Zed notices that the kid's feeling awkward because his request is starting to cause way too much trouble. But Zed tells him not to worry, this isn't just about his sister anymore. It's about doing what's right. To him, it didn't matter, he was going to wipe out every slave dealer sooner or later anyway. Next day, face-to-face with DeVito's slave market, which looks more like some giant imperial palace/church mansion. Here comes our boy, dressed like a noble, as he makes his entrance. Suddenly, people inside are startled. Zed entered without saying anything, and the beefed-up guy at the front is asking what he thinks he's doing. But our guy just wants to know where DeVito is. One of them says he needs to understand where he's walking into. Another warns that this is one of the few places where even a young noble could lose his life. But there he goes, reaching for his eye, saying that everyone who works for the Arahans really is arrogant. And the moment the guys see the red eye, boom, they're all falling to their knees begging for forgiveness. And then in the background, he also notices a guy slightly bowing. The outfit looked like it belonged to the Black Mirror folks, but probably someone of low rank. That's when, from the second floor, someone says that an interesting visitor has arrived. The mustache guide wants to know what someone so esteemed is doing there. He comes down and says he heard that this boy went to the slave mall and destroyed the place. Right away, Zed realizes that, judging by the guy's confidence, the Arahan name alone isn't going to work on him. This is probably DeVito, who's already grabbing a glass, saying he didn't expect the kid would actually have the guts to come all the way there. But maybe he was just too naive. Zed gets right to the point and says that starting today, the deal between them and the Arahan is over, and he's going to take all the slaves from that place, so it's best DeVito cooperates. But man, DeVito bursts out laughing in his face, apologizing because he couldn't help it. That was just too funny. Zed wants to know if the guy's really that eager to die, to which DeVito replies that he's just curious to know when that's supposed to happen. He says he's tired of the chit-chat and that he's not going to kill the boy since he is a respected guest. However, the lesson he was going to learn today, he carried for the rest of his life. Just like the protagonist thought, he's going to have to settle this with fists. The only problem is he's hoping that hooded guy in the back doesn't have too many circles. He's getting ready to go on the offensive before the other guys move, but then suddenly, someone yells to surround the building. Whoa man, look who's shouting over there. Obviously, it's Torres yelling that they're there to drop a like on them. And do you remember how last chapter ended right when the protagonist went to collect from the criminals? But at that exact moment, that blonde Dragon Ball looking guy showed up yelling, ordering the whole squad to kill the bastards in that place. The soldiers start storming in, while the guys in the back all confused, trying to figure out what those assholes are doing there. Cuts flying everywhere, he throws himself to the ground, a head rolls right in front of him. And someone says that for the crime of illegally kidnapping, wait, is there a legal way to kidnap people? Apparently there is. And for also staining Bahal's honor by mixing with this southern trash. He, the next head of Bahal, is going to cut off arms and limbs as an example. Right then, the idiot realizes the two guys who were supposed to hate each other were weirdly enough staring at him. Dude starts begging for forgiveness like, hey, I'm sorry, and he gets cut. Jesus. And then he slices the other arm too. Torres doesn't hesitate at all. What is this? He doesn't stop. The guy complains about his arms and loses his legs. And then, damn, he loses his head. Come on. At least leave him alive, right? Even though he'd die anyway, you could have left him to look at himself with no arms and no legs for 1 second. Just so he goes to the other side with that image burned into his mind. Torres says the first floor is taken care of. The protagonist, though, is already asking what this Emperor's Declaration thing is. According to Torres, it's exactly what it sounds like. The Emperor issued a decree to wipe out all slave traders. Zed is surprised and asks if they already dealt with the others. Torres says yes. Soldiers were sent everywhere, and he came to this one because it's the biggest. But what's Zed doing there anyway? Was he planning to take down DeVito by himself? The protagonist says yes, and I'm summarizing, but it's basically him telling the kid to wake up. He's probably not even in the first circle, so he'd better keep pushing himself like that. While Torres is giving orders, the protagonist realizes the Emperor's decree created the perfect justification. But Arahan wasn't going to let this slide. Unlike the others, this one guy died with an expression like he was never going to switch sides. He didn't fight, he chose not to fight. Either way, whatever that was, it's insane loyalty. Then one of the soldiers shows up saying they found more slaves. The rat eaters come walking out, sad as hell, bellies full of mice, like around 600. Those slaves must have been selling for a good price to feed that many. Then Torres says if they see a blonde girl, bring her to him. Ryu spots a blonde woman and calls out, Lisa, but when he gets closer, she's like 70 years old. The protagonist sees more than 500 people have already passed and still no sign of the blonde girl. It's hard to find her. It's sad, but the truth is young girls who still look good are extremely popular. Still, he tells his friend, don't give up. Then the knights check the cell, come back and say unfortunately nobody's left. Ryu is standing there crushed. A little later, a soldier tells Torres they're going to send the slaves to the Imperial Palace. The blonde guy thanks the protagonist, saying they worked hard today, they'll keep taking down all these people, and soon they'll find that girl. But then out of nowhere, a horse behind them rears up and someone falls backward. From the hair, it's blonde, so you already know who it is. Torres walks up and tells her to be careful, and that's when they see it's a blonde girl. The protagonist is confused. They didn't see anyone like that go by. Then she looks to the side and asks if that's her brother. Ryu recognizes Lisa instantly, runs over, hugs her, and it turns into this whole cute moment. He's crying, all cross-eyed and everything. The protagonist says they probably didn't notice because she had a hood on. But come on, you're all a bunch of amateurs too. Nobody checked who had a hood up. Then the protagonist asks if Torres is crying, and Torres says no, he's not crying just because of some family reunion. A little later, cups raised, everyone's celebrating. Meat on the table, Lisa is impressed, and Ryu tells her to eat without being scared. Then Torres shows up, girl, Ryu is my friend. You can feel comfortable. Yeah, sure. The protagonist thinks it's weird. Now it's like he suddenly has a 15-year-old brother and a 13-year-old sister. He already knows those two are going to almost die all the time and he'll have to save them. At least he'll level up and get stronger. More meat on the plate, everyone's smiling. The atmosphere is friendly. Zed thinks it's the first time he's ever experienced something like this. Before he can even finish that thought, someone opens the door and calls for Torres. The protagonist recognizes him, Bahal's vice commander, known as Philip Squarehead, saying there's an urgent message from the clan lord. Torres asks what it is, but suddenly a sword shoots towards Zed's neck, and Zed is thinking, of course it had to happen right on the day he was about to say everything was perfect. Obviously it wasn't going to be that easy. Philip says the clan lord ordered them to bring this person immediately. Later that night, they're already in the carriage, and Philip goes, all right kid, I'm going to tell you the rules, okay? First, don't make eye contact with any of the family heads. Second, kneel in front of all of them. Third, the protagonist cuts him off. Shut up. Who are you to tell me what I can or can't do, you damn Steve? Philip warns him this is Bahal land. If he doesn't show respect, the only thing arriving there will be his head. But the protagonist says the one who needs to show respect is Philip. Don't forget he's from the Arahan family. So yeah, bring it on. We're arriving in Bahal territory. The protagonist doesn't know what the famous Fernando, the head of this place, is planning, but as an Arahan, he just needs to keep the right attitude. Because right now it feels like that's the only way to survive. The problem is balance. He can't be too weak or they'll humiliate him, and he can't be too bold or they'll unleash their fury on him. He just hopes his read on the situation is right. They enter the castle. Just like in the game, the reception hall is on the 5th floor, and if he was called there instead of the 7th floor, which is the office, that means he's only a visitor, which in a way is good. Then the kid almost has a panic attack when someone says he's the first Arahan to ever set foot in this mansion. The protagonist doesn't get it. Where is he? He doesn't know where the guy is, and then boom, he's there like a wall behind him. The protagonist can't even turn his head. Just thinking about moving makes his mind short-circuit, and he knows the guy isn't using any power. Just his presence does that. A knight who passed the 10th circle and reached the realm of a swordmaster. The old man walks past, and the protagonist sees him sit in the chair across from him and stare. While the old man is staring, the protagonist is basically about to piss himself, trying not to break into a cold sweat. The old man says he recognizes the spirit of the Arahan kid, but in this great mansion he has to show respect. The protagonist knows he can't kneel right now. Submitting to anyone's force is shameful, and if he shows any cowardice in this moment, this man will never associate with him again. So he stays standing, absolute Chad, and thanks him for the invitation. The old man goes, "Invitation?" The protagonist says yes. He appreciates the carriage that brought him to the reception. All these formalities make it clear he's being treated as a guest. But if in Bahal's house etiquette says a guest has to kneel, then fine. Who are you, Light Yagami? The old man is thinking, this bastard kid, and the protagonist is just trying to stay on his feet. Then Giriam, the buff one, laughs and says the bastard is bold. But then he goes, "Alright, sit down. I don't like watching a guest stand." The protagonist sees tea. Whew, they even serve tea, so he really is a guest. For now, everything's going well. Then the old man says, "Hey kid, you're overthinking it. I only had you brought here because I'm curious. Don't worry, I heard you went to deal with that slave trafficker DeVito. Did you know about the imperial decree?" The protagonist says he already went, and the old man is surprised. "Hold on, you went after the slave trader before the decree? Why?" The protagonist knows there are things he could say to win Fernando's favor, but he decides to just tell the truth. "To me, slavery goes against human morality. I was just acting according to my conscience." He knows no lie will work in front of a swordmaster. Then the old man says, "Didn't you know DeVito was connected to your family?" The protagonist says he thought it was a rumor. He didn't really believe it, but the truth came out when he got there. Fernando says that's strange. He found out there, but he didn't stop? The protagonist says he was just following what he believes is right and wrong. It has nothing to do with his family. The old man says the Arahans won't let this go. The protagonist says it doesn't matter. He did what he thought was right, regardless of what his family thinks. The old man finds the kid impressive. He must know exactly what it means to go against a family like Arahan. And now that he caught Fernando's attention, he's in even more danger. Just like Torres said, he's the first mage who understands what honor means. And then comes the invitation from the old man. "Hey kid, it's so late, why don't you stay here at the old man's house tonight?" But the protagonist doesn't want to be part of any party. Thanks for the thought, but he's leaving. He gives that knight's salute. The old man gets excited, saying he'd never been saluted by a mage. It really was a special day. And in the end, the protagonist accepted. You think he's going to leave, but he stays at the old man's house. The protagonist is relieved. Fernando's personality isn't that different from the game. The guy is smart and knows how to judge people. Otherwise, his head would have rolled the second he walked in without kneeling. He thinks about eating something and notices there's a banquet on the side. The servant leaves, and the protagonist notices a letter on his meat. Like, seriously, they're messing up his food. But we know what it is. He jumps up, looking around scared because it's a letter from the Shadow Squad, and when he grabs it, it has the number 0, which means return or stop. Damn, the head of the Arahan family is calling him. Night passes and the kid is still in shock. The last thing he wanted to see was a magic letter like that. How are the Arahans influencing things even inside another family's house? Then Torres comes to talk to him with that soft, polite face of his, while the protagonist wants to know where Liu is, where Lisa is, what's going on, where everyone is. Torres just says first he's happy, Zed is safe, and it looks like he was invited to breakfast, which is incredible. The family had already realized what kind of person he is, and it seems he'll personally order any search for Zed to be withdrawn. The protagonist is surprised that's kind of unexpected. Too bad that right now he's being hunted by the Arahans, and that's not something Fernando can fix. A little later, breakfast is done, and they're heading to the warriors' barracks, and the protagonist notices something strange in the back, almost like a little white horse in a stall. And the blonde guy says he's going to explain to him how riding works in his family. He didn't say it like that, but that's how I'm putting it. Really, he's taking him to see how the family's horses work. The horses choose their owners, and weirdly, he reaches out to touch the little horse, and it immediately backs away. And Torres says that one doesn't choose any master. The limit is 3 months, and so far nothing. The protagonist is surprised. Doesn't the strongest person in the family pick the horse they want? Torres says not necessarily. It seems each horse has its own reason for choosing. The protagonist looks so excited that Torres says he's indifferent to everything. But now, seeing that big white horse, he looks like he wants to ride. And it's true. Torres explains that Bahal's white horses aren't anyone's property. They're friends and companions. That's why they respect the horse's choices. The protagonist looks at the horse and the horse looks back. He goes to scratch under its chin, when suddenly someone asks, "What's Arahan Trash doing here?" It's Philip. Squarehead Steve wanting to know why they brought this kid. Torres says he's a guest of the family head, so he'd better show respect. Philip bows and says fine. Then he goes, "So Zed, you want to do a little training here with my crew? I get that you're a mage, so maybe training isn't really your thing. How about you give us a lesson and show us how you fight?" Torres immediately realizes what they're planning and asks if they forgot the guy as a visitor. So he goes, "Look, Mr. Torres, inviting the kid who's just a guest to a friendly sparring session isn't wrong. It'll be a good experience for everyone." Torres says Zed isn't ready, and they should leave it for later. But Felipe keeps pushing, saying it'll be a light session. "Come on, Steve, don't be such a pain." Then the main guy says, "Fine, I'll take part in this mess, but you should know you're the ones who asked to train with me." The big horse is just standing there watching. The first guy walks into the middle of the arena and says, "Since the kid doesn't really know how to fight, I'll use this little wooden sword." Zed stretches and goes, "All right, you're gonna regret it, but you better give it your best anyway." While the guy mutters that the kid is out of his mind, Torres is standing there, not understanding what Zed is thinking. Even if he has potential, he hasn't awakened even the first circle. There's no way he can go head-to-head with a 5th circle knight. Zed gets into his stance, and the guy says, "Hey kid, you really think you can win?" And the main guy goes, 50-50. His mana activates and someone says, "Well, look at that. He's pretty optimistic. Here we go. Godspeed and all that." And the main guy thinks, let's see how long he stays that excited. Steve is watching. So that's that mage brain energy thing. It's actually interesting. They say it's the dream attribute. It looks way more explosive than most, but it drains a ridiculous amount of mana. And he isn't even in the 2nd circle. No matter what anyone thinks, the outcome here is obvious. The fight starts. The knight jumps at him with a vertical slash, thinking, why does this kid look so slow? This mage isn't creating distance. He's just standing right in front of him. He's not enchanting anything, not using magic, no circles, nothing. The knight is already bored and thinks he'll end it quickly. Then there's a sharp crack. Everyone flinches. The big horse is watching. The sword is on the ground, and the main guy is suddenly right beside him, gathering that aura. Hey kid, who are you even attacking? The guy tries to process it. Then he eats a hard kick and gets launched away. The knight is in shock. What the hell? He's a mage. What kind of kick was that? They're face to face again. A leg comes in from the side, but now the knight counters 3 slashes. The main guy slips past all of them easily. Godspeed, his punch is loaded and he drives one straight into the guy's stomach. What the? This isn't training. Then another one to the mouth. Teeth go flying onto the ground while the kid is just there under the moonlight calmly farming aura. The horse keeps watching him, impressed. It's the first time the main guy has farmed aura to win over a horse. I've never seen that. Everyone rushes in to help. Blondie, wake up. The blonde guy passed out. Meanwhile, the main guy is there, powering down that aura. Then he spins the tip of the sword. You little bastard. This was supposed to be training. Let's finish this, Arahan. Torres steps in front. Relax, did you forget you're the ones who wanted this sparring session? Now everyone wants to train with the main guy, while he's thinking there's no way he wants another fight. He watches the guy getting healed and thinks the idiot lost because he didn't expect the way he fights. What lets him beat 5th circle guys who are clearly stronger is that they don't understand his style. The problem is the whole group is standing there with big wooden practice swords out saying they want to beat him. Torres tries to calm them down. Then the main guy hits them with a psychological jab and brings up Torres by name. Seriously? One fight wasn't enough? I thought part of the knight's code was accepting defeat gracefully. They look like they're about to pop a vein. You piece of trash, you want to talk about a knight's code? Don't you have any honor? He answers, I only accepted this duel because you asked. I came here to visit the Bahal stables because the leader told me to, and you're still acting like this. That's embarrassing. Then out of nowhere, the final boss shows up right behind him. Get lost, Diddy. This old man keeps appearing out of nowhere right up on him from behind. Everyone jumps and he orders them to lower their swords. The moment Steve sees him, everyone drops to their knees, while the main guy is stunned. He has perception at level 100. So how did he not feel this guy coming? What, you wanted to feel him coming? He apologizes, I'm sorry, Lord Bahal. I know I was kind of disrespectful, but I couldn't refuse the duel. The old man ignores that and chews everyone out, telling them to remember this moment. That's why they can't go easy in training. More important than feeling strong is having combat experience. This was a lesson for all of them. The main guy thinks he's giving everyone a full-on lecture over a couple punches. Then the old man thanks him, saying that today he gave everyone a valuable lesson, and he won't forget what happened. It's like he's thanking him and warning him at the same time. The main guy just goes, all right then, and then suddenly, the whole stable basically explodes. Something comes charging toward him. Obviously, it's the huge white horse, spinning like a Beyblade. The main guy doesn't get it, but Torres looks like he does. That's a ritual. Just like the master shows their skills to the horse, this is the horse showing its skills and asking for the master's approval. That means the horse's master is here. Steve is in shock. The big horse is doing a TikTok dance and stops right in front of the main guy. In other words, Zed has been chosen. He's still confused, and Torres says he's sure. From a distance, the old man finds it strange. It's good the horse found someone, but why a child from the Arahans? Was it because he showed respect, because he fought well, or something else? Then Fernando asks, Zed Arahan, do you acknowledge Pearl as your companion for the rest of your life? And he's thinking, what is this? A wedding? He goes, Pearl? Is that a girl? That's her name. It feels weird how sudden it is. Spend your life together. He's literally wondering if this is marriage or what's going on. The horse nudges him and stares deep into his eyes. The kid was drawn in the most unfortunate way. He's all bent down while asking the horse if it's really sure. He feels Fernando's pressure, like he's basically saying, accept it. She chose you. So he goes, fine, I accept. The horse is thrilled. But of course Steve, with that perfectly lined up haircut, says this can't be allowed. A white horse that belongs to the Bahals can't end up in the hands of an Arahan. Fernando says he's right. A horse has never chosen someone outside the clan. But the truth is, that only happened because they were never given the option. Then Steve asks if he forgot what the Arahans did to Bahal's white horses in the past. They were treated like pigs and killed. How can he trust one of his companions to someone like that? Fernando says the boy Zed already gave his word that he'll accept and take care of her. But Steve is losing it, yelling that the Bahals lie, that they're mages, that they're liars, screaming like crazy. Then Fernando says, all right, let's make a promise. If one day Zed mistreats his white horse, I'll go there and kill the boy myself. The main guy is like, wait, what? I don't remember signing up for that. Steve still won't accept it, until Fernando says he accepts Steve's loyalty. but if he protests anymore, he should understand what's going to happen. Steve swallows his anger and says he understands. Right after that, the main guy is riding through a little forest. Things were turning into a mess, so he decided to get out before it got worse. The two big-headed twins are all excited, asking what they're seeing. He went to Bahal territory, came back alive, and with one of their horses, the kid says, "Let's go inside, I've got stuff to tell you." So he tells the whole story. He even brings up the letter he got. He's really telling everything. He doesn't hide anything. He's an open book. Then he drops the bomb. He's going to visit Arahan. There's no avoiding it anymore. He can't run from it forever. Eventually it had to happen. Ryu says he's going with him, because Zed taught him that abandoning a companion is never an option. Yeah, when you're actually useful, Ryu, but you're just gonna get in the way. The main guy says he appreciates it, but Ryu cuts him off and says he'll go as like the kid's butler. Also, the main guy told him the competition in Arahan is brutal. It's good to have at least one person nearby he can trust. And they can bring Lisa too, because she can handle herself. If the two of them get hired as the main guy's servants, they'll always be close and able to help. But the main guy knows the danger ahead is serious. He wanted to distance himself from those two. But no, what's he going to do? Alright my friends, let's go to Arahan together. He's sure 90% of the problems will be caused by those two being there. That night he's decided, but he's not prepared. He needs an advantage. One promising lead he has is Lacto Cherville, the last survivor of a blacksmith clan that got wiped out. He also has the breath of a demonic race, an item obtained from a basilisk. To turn that into an elixir, he'll also need holy water. And to get all of that done, he has to go to a place called Myers. The question is, how long is the Arahan Patriarch going to keep waiting for him there? Next day, bright sun overhead, the cute trio heads out. He's treating them like slaves. He's on the big horse and the other two are on foot. Cruel kid. The next chapter starts with Reo freaking out. Why do you need 500 gold coins? What are you buying? The main guy says it might not even be enough. The elixir he wants to make mixes a demon's breath with a sacred drop. The success rate depends on the divine power in the holy water. So he needs the best holy water possible, not a bunch of mediocre stuff. The good quality kind costs 10 gold each. He could buy 50, but there's still risk. That's why he came to Myers, because he can trust a certain priest. He heads out saying he's going to buy it, and for now they should look for a certain person, an old man named Lacto. He has one eye and white hair, so he shouldn't be hard to spot in theory. Anyone with information should be paid in silver to talk. Ryu says it'll be easy. The main guy says unfortunately it won't. The guy is a fugitive, so he won't show his face for a few coins. All they need to do is deduce from whatever information people give them where he actually is. Also, the main guy won't use his official name, and they're not supposed to ask for Lacto. Just ask about the one-eyed old man with white hair. Walking through the streets, the main guy thinks the original plan was to buy magical tools with that money. But after hearing Gordon's story, the plan changed. He'll use the money to make the elixir, then ask Lacto for a custom weapon. Maybe he's dreaming too big. But if it works, it'll give him the biggest advantage, since his magic stats are low. A while later, he gets to the church where he's supposed to buy the holy water. But there's a crowd out front. He's confused. Why is the cathedral packed? Hey sir, tell me why everyone's lined up like this. The older guy says, "Hung kid, you here for the half-price holy water deal too? You look kinda rich for that." The main guy thinks it's weird. Half-price holy water? In theory, he could make 2 elixirs. But there's a big problem. Holy water is made through divine power, so at most you can make 1 bottle per day. Johan isn't the type to care about money, so selling it cheaper makes sense. But how does he have enough power to make that many bottles? Something's off. After a while, someone says, "You can come in." Nothing suspicious about this, Johan. "Welcome, brother." The main guy has only seen him in the game, so he isn't sure this is really Johan. He says, "Hey, Father Johan, how's it going?" The guy says, "Hello, my brother. How many little bottles do you want?" The main guy immediately notices something wrong and says, "You must be busy pretending all day." The guy confused, "What are you talking about?" The main guy closes the door. There's only one Father Johan in the Myers Cathedral, and it's Johan Kreis. "You bastard, where's the real one?" The guy gets awkward. "Kid, what are you talking about? I'm Johan." And he pulls out a throat cutter. "If you're not here to buy, get out. There are people who want it." In the background, people are yelling, "Get out of there, rich boy, spoiled brat, move, we want to buy." The main guy warns him, "You think you can scam people inside a cathedral and be fine? I'm calling the Imperial Army right now." The guy leans in and says, "Go ahead. Call them, I don't care if they come. Now get lost because I'm busy." The main guy notices something strange. Later on, he's back at the lodging. Why did that guy seem like he wasn't afraid of the Imperial Army? Were they behind this too? Maybe it's something tied to the city authorities. Looks like it's going to be a bit more annoying than he expected, but there isn't much he can do. He'll have to deal with it head on. The door shuts and they're arriving in front of the Imperial base there in Myers. As soon as he gets close, the soldiers recognize the horse as one from the Bahal family. One of them greets him and asks what brings him there. The rookie says he has something to report. He wants to speak with the general. The soldier asks if he has an appointment. No, he doesn't. The soldier goes, "Well, then it's going to be kind of difficult. You need an appointment. Come back later." Zed asks, "Is the general busy?" And the soldier says no. But the general gave orders that people can only speak to him with a scheduled time. The protagonist says they must be confused. Any case considered urgent overrides any kind of order like that. The soldier, awkward about it, says, "Sorry, we're just doing our job." And Zed realizes there's no way he's going to solve this with low-ranking soldiers like these. Then, all of a sudden, the soldier snaps into a salute, and when Zed looks back, it's the general arriving. The McDonald's king walks up asking, "Who are you, kid?" The protagonist says he's there to talk about something important, but the general says, "You don't look like you're from the Bahal family. Why do you have a Bahal horse? Are you some little thief?" The kid says he got it as a request, while already noticing the guy doesn't seem very interested in what he came to say. The general pushes again. "A horse is a gift? Never heard of that. You don't even look like a rider. Something's off." The protagonist answers that he's just a mage from a minor family. General Pullman keeps going. "Liar. A mage got a Bahal horse? How do you have the nerve to lie to my face like that?" At that point, the protagonist decides to cut it short. "Fine, it was a different situation, but let me talk. There's a fake priest in the cathedral selling fake water." The general cuts him off instantly and orders the kid arrested on the spot. The protagonist goes, "Hey, I just started talking." And in the same second, he's surrounded from all sides. The general orders them to arrest him and recover the horse so they can return it to the real owner. The protagonist says, "Oh, so that's what this is. You're working with them." Just like he thought, the city authorities are corrupt. McDonald's keeps talking, saying he'll regret everything he's saying. With that, Jason moves in on the protagonist, who lets himself be taken, while saying it's the fat guy who's going to regret all of this. The big guy is yelling that he's going to break Zed's bones, that he's going to finish him, but the kid is smiling. And now we're at the Bahal mansion. Fernando is talking about how the emperor is giving big rewards. That's because the number of imperial citizens rescued from slavery over there was 3,720. So they're repatriating them, right? For Bahal and for the Arahans, it was 2,580 slaves they got. But they're the ones who enslave people, so those people will probably just get enslaved again. And the weird part is that this time the numbers were revealed, and Bahal is clearly ahead, meaning the emperor basically took a jab at the Arahans. He tells Torres to get ready because he's going to go pick up some blessed items as prizes, so Torres better not drag his feet. But then his expression changes, and Torres asks what happened. A man arrives saying a young boy from another territory asked for an audience. He said he's Torres Arahan's friend and came to confirm it. Torres asks if the boy's name is Ryu, and the man confirms it. Torres says he is his friend, but what brought the kid all the way here? Fernando just stares, and Torres says he'll find out, but the old man orders them to bring him in right now. Torres thinks it's strange. The old man says he wants to know what this kid has to say about Zed, because in the Emperor's letter it says he praises Zed, Arahan's efforts in helping the Empire and its citizens, regardless of status. All nobles should learn from him and show that same exemplary behavior. So of course poor Ryu is basically groveling on the floor, almost greeting the great family general, who asks why he's there. Ryu says it's nothing big, it's just a letter Zed left, and he asked him to deliver it if he couldn't. Then Ryu hands the letter to Fernando. Considering Fernando just read a letter praising Zed, he has to take a look at this. And of course the letter talks about the priest in Myers, the cathedral authorities, the people selling fake water, everything that's going on. And the final message tells Ryu that if Zed didn't return by nightfall, he should deliver the letter to the head of the Bahal family. Ryu says it happened today and apologizes, but he had to come bring the letter. Fernando says it's fine. The boy, even though he was scared, showed courage by bringing his friend's letter, and that's an honorable act. He orders them to bring the boy food and put him somewhere comfortable. Ryu gets emotional because he was told he acted honorably. Knights really were incredible. The guy says 2 words and Ryu's like, "Wow, you're amazing." So he's eating and crying. The bread and burger from that place was 10 times better than anything he ate while traveling with Zed. But the scene switches to the prison. Big Rat, Big Roach, and the kid doing push-ups. The guard is confused. How long are you going to keep doing push-ups? It's been 2 hours like this. Is this kid enjoying the torture? What's going on? I don't get it. I'm getting more tired watching him train than he looks from training. Suddenly someone shows up saying, "My nose is about to fall off my face." It's the general saying this place stinks. The guard says, "Sir, he's been training all night, but we've been watching him so he doesn't escape." The general, confused, says, "This kid has been training all this time? He really is a weird one." So the door opens, they force him to his knees, and the general says he's going to give him a chance. Depending on his answer, he can be released or tortured. Why doesn't the white horse obey him? Did they cast a spell on it? The protagonist says he's an idiot. Bahal white horses choose their master. Nobody can force them to obey anything. The general says that's impossible, like the horse would choose a filthy wizard like him. The protagonist smiles and says he'll find out soon enough whether it chose him or not. The general is furious, saying fine. Then looks like the torture wasn't enough. He takes off all his armor and now he's gonna do it himself. What's he gonna do? Throw a Big Mac in the kid's face? He says there's nobody who can last 30 minutes under his torture. Then the kid grabs a knife. "Yeah, kid, that's not torture, that's closer to murder." The general says the moment that knife starts scraping the bone in his knee, his attitude will change. With the blade already on his leg, he says, "Come on, kid, your last chance." The protagonist tells him to go to hell. The fat guy swings in for the stab but stops at the last second because someone says there's an urgent problem. He throws the knife back, it hits the bars, and he demands to know what it is. "Can't you see I started my torture?" The guard says, "Sir, it's urgent. The Bahal family sent a letter." The fat guy orders it handed over. "Give it here, I'll read it. Let's see." "Ah, the guy you arrested, the master of that white horse, is a friend of Bahal. I heard there are dissidents in your city." "What? They're going to judge me." He rips the letter up, yelling that it's a lie. "An investigation. How is this possible?" Then he asks the protagonist, "This is your doing, isn't it? You were waiting for this little letter to arrive. But you should know, even if he's the head of Bahal, he won't go against the Imperial Army. But fine, All he has to do is kill the kid now, and then kill the priest. No evidence. Nothing. Perfect. The protagonist flips into Godspeed mode, saying some people only learn by getting hit, and just like that he's free, and the electrocuted guy has a chain on his leg. He doesn't understand what's happening. Even the protagonist is surprised. From 1 second to the next, the guy is completely surrounded, and there's a big mage standing off to the side. Damn, it was one of the Arahan family's black guards. Those guys are kind of scary, and they're absolutely everywhere. The mage just says, "Master, the family orders you to return as soon as possible." And 3 of them step forward and say they're there to escort him right now. The protagonist asks if they sent him a recall order. The guard says it doesn't matter, he needs to follow the head of the family's orders and go. But the protagonist knows this isn't the moment. He needs the elixir and lactose weapon, so he asks for a few days he'll go alone. But the shadow guard says it's impossible. They're there to follow the family's orders, they don't decide anything. The protagonist says that as an Arahan family guard, he should know that if he goes back like this right now, he'll die. Then the protagonist lays it out, send this message to the head. Tell him he only needs a little time to prepare to survive the family itself. If he still gives the order to return with no complaints, he'll go. The guard says fine and disappears into the shadows. The protagonist knows the damn family leader is always watching everything he does through these people. Probably the only bad thing he's done so far was going against those slavers and teaming up with the Bahal family. Actually, that's 2 pretty bad things. There's probably going to be an interrogation, so he has to be ready. And then the guy is already back. At least he says it. The family head said he'll give you some time. You have 14 days to visit him. After that, there won't be a single extra day. 14 days, this guy feels like the final boss. He doesn't even seem like a family head. But now the protagonist knows the clock is running. 14 days, and he has to move fast during this grace period. The shadow guard also says the father sent word that an investigator is going to arrive, and he'd better be smart dealing with that person. The protagonist thinks it's strange. If someone's coming, it should take at least a day. He's starting to think these people are involved somehow. And then the shadow adds one more detail. The family had ordered him to stop hiding, that he has Arahan blood. The protagonist asks, "What are you talking about?" "My contact lenses. You want me to take them out?" The guard says exactly. He wants to know why. They threw him in prison, and now they want everyone to know he's Arahan. The shadows start to fade, saying the message has been delivered, and they leave. 2 hours later, an Imperial investigator named Cox shows up, saying the young boy did an excellent job. Exposing this Imperial corruption is really promising. "What family are you from, kid?" The Emperor praises your achievements. The protagonist takes out the contact lenses and says hello. He introduces himself as Zed Arahan, the 7th son. Cox looks shocked and asks if he's really Zed, and says it's a coincidence, so the Arahan mentioned in the documents was him. The protagonist is confused. "What documents, old man? Tell me." Cox says it looks like he doesn't even know. Then he shows that same letter Bahal received, officially written by the Emperor, where Zed was praised. It seems everyone in the Empire admires him, and it's quite a coincidence their paths crossed. But Zed is confused. How does the Emperor know about him? Cox explains that apparently someone who spends time with the Emperor spoke well of the boy. The protagonist wonders if it was Gordon. That guy said he'd repay the favor, but he didn't expect it to come back like this. Then the protagonist says he has a request. He wants to see this cathedral problem through to the end. Cox says he understands. He wants to finish what he started, so it's fine. Go ahead. The protagonist thanks him. This man could in theory take all the credit for what he's doing there, but he's being decent about it, so he thanks the old man too. But Cox says, "I'm being thanked by an Arahan. I must be too old. That can't be right. Those Arahans are demons on Earth." And he says the other soldiers who came with him will help carry out the arrests of the people resisting. If anything happens, he'll take responsibility. The protagonist keeps thanking him while the old man keeps laughing. Too polite for an Arahan. Impossible. And the protagonist is thinking, what a mess. This family is full of scumbags. With the banner raised, they head toward the cathedral. The citizens who had gone there to buy holy water, more like Belle Delphine water, move aside trying to figure out what's going on. While the protagonist walks with the badge on his chest saying he's going to count to 3. If they don't leave, death is guaranteed. Total silence. And the soldiers are like, so what? Do we force them out? But the protagonist says, I know you can't use mana or carry weapons inside a cathedral. It's dangerous. Someone else says, yeah, but there's another way to get them out. Then the protagonist steps forward and goes, relax. I've got it. We're out of time, so wait there. I'll be right back. The others look freaked out, saying it could be dangerous, but he heads in anyway, saying it's fine. Everyone's thinking, wait, it's impossible to use magic in a cathedral. How's he going to handle this? Then Cox shows up with the authorization certificate for it. The soldiers get ready to move in, saying they're going to capture the criminals. But the old man tells them to wait, saying he's the one who gave Zed the token that guarantees he can finish this case. He wants to handle it, so let the kid do it. They insist, sir, there are armed people in that cathedral. The kid's going to die. But the old man says they don't know the Arahan family. Apparently they don't know why they're one of the top families, and why everyone's scared of that name. Some people think it's because they're above everyone else, or because they're strong, but it's something way more important. The Arahans always keep their word. No matter what they promise, they make it happen. That's what makes them terrifying. And the protagonist is standing there staring them down, saying he told them he'd make those bastards get out of there. So he goes in with that whole aura flex, and you can hear shouting. After a while, it goes quiet, and they're like, I told you not to leave him alone. Then someone comes out, and you can already see he's half tied up. They think the guy made it out alive, and yeah, technically they're alive, but they're all beaten up and tied up, and the protagonist is standing there like, look at the size of his face in that shot, the size of his shoulders. The kid looks like one of those gym bodybuilder memes where it's just a tiny head stuck on a massive torso. Everyone's genuinely shocked, and Cox can't believe he solved it that calmly. You can't use mana in there, so how did he do it? Zed says it wasn't even hard. Yeah, he basically walked in like it was the UFC and started throwing hands. The old man laughs, just like I expected from an Arahan. You really kept your word. You have my respect, kid. The protagonist says, these are the idiots who are selling fake holy water. They scammed a ton of people, made a bunch of suckers into victims, so we're gonna deal with this. Then he turns and tells the priest to come out already. A guy comes out from inside, totally confused, looking up, and everyone recognizes him as Father Johann. Wasn't it Father Johann before? Did he change his name? Fine, and he's the real one. A little tap on the head, that radiant healing, the one true divine power, a mysterious energy that makes you feel warm and comfortable. And he's there healing everyone, saying their sins will be judged according to God's will. They're apologizing, some are thanking him, some are saying they'll never go against God again, and everyone celebrates that he's returned. Then Johann Chris introduces himself to the kid as the 49th priest of the Empire, and he goes, hey kid, come have some tea with me in the cathedral. But like every story, the protagonist is surrounded by old men trying to pull him aside. Then another old guy shows up. No, Arahan, come talk to me for a second. Look, a little gift for you. You've got a lot of potential. This is an investigator's insignia. Show it anywhere in the Empire and you'll get help. The protagonist doesn't even know whether to accept it, but the guy already shoved it into his hand and says he guarantees the kid can keep it. The only thing he asks is that he promised to use that power only for the Empire. The moment he uses it for personal gain, he'll be repaying Cox's favor with betrayal. The protagonist thanks him, so the old man leaves, waving goodbye, and the kid bows and thanks everyone for coming. He handled the church situation, but soon he's going to have to deal with his family. That's the real problem. Everyone in the Empire, even the Emperor, seems easy compared to the Arahans. Now they're inside, tea is served, and Johann wants to know how he can repay all the help the protagonist gave. Does he want something? Zed notices the guy is smart. He knows Zed isn't there just out of faith, so Zed says he'll be honest. He needs the father's holy water. Johann warns him, holy water is made to heal the sick or fight evil. Master Zed, why do you need something like that? The protagonist says, I don't know if it's to fight evil, but I do know it's to save my life. Confused, Johann asks, save your life? So the protagonist explains, I'm an Arahan, but I was abandoned because I can't handle mana. But now I've been ordered to return to the family, and you know what that means. Johann says he understands. Everyone knows how intense the competition is between the Arahan siblings, but how would magical power items stop his siblings from killing him? The protagonist says nothing is guaranteed. He just wants to do everything possible to prepare. He's thinking that what he needs most right now is an elixir to get enough power to use electric humanization, and for that he needs 5 mana stats, which in theory would be a massive difference, since he has 3. It's almost double. Johann says he's heard rumors about Zed, the kid who fought the infamous slave sellers run by the Arahans. Then he says, well, I believe it's a miracle from God that you came to Myers and helped protect the sanctuary. Maybe helping you now is also part of something bigger. Then he sets a box on the table and says, I've been keeping this for a while to give to someone who truly needed it. You should know the strength of holy water depends drastically on how much divine power it contains, and these were made by infusing sacred power over a long period of time. 3 green ones, what is this? The protagonist stands up immediately. Yeah, that's the good stuff. That's going to hit hard. Johann says it's a personal gift, and may God's blessing be with the kid. And that's it. We're back in the room with the 3 little drops at his feet. He's in shock like it's a dream. The item he always wanted during gameplay is right there with him. On top of that, he also got a priest's mark, an item with insane power in this world because of the church's influence. You basically get the cathedral's authority on your side. Since the empire is built around the church, having something like that is almost like having the emperor's guarantee. The mark is so strong you can't even be arrested with it. And people will be scared to kill you, because that would mean attacking someone tied to the cathedral. Just those 2 marks already make him way safer in the power struggle. Johann knows that, and that's why he gave them to him. Now he has the investigator emblem and a priest's mark. You can say there's nothing better than those 2 before going back to his family. And it's not even what he originally came for. If someone wants to kill him now, they'll have to take a huge risk. Just looking at the 2 makes him feel safe. Yeah, careful. When protagonists start feeling safe, that's when disaster shows up. On top of that, he takes the good green one that works easily. Normally it's a 20% success rate, but with this quality, plus having 3 of them, plus 2 demon-related things, he's confident it might work on the first try. He opens it, pours the green stuff onto the red orb, and it starts to flow. Wait, what? It really appears out of nowhere, the big elixir in the kid's hand. He's impressed. Even though he knew the odds were high, it really worked on the first try. He chugs it. Mana up by 1, now he's at 4. Now he just needs to get lucky one more time. He begs and then perfect again. Yeah, it really was packed with divine power. This doesn't even feel like luck anymore. He starts thinking the probability has to be over 80%. No way. Either way, he opens his mouth, drinks it all, and boom, 5 mana. With that, magic use gets added, and he unlocks electric humanization. It drastically boosts the user's physical abilities, and also gives a shield proportional to the amount of mana. He gets up, and it makes a ridiculous difference. Then he collapses, exhausted. It's not physical exhaustion, it's the tension he'd been carrying finally letting go. He was scared the requirement for the skill to appear would be 10 mana, but everything worked out. Weirdly, this is more fun than the game. Sometimes you forget he's a UFC fighter who beat everyone up, was 70 years old, and still at the top of his career. You remember that? A while later, outside, Ryu says that in this city there are 40 people with white hair and one missing eye. So not a lot, but not exactly rare either, way too many people missing an eye. And just like Zed asked, 34 of them stayed in contact, meaning the person they want is among the other 6 who didn't take the silver coin. The protagonist asks if he marked the locations of the other 6, and Ryu says yes. They can find them by tomorrow. The protagonist thanks him, saying he didn't expect the kid's work to be that perfect. Ryu says this is basic stuff. Zed tells him to stop acting full of himself. He knows his friend is smart. He doesn't need to prove anything. And he swears he'll take responsibility for Ryu and his sister until the end, because they're the first friends he made. And it gets all emotional, everyone getting sentimental. Then suddenly a girl shows up asking if the kid with the red eye is Zed Arahan. She's practically sparkling, saying she heard he dealt with the spies, that he cleared out the cathedral. The protagonist realizes a crowd is forming around him out of nowhere, and they're looking at him in a weird way. Everyone recognizes Zed Arahan. It looks like he became a celebrity in the city. People are everywhere, and Ryu wants to know what's going on. Everyone shouts, "Zed, thank you for protecting the cathedral." The protagonist, still not really getting it, says they should get out of there, but then he feels a strange presence. They're an old creep, missing an eye, just appearing out of nowhere. He turns to look, caught him out of the corner of his eye. White hair and one eye. He found the bastard Lacto Cherville. The protagonist tells him to stop, tries to push through the crowd, but everyone wants a piece of him. He makes it out into the open, and the old man is gone. Ryu asks what happened, and he says the bastard was right there but disappeared. Then he tells Ryu to pass him the info for the closest person among the 6 who weren't on the list. He knows that guy will try to run, but he has to be nearby since he showed up out of nowhere too. Ryu leads the way. They go down a street, turn the corner, break into a house, find another random old guy, skinny, lost, confused. The protagonist tells him to move. He jumps up to another floor, goes into another house, then another, then another. The kid is hunting him down like crazy. Then Ryu says one of the only places left is the basement in that half-abandoned spot. But when the protagonist gets to the door, a strange red beam looks like it's blocking him from entering. He tells Ryu to go up to the upper level while he wonders why he has this weird feeling. The opponent is a blacksmith, and even as a fugitive, he shouldn't be giving off this kind of intent to kill. One possibility is that it's some kind of trap, so he activates electrification. The energy starts hitting the door, but suddenly a blue light appears and blows the whole place apart. The CES rank, Immortal Gambler trait activates, and the protagonist finds himself inside a storm of blue flames. Ryu, who was upstairs, shows up asking if he's okay. But Zed is confused. This kind of fire is a high attribute. It would be extremely hard to create it with any magical tool. If that guy managed to craft that kind of magic into a door trap, then he really is the one they're looking for. The bad part is, everything's destroyed. If it weren't for Immortal Gambler, he would have died. That trait ignores any damage that would kill you instantly. He knows it because he used it a bunch of times in the game too. Basically, it makes it impossible to be killed in a single hit. The protagonist is impressed, and now he's even more motivated to capture this guy and make him an ally. Off they go looking for yet another old man. A while later, back in the room, Ryu is angry because it looks like they're being suspected of destroying the place. The protagonist says that's expected. They were the only ones there, and it'll be hard to prove that the explosion was caused by a trap. Robert wants to know what they're going to do. Wouldn't it be better to get out of there before the Empire's guys show up? Maybe ask the Bahals for a little help. How about that? Zed, though, says he's trying to avoid asking the Bahals for help again because of those shadow guys. It looks like they don't like it much when the protagonist gets involved with that family. Now it's the protagonist's turn. With a banner raised outside, the guy orders Zed Arahan to come out right now. The protagonist gets up. Well, they're here. What are we gonna do? We already knew this was coming. He tells Ryu to stay there and that he'll handle it. And look at them, showing off all their emblems. Getting cocky, kid. The moment he opens the door, the guy gives the order to arrest Zed Arahan immediately. Then boom, he sees the priest's mark on the kid's chest. He asks if it's what he thinks it is. Our protagonist says yes. He got it from Father Johann at the cathedral. All of a sudden, the guy goes, I'm sorry, kid. I didn't know you were doing good work. I just got to this city. I'm still learning how everything works. But you can call me Shuchin. He didn't say that, but come on. Now his whole attitude changes. He says, you were there at that place, you got caught up in the explosion. What happened? Looks like you're a victim, not a suspect. The protagonist says, yes, exactly. You're judging this correctly now. The guy asks, could I ask you a few things? But if you don't want to answer, you don't have to. Don't worry. The protagonist says it's fine, he'll answer everything. He went there by coincidence because he was looking for a certain person and there was a trap set up. He was surprised too. The knight says, I see. Yeah, that makes sense. And the protagonist notices. The second the guy saw that thing on his chest, suddenly he's being treated like the most trustworthy person in the world. Maybe this is a chance to find Lakedo even more easily with the army's help. Look at this little schemer, already planning to use the priest's insignia for personal gain. But Shuchin isn't dumb, and he says he can't abuse the authority of that mark to use public power. So our kid asks if that's enough justification and shows the other emblem. Now they want to know how he even has that too. And our protagonist says he got it from the Imperial investigator Cox. And as far as he knows, if he shows that emblem, he gets help. So the guy says yes, he's Imperial, and they're required to help anyone carrying the emblem. What he can't understand is why this damn Marahan has both emblems. The protagonist says it's not just about him anyway. They have to find out who's responsible for the explosion. Right away, the general salutes and says, "Perfect. The group will support Zed." The protagonist is impressed. He didn't even need to go to the family for this. He already proved how valuable he is. So the protagonist asks them to send an artist so they can make a sketch. Weirdly though, Ryu is calling him over, shaking his head, and then the next morning we see the poster. But it doesn't look anything like the guy. At least the reward was 500 gold coins for anyone with information about this Zelkova. The citizens are shocked. Offering 500 coins means the guy must be a monster. They're saying he was yesterday's bomber. Back there hiding with his face made up, it's actually the old man in disguise. And he knows the guy was drawn differently on purpose. So why is that Arahan kid doing this? It would only make sense if he wanted to make it clear he wants to meet him. He walks away thinking he'll eventually figure out what that kid's secret is. He doesn't even know how many cities it's been anymore. Being a fugitive is exhausting. Maybe it's time to end this. He's lived long enough, he doesn't have any regrets left. When he sees the place where he's supposed to claim the 500 coins with soldiers marching in formation, he decides to go. Then the protagonist shows up behind him and says his disguise is incredible. Wow, protagonist is really pulling the outlaw move. Hey, act natural. If you make me suspicious, I'll kill you right here. The old guy goes, "Who are you, kid?" The protagonist says, "Zed Arahan. I finally found you, old man." He pulls back his hood. "Nice to meet you. I'm the 7th of the Arahan family." The old man takes off the mask and the protagonist says, "I know your name. You're Lacto Sherville, right?" The old man asks, "If you know who I am, why are you looking for me?" The protagonist just looks at him and says the reason he's looking for a legendary blacksmith is simple. "I came to hire you as the Arahan's exclusive craftsman." Oh, so now he's speaking for the whole family? Who gave him that authority? The next chapter starts by saying, games and reality are different. In a game, an item is just an item you double-click to equip. But in real life, you actually have to use it. That means it's not just stats. There's comfort, weight, flexibility. Magical tools sold on the market aren't that common. And not all of them are any good. On top of that, it's hard to search for the perfect piece and then find out it doesn't even fit you. That's why he needs Lacto. This guy can make armor and magical items that fit his body perfectly. Obviously to raise his stats and prepare gear for specific situations. That's why he needs him as an ally. The protagonist says, war horses are made for war. Swords are meant to be used. So what is the only survivor of the Sherville bloodline supposed to do if not make weapons? The best craftsman from the best family, with techniques passed down through countless generations. That's what you have to keep alive. And that's the mission I want to give you. Everyone's saying the old man likes it. If he were trying to win over a woman, he'd never have this smooth talk. The old man says passing those techniques to the next generation fills him with emotion, but his face is stone cold, zero emotion. I don't even know if he meant it. He's about to say something about a problem with his family, but the protagonist cuts him off and says it's a false accusation. With the authority of the Arahans, which I still don't know where he got, he says he'll clear the false charges against the Chervilles, because with his family's help it's possible. The old man asks if he doesn't know the real story of the Cherville massacre, and the protagonist says he doesn't. The guy says that's strange. He doesn't know what happened and still wants to help the Chervilles, so how does he know the accusation is really false? The protagonist thinks, yeah, that's true. And the problem is the Cherville incident is a story that happens right at the start of the game, before everything begins. He only has a rough idea from some NPC conversations. It sounds like they tried some kind of rebellion and got wiped out by the Empire. So he says, even if I don't know the details of the incident, I know the Cherville family well. Lacto, you get it? You know about us? He says yes. The Cherville family was dedicated to one thing, creating magical equipment. They had no reason to rebel, destroy the Empire, or anything like that. The truth is, the game's emperor had already reached the level of both a swordmaster and an archmage. He was a supreme being. Under him was the main army made up of knights and mages. At that point, even if Arahan and Bahal joined forces, they wouldn't stand a chance. And the emperor is immortal, an absolute existence that rules the world. Damn, if I remember the story right, humans lose, so who even kills that guy? That's why he's sure the Chervilles had no reason to rebel. They had no chance. So the protagonist asks the old man to tell the whole story of the incident, because he's already sure it's a false accusation. The old man says okay, and asks if he knows the Martor's family. The protagonist knows that among mages, that family is number 2. Lacto says yes. They were also their main trading partner, or they used to be, until the Martors decided they wanted to surpass the Arahans. The protagonist says, in theory, that's impossible. The old man agrees, saying the Arahans are incredible. But the real problem started when the Billy family got involved. Oh my god, so many families. The protagonist thinks it's weird. He knows the Billys are kind of mediocre. So how did they manage to ruin everything? He asks what happened. The old man says, one day he was hammering out a greatsword, and one of the Billy family guys came to talk. He said that from now on they should stop trading with the Martennis, and trade only with them. Obviously Laketail refused. The guy turned around and warned him he'd regret it. After that, it seems they conspired with the Martennis and managed to plant conflict between the two. The protagonist asks if both families were involved in their downfall, and Laketail says he doesn't know exactly. After that, the Imperial army showed up at the Cherville home and killed everyone without mercy. No time for explanations, no chance to defend themselves. They were simply wiped out. The protagonist gets it. They killed the kids without saying a word. Now the problem is, it's not just Arahan, this involves a bunch of families. And if the protagonist says the Arahans are now on Lake To's side, that could be risky. Because he's starting to imagine it since the Chervils traded with all those other families, but not as much with the Arahans, maybe they triggered someone's fury. On the other hand, if the Arahan side had been involved, nobody would have been left to tell the story. No one would know anything even today. The only issue is those Black Mirror guys seem to be involved in everything. Anyway, it's better not to jump to conclusions and wait for more information. So he says, if this is only about magic families, the Arahans can handle it easily. Lake To asks the same thing I'm thinking. You little bastard, are you sure you can take responsibility for this? The protagonist goes, yes, I'll take responsibility. I'll keep my word. Come on, give me your hand. I guarantee everything will work out. The old man's like, damn, this kid doesn't inspire confidence, but I've got nothing to lose. Fine, give me your hand, you little bastard. Done. Our kid thanks him and says they're leaving now. He's already got the squad put together to go up against the Arahans. 3 blonde kids, the white horse, 2 insignias, and an old man. Honestly, it looks promising. But he's curious how effective the things he got in the south will be against Arahan. The kid's even smiling. Yeah, the confidence is kicking in. Meanwhile, in the eastern region called Neka, there's a golden tower in the middle of the city, and it kind of sticks out. Why are you trying to flex that hard? Everyone's arriving impressed. Ryu says he didn't believe a place this rich existed in the world. Confused, the protagonist asks, you've never been here? Didn't you work for the trading teams? Ryu explains that Neka is controlled by huge caravans. Small-time people don't even get a chance to trade there. His sister is pulling him by the arm, telling him to look. There are tons of gold buildings. Even Lacto is shocked, saying it's been a long time since he came to Neka. This place is growing insanely fast. There's a lot of money here. The protagonist asks if he's been here before, and the old man says yes, he visited as a tourist a long time ago, like 10 years back. But it's strange how much it's changed. He can barely recognize it. Looking around, the protagonist thinks it feels a bit colder than the southern border, but it also seems more relaxed. The look is different, but it's almost like he's in a rich neighborhood in Korea. In the city, everyone's staring at the horse. They know white horses belong to Bahal, so why is there one here? The protagonist ignores it and goes to find a proper inn. Now they're in the room and Ryu asks if they're really going straight to Arahan. The protagonist says that's the goal, but they still have a week and they can't waste time. As soon as Ryu sees he's about to head out, he wants to know what he's planning this time. He says he's going alone and they don't need to worry. He tells the old man to stay too and look after the kids. The guy thought he was going to make weapons. Now he's stuck babysitting. Ryu asks, so you're not coming back today? And the protagonist says, no. I'll be back in a week maybe. It's like he's saying goodbye to a girlfriend. Kid, just go already. All these guys are staring. Get out of here. Bye. We're in the city. The protagonist looking left and right, searching for something specific. No matter how bright a place is, darkness still exists. People came to the Golden City looking for opportunity and ended up as failures. That's where the rat eaters are. Scene cuts to a shop. Someone asks what an Arahan is doing in a place like this, while the protagonist says he came to buy those black lenses. The old man, confused, asks why. Those are the cheapest ones and the most common color. Basically, it's the eye lens of some random person. But with that, there it is. The protagonist, already with that different-looking eye, goes to a shop to buy some clothes. The shopkeeper wants to offer him the good stuff, but nope, he wants to buy the cheap, ragged clothes. He's putting together a mouse-eater costume. Here you go, kid. Swag mode. Look at him. The kid's dressed like he's ready to stand at a traffic light. He's even checking himself out in the reflection of that gold building. Damn, that's wild. Having a gold house where people can see themselves in the reflection is next-level flexing. He's ready to meet the king of the alleys. There are some houses over there, totally abandoned. Look, today's dinner is walking around. The protagonist sits right where dogs pee and stares up, wondering if it's time to move. Then he starts walking, but people are already watching. Everybody wants to steal the Gucci clothes he's wearing. The gang is already posted up. The protagonist notices those punks are watching him. 7 people are following him, and now he can barely see 5 meters ahead because it's so dark. Looks like he's gonna have to start moving for real. Problem is, he's starving. And today there are little mice everywhere, food all around. You could almost call it a Garden of Eden. But right then he runs into this huge musclehead. Man, there are people everywhere. The guy comes in like, hey bastard, where'd you come from? You better say you're new here or you're not gonna survive. The protagonist goes, hey, is there any food around? I need like 3 mice to fill my stomach. They get pissed instantly. This asshole came here to eat our rats. Right away, one of them comes up from behind saying he'll handle it. But the protagonist crouches and looks back, leaving the guy confused. The Ratatouille gang rushes him. The first one jumps in to crush him. Protagonist glances back, boom, shoulder to the stomach. The guy goes flying and crashes into another one. It looks like he's about to elbow the next guy in the face, but right as it's about to land, snap, he switches the motion and chops him in the neck. In half a second, 3 idiots are down and the rest are kind of stunned. The protagonist smiles. In those alleys, the police don't exist. He asks, you guys good? While thinking, now that my strength hits 70, even a weak punch is hurting people. They're like, damn, are you some kind of psycho? What are you doing here? What the protagonist wants to know is why they attacked him. He just wanted a little piece of mouse. Now thanks to them, he's even hungrier. But the dog-faced guy answers, you think you're gonna be fine? You're not safe after this. You're not gonna survive. We're gonna kill you. The protagonist says he's here to take over the whole organization in the end anyway, so whatever. They don't even understand what he means. Then suddenly a dagger with this green power almost hits the protagonist. A guy smiles. Oh, you dodged. "You're not ordinary, are you, kid?" They recognize him as the vice commander. The protagonist gets excited. He found someone important on day one. Now his plan is speeding up, and the big bearded guy in the back goes, "You don't know who that is, do you? His name is Kimzera, the legendary assassin who wiped out the city of Nekar." The protagonist says, "Legendary assassin? No way, someone has that title, and is also the commander of the beggars." That comment doesn't go over well. Kimzera goes in to stab him, but the protagonist steps aside. Kimzera is impressed. He dodged twice. "You're new, but you've got potential. Too bad you won't live long enough to get strong." The protagonist thinks it's funny this guy is talking about potential to him, a world champion. But then Kimzera activates this green aura that starts taking over the whole place. The protagonist immediately realizes it's a mana expansion, meaning this bastard really is Circle 4 or higher. He thought the legendary assassin title was fake, but it's got some truth to it. Anyone in this world with that kind of mana control can be considered a legend. Kimzera smiles and says, "You look surprised. Now you'll find out what happens when you walk around this world carelessly." He does this Killua-style step and starts circling him, watching him, confused. Why doesn't this kid look scared? Is he frozen? So he tests him with an attack, comes down from above to drive the blade straight into the middle of his skull. The protagonist looks up, acting scared, and then what? It's like 3 people attacked him. He slips to the side, 3 blades collide. It doesn't make sense. They're like, "He dodged our combined attack." They start wondering if he's some kind of mage or what. Turns out the assassin Kimzera is actually triplets with the same face. Clever. So they can tell the whole world, "I mastered the triple clone technique," and everyone will be like, "That's insane." The protagonist notices they're really similar, but each one has their own unique mana. But now he's screwed. Daakne, Deja, and Dara. How is he supposed to tell who's who? How do you even narrate something like that? He realizes his mana circle isn't helping much. Perception isn't doing anything either. Then they come at him again, and the protagonist says, "All right, all I can do now is give it everything I've got." They laugh, saying he's dying today and he won't dodge again. And then what is this? Out of nowhere, the protagonist gets insanely jacked. He suddenly looks like a Dragon Ball cosplay, and obviously the electrification is on and his eye is glowing red. Everyone recognizes it immediately. He's an Arahan. What's he doing here? They realize they fell into a trap, but it's not like it's going to be easy for them. The protagonist didn't just activate body electrification, now he's also building up energy, forming a little lightning ball in his hand. The gang starts running, but he clenches his fist, and when they look back, they get hit with a whip of light across the chest. And he's coming in, pure aura forming, walking forward, cape flying, hair flying, built like a tank. The protagonist is finally starting to understand the power of thunder. And it's funny, it works exactly like it did in the game. He doesn't need an enchantment, it activates almost instantly, which is a ridiculous advantage. Then someone nearby starts yelling, "He's here! He's here! Damn, a soldier is coming!" The protagonist takes off running. Now he's going to have to save the Kimzera triplets. They turn the corner and see him pass. So the protagonist hid in the end. They're lighting up the corridor and see blood on the ground. The protagonist realizes this Kimzera guy, whatever this bomb is, really weak. The guy is covered in blood. Now the guards are searching and he sees hiding won't work. He wanted to handle it quietly, but there's no way, so he walks out. They go, "Hey you, who are you?" The protagonist just looks at them and asks where they're going. They see the red eye and instantly everyone's like, "Oh, an Arahan. Sorry sir, we were looking for someone responsible for something. You wouldn't happen to be Master Tunda, would you?" The protagonist knows Tunda is the 6th son of the Arahans, so he says, "No, I'm the 7th son, you don't know me." The guy says, "No sir, sorry," and they run off. The protagonist relieved he solved it with just words. The Arahan status in these regions really works like absolute authority. He goes back to Kimzera's body, at least he's still alive. The protagonist is surprised, he thought he held back with that lightning attack, but it hit way harder than he expected. He moves through the alleys carrying the guy, until someone calls out to the Arahan's son. The protagonist tells them to show themselves, and the other 2 pop out, already apologizing for being rude to an Arahan descendant and begging him to please be generous and release their brother. They're handing over their daggers, crying. "Please, it won't happen again, I swear." The protagonist is confused. Why are these cruel assassins crying in front of him? He says it's funny how they show this intense love for their brother, but take other people's lives without mercy. They say they only learned assassination to survive in the world. They never killed anyone innocent, only bad people. The protagonist says, "Yeah right, you tried to kill me, you lying piece of shit." They go, "That's because this is our home. You look like an invader beating people up, so we had to act." The protagonist gets it. There must be a lot of people trying to take control of this region of Nikar's underworld. So he asks, what they said is true? That they don't kill innocent people? Like asking a thief if he steals? They say, obviously that's right. They never killed anyone innocent. The protagonist says if that's true, they can't be making much money, because killing cruel people doesn't pay well. They answer that all they want is enough to guarantee the safety of their family and brothers. Their master, who taught everyone the art of assassination, always emphasized that. For some reason, the protagonist believes them. He knows killing is always cruel, but for ordinary people crushed by nobles, the Kimzera brothers are almost like a last source of hope. So he says, fine. One condition, take me to your leader and I'll heal your brother. They look scared, like they don't know, afraid to say they'll take him. They explain they won't survive if they sell out anyone in that place. But the protagonist steps closer and says, I have no intention of hurting him, so don't worry. The one on the right says everyone who comes asking to talk to the master always says the exact same thing, but they never give up information about him. The protagonist says even if he doesn't get what he wants from the master, he won't put them at a disadvantage, and he won't kill their friend or anything like that, and he promises it in the name of Arahan. They don't say anything, and the protagonist asks why they don't believe him. They answer that nobody thinks it's smart to believe a noble's words. The protagonist thinks it's better they refuse for now, otherwise he wouldn't believe their sincerity either. But then he gives them an option. You can tie me up, put a knife to my throat, blindfold me. Then you can take me to where your boss is without me knowing anything. If you still don't believe me even then, I'm not handing your brother back. Just like I'm trusting what you said, you're going to have to trust me. They look at each other and say fine, then they'll take him to the leader. And yeah, the protagonist can do that because they don't want to kill an Arahan. They'd get erased from the world, so the protagonist, seeing through the cloth, says it's time to meet the king of this place. They pass through a few alleys and he starts noticing they're walking in circles. So he asks, are you looking for the Black Guard? If that's it, don't waste your energy, just take me there. You think the Black Guard wouldn't know where your leader is? He's saying they know Arahans are always followed by guards, and they're trying to find his guard, but he warns them they won't manage it, so give it up. The Mohawk guy asks, is the Black Guardian nearby? The protagonist says, no idea, those guys are everywhere, give it up, even I don't know where they are, they're like they're from another dimension. The guy in front says, alright then we'll go. What else can we do? They enter a room full of tea. The protagonist's hood is removed and they call for the leader, who asks who this guy is. Did you forget the rules? Damn, the king of the back streets is a nerdy guy with glasses. The guy apologizes, saying this person insisted he wanted to make a deal with the leader, but the leader says he doesn't want to hear anything. Get this guy out of here immediately. They stare at the protagonist as he pulls something out of his pocket. He says, give this to your friend to drink. It's to heal the friend he's shocked. The protagonist explains it's holy water and the guy will recover fast. It's a waste to use it on him, but it's the only way to fix him. No way he'd normally spend his super holy water to heal someone like that. Then the protagonist goes, leader, I came to make a deal. But the leader's like, stop bothering me, get out. Then the Arahan pulls out the book, shocking everyone. When the leader looks to the side, he sees the red eye and asks how an Arahan ended up there. He trusted his people, so why did they betray him like this? They explain the protagonist promised he wouldn't hurt the leader. But then the leader snatches the book from his hand and says every noble is trash. The protagonist recognizes him. This is Eddie, the leader of the city's underworld, someone with a lot of influence and power, at least among the rat eaters. And Eddie says, you're really young, but you're not Tunda, which means you must be the youngest of all the Arahans, probably the one who got abandoned at the asylum. The main character's impressed that the guy knows so much, and Eddie goes, alright, what kind of deal are you trying to make? Just so you know, I don't want anything from the Arahans. The main character asks how he can be so sure without even hearing him out. Eddie says it's obvious whenever you're negotiating with nobles. He's probably trying to offer a bag full of money, or take away his status as a commoner, something like that, right? The main character just stares without saying anything, and Eddie turns away like he already knew. Zed knows this guy has a brilliant mind and challenged the officer placement test countless times, but got rejected because he's dirt poor. Because of that, he developed a pretty twisted personality and started hating all nobles, thinking everyone in this world is dumber than him. Honestly, he's exactly like he was in the game. Then the main character says, what I'm going to pay you isn't money, not even status. Eddie goes, alright, I get it. But then the main character sits down next to him and says he's there to deliver information. He'll get what he wants by having Eddie tell him something he needs to know. Eddie says he's interesting. He wants to buy information with information. The main character says yes, and he thinks he knows a lot about this guy since there's a secret quest in the middle of the game where you have to talk to him. Then he asks, Eddie, is it true you can remember everything you see after just one look? The kid looks at him and answers, I'm smart, but don't exaggerate for the love of God. But Zed points out, funny, you look like you like reading books, but there are only 4 books here, which means you throw out the ones you've already read. Eddie laughs and says the kid really has a sharp eye, so he noticed. The main character says it looks like Eddie is willing to make a deal, since he's changed his posture and is watching Zed closely now. Eddie says fine, he'll listen to what the kid has to say. The time investment seems worth it. Then the main character says he wants to know everything about the Arahans, more specifically, information about each of the brothers. Eddie asks, is this because of the power struggle? Well, I guess so. Information is money, like a weapon and sometimes a shield. But the most important thing is what information are you going to give me? The main character just says, information you don't know. Eddie replies, I won't know until I hear it. Like anything else, you bastard. The main character says, I'll give you my information when you give me yours, about my brothers. Eddie goes, kid, what kind of deal is that? What if your information is completely useless? The main character answers, and what if your information about my brothers is useless too? Because if we're talking about the Arahans, technically I already know more than you do. Eddie says that's funny, because Zed is the one who came to him. So the main character says, yeah, he came here thinking Eddie would know a lot, but maybe that's not the case. If Eddie isn't interested, they can drop the deal and pretend it never happened. The main character is playing mind games. The foundation of negotiation is knowing what the other person wants without letting them know what you want. That way, a guy obsessed with information is going to get curious about what he has to say. Maybe he needs to push a little more. Then the main character stands up and says, well, looks like you're not interested, so I'm leaving. And he actually leaves. We're already outside with him. Looks like Eddie didn't negotiate. He thinks if he doesn't want to negotiate now, fine. I've got Kimzera and those 3 to find him again later. and I think he'll reach out first anyway, so no rush. But then someone steps up and calls out to the young master. It's the sweet trio thanking him for the holy water that saved their brother. They say they're even ashamed they doubted the kid just because he's a noble. The main character says it's fine. Eventually you'll meet other nobles who are decent too. I'm just someone who doesn't break my word. They're thanking him all emotional because their friend almost died. They ask his name and the main character says, Zed Arahan. Everyone thanks him. The main character starts thinking maybe he judged these assassins wrong. Strangely, they had a strong bond and extremely high loyalty to their comrades. They were better than he expected. What he doesn't get is why they're still following him around, crouched like that. Then he asks, you're the Kimzeras, right? And they go, oh yes, that's what people call us. The main character thinks 3 identical fourth circle assassins. If he ends up in a power struggle, they could be useful. So he says, you 3 come with me. And now he's back face to face with Eddie, who goes, oh, you came back. Eddie thinks, this Zed tried to act tough, but he's desperate for information about his brothers. So what brought you back, kid? Weren't you not interested? But then the main character says he's interested in buying the Kimzera triplets. Eddie's like, wait, you're not here for information? The main character says, I am, and I'll pay for the 3 of them with my information. Eddie suddenly shifts, hold on. You came here to talk to me because of those old guys? Not because you want information about your brothers. The main character says, no, I don't want information about them anymore. No matter how I look at it, I think I'm going to come out losing. He tossed the bait. Eddie goes, lose? But he sighs, fine. You want to buy those 3? Just know they're vice captains in our organization, and I'm the captain. The main character says he's willing to pay a fair price. Eddie explains that a fair price is way more than he's imagining. Eddie says he wants to know absolutely everything. Zed went through and saw after leaving the asylum, how he escaped that place, how he got away from the police, what he gained after that. At minimum, that's the information he needs. To him, it's incredibly interesting how the young Arahan who was abandoned there is suddenly standing right in front of him. Then the main character tears into him. Seriously? Your goals are smaller than I thought. Eddie jumps up furious, demanding what he means, walking toward him while the main character says, I thought you'd ask something bigger, but like they say, people live according to their limits. Eddie grabs him by the collar and says he's getting full of himself. Everything good in his life is only because he was born into a good family, and even then he has no talent, just bloodline. Eddie is glaring at him, about to keep talking, but then he catches that red-eyed stare. That hits hard. He almost shakes. The triplets step in. Captain, don't forget he's an Arahan. We'll all die. Eddie, let's go. Sorry, I got carried away. So tell me, what conditions do you want? The main character says, answer me. Who's standing in front of you? Eddie goes, an Arahan's son. So what? I already apologized. Zed says, you don't get it. Yes, I'm an Arahan, and I'm a noble. If I were you and I hated nobles, I'd be asking how I could use them, not just hate them and do nothing else. Eddie goes, what do you mean, use nobles? Are you telling me to use you? The main character says, I know you're obsessed with information, but the information you can get living in the shadows is limited. You still don't get it. Eddie says, I don't. You haven't told me anything. Zed replies, stop staying in the shadows. It's time you step into the light, and I'm going to help you. Eddie says that's ridiculous, that Zed has no idea what he's talking about. But the main character says he'll give him a good location in the middle of the city, and Eddie will set up a private investigation agency there. Nobles are the ones who really move the world, and if you want any influence over them, you have to live in the world they live in. Eddie says, you think I couldn't get one because I don't have money? People like me can't even buy a house. The main character says, I'll be the owner of the house, not you. You'll just run the business. I'll even assign a Mahadan for security. A Mahadan is like a mage guard, like how you have a knight who protects you, and the Mahadan is the mage who protects you. Eddie still hesitates, and the main character says, come on, stubborn kid, I'm telling you. Be my partner. Step out of the shadows. Step into the light. Let's take over this noble world. Take this rich city for ourselves. Now Eddie's getting interested. He's offering me a place, even a Mahadan. Can I trust this? Then he says, are you sure this is real? You'll give me a building and even assign a Mahadan. That doesn't make sense. But the main character says he doesn't break promises, and this is an opportunity Eddie won't get a second time in his life. Eddie knows it too. Everything important happening in the city involves nobles. The scraps of information he gets from rat-eating beggars barely matter. So he says, all right. He grabs the main character's hand and says, I'll join you. The main character replies, perfect. Decision made. But now you know we need payment, right? Payment you'll make with both the information about my brothers and the Kimzera triplets. That's what you'll hand over. Next scene, broad-shouldered main character arriving at the Arahan mansion. Man, I'm excited to see if he has an older sister. Since he's the youngest, they've got to be powerful. Ryu is there like said, I couldn't sleep all night. The main character says it wasn't just him. Both of them are anxious. The main character spent the whole night studying everything he got from Eddie. Now he knows all their alliances, how much they spend in the city, personal details, servants. He's even confused, how does that bastard have all this? If this guy really got the chance to build an information agency, he'd be terrifying. But what he needs now is to buy time to get stronger and survive the Arahan power struggle. That's why today matters so much. His position will change completely depending on what happens. They're almost there. The Arahans have little money, huh? They've got a golden monument in the middle of the city. At the gate, the guard goes, stop right there, identify yourself. The main character gets down and the guard says, oh, it's you, Master Zed. All right, we were notified. The main character says, good, since the master summoned me, show me the way. The guard says, okay, but none of the people behind him can enter. The main character says they're companions, and they're coming in because he trusts everyone's identity. The soldier insists. Nobody enters without the master's permission. The main character's thinking, first step and it's already going wrong. There are ways to force his way in, but breaking Arahan rules the moment he arrives doesn't seem smart. So he says, stay here for a second. I'll be right back. Lacto says, I know you probably shouldn't trust an old man's intuition, but I've got a bad feeling. The main character says, it's fine. Nothing's going to happen, and says he trusts the Kimzera trio to protect everyone. Yeah, he knew it. They're all going to get screwed. The Kimzeras will die, his friends will get captured. The old man will be killed. He's done for. As he's being led inside, the main character thinks he has to stay focused. He can't get nervous. He prepared as much as he could. Every mage in this world moves with the intention of profiting or coming out ahead, so he just has to focus on that kind of negotiation. He ended up in an Arahan body by accident, but from now on he has to live like an Arahan, meticulously trying to survive among these insane mages. Boom. The gate opens. The father looks more dead than alive. He really feels like the final boss. He welcomes his youngest son. The main character goes, hey master, how's it going? He's trying not to shake, but it's hard. The father stares and asks how he feels after being away from home for so long. The main character says it feels the same as always. The master's aura is powerful, freezing to the bone. The father laughs and the whole place trembles, and the main character can't even stay standing. The main character says his vision is blurry, and the sound is completely distorted. And the father says that apparently he can feel his aura. Zed starts talking all humble, like how could a mere mortal understand the level of a great mage? He knows this man is one of the Empire's only two great mages, Janid and Arahan, the one who killed all his brothers and took the throne. Then the father says he's changed too much. The last time he saw him, he was a weak child. Look at the protagonist feeling all full of himself. The word weak can't represent an Arahan. And the Joker's laughing again like some head case going, yeah, an Arahan can never be called weak. There's no way one of his kids wouldn't be able to sense mana. And he can see the boy awaken thunder energy. He wants to know everything the boy already understands about that attribute. The protagonist says he knows it's an attribute above the other four. The father finally pauses for a second and says it's an interesting attribute, but all Arahans only get fire, so why does he have energy? The protagonist realizes the guy's interested in that attribute. He didn't expect him to focus on that. The protagonist says, well, it's not a big surprise. Arahan blood is so powerful, full of potential. The father thinks that's weird. How are you not surprised you got that attribute? So the boy says he heard the energy attribute appears once every 100 years. And if it's something that rare and unique, then obviously it should belong to an Arahan. And what happens? Yeah, again, that crazy Joker laughing, shaking everything. That guy's not right in the head. The protagonist's like, damn it, every time this bastard laughs, my organs twist up. The father says it's been a long time since he laughed that hard. Thank God. No way, I was just gonna be fine. He called the boy in because of the thunder energy. He wants the boy to research how to develop it. If it reaches a high level, it could be more important than any record. The protagonist already gets it. This guy wants him to become some powerful thunder mage, so he can add it to his list of achievements. The man who had the thunder child, blah blah blah. Whatever. But for him it's good, since the guy's interested in something, so he just says he'll follow the master's commands. But then out of nowhere, the father says that before that, he can't ignore the wrong things his son did. Didn't he know the slave trader DeVito was connected to the family? The protagonist says, I knew. Then the father slams the table and says that even so, he went and punished him. The protagonist biting his lip, almost shitting himself. My God, he's gonna need to change his underwear. So the protagonist says he didn't do anything that would hurt the family. Slave traders are people they eventually need to cut all ties with. They go against the Empire's goals, so he figured that in the long run, the guy would bring more damage than profit to the family. The father says his words contradict themselves. Slave traders bring huge profit to the Arahans. Without them, they wouldn't be making anything on the southern border. The protagonist realizes it. Yeah, that's the obvious part, but now I've got to convince him somehow. And then he goes for a jab I didn't expect. He says, Master, I believe there's illegal profit and fair profit. The father asks if he means profit gained through slavery is illegal. What a ridiculous thing to say. Profit is profit. The protagonist is 15. Obviously, the father's going to see him as just some rebellious kid. Maybe the best move is to make the father think this was just a mistake. A young boy made? So he says, Father, I'm from the top family. The Arahans. How could I accept dirty money? Not every gold coin is the same, and only the brightest ones should exist in our house. But the father immediately tells him to stop with the sophistry, which means using fallacious arguments to deceive. Basically, liar. Then why did you accept Bahal's offer? And in case you don't know, Gara kid, there are enemies. The protagonist explains it just happened that both their intentions lined up. He didn't necessarily receive help. He was already acting without those people. But the father says the bastard really is trying to trick him. He knows the boy was invited by the Bahals and even got a white horse. The protagonist switches tactics because the kid is being used. He says, you don't understand the situation, master. I wasn't invited, I was kidnapped. And even so, when I got there, I showed Arahan pride in front of Master Bahal. Instead of bringing humiliation, I came back with a gift, the enemy's heart. Their horse acknowledged me. Why are you scolding me instead of praising me? A lot of the Bahals saw me take that white horse like an Arahan stealing their treasure. That only raises my reputation in front of them. The protagonist thinking, come on, believe all these lies. At least I'm 15, it sounds like a logical way to see the world. But then the father suddenly goes full villain and says, "You're the youngest and you're the bastard trying to fool me with that tongue." Now the kid's screwed. The father warns him, "Next lie, you'll pay a heavy price. But I know everything you said has a tiny bit of truth in it. And still you thinking you should be praised instead of punished actually makes sense." He flips like that out of nowhere. Even the protagonist is surprised. Hold on, he knows I'm lying, so why is he letting it slide? Then the father says, "Fine, the conversation ends here. Now I'm going to listen to what you want." The protagonist hesitates and the father orders him to speak. "What do you want?" The boy's totally confused, but it's his chance to get what he wants. He says he wants to receive all the money he's supposed to get to manage a mansion, like all the brothers. On top of that, he wants his own Marudins, the protection members, like the rest of the family. The father says fine, he can place some members under the boy's control, but it'll be 100% his responsibility. The boy says he understands. The Marudin members are considered neutral until they start working for one of the sons. From then on, anything they do or say becomes the protagonist's responsibility. Then the father asks, "And those people you brought?" The old man, 3 filthy assassins, and a brother and sister from some beggar family. The protagonist says yes, like he should know. The old man is lacto-servile, and he wants to use him to build weapons. The siblings will serve as servants, and the assassins will handle certain tasks. But the father says no, bringing a servile is forbidden. He's a traitor and will be arrested immediately and sent to the imperial palace as soon as he's discovered. The protagonist knows the father's lying. He's not serious because if that were true, the servile would have been sent away a long time ago. This is a test, so he asks a question. Did the Arahans get involved in the servile rebellion? Now the father wants to know why he's asking. The boy explains he knows the serviles didn't want to negotiate with the Arahans and produced items exclusively for the Martin family. The father laughs, but more normally now, and says he doesn't care about the Martins. Even if they're the second family, they can't hold a candle to the Arahans. Why would he move to get involved in a fight between insects? The protagonist thinks, good, at least the Arahans aren't involved. That means he didn't bring Lacto in as an enemy of the family. So he says, then please let the serviles stay here with us, Dad. The father refuses. He can't allow a traitor to the empire on this family's land. Zed insists, saying they framed the servile, and he's asking for help to clear their name. The father says he understands, but why would he do that? The protagonist explains Lacto Servile is the best magical weapon craftsman in the Empire, and obviously the Arahans are the ones who should have him at their side. If they had Lacto with them and helped prove him innocent, the family would definitely grow stronger. The protagonist knows that even if the father is against the idea, having Lacto nearby is extra strength. He's sure of it. So the father says fine, he can accept the man but he won't clear his name. If you're the one who brought him, then you handle it. The boy says that's fine. He'll follow the head of the family's commands. For him, it's even better. That way Lacto is literally tied to him, and with the excuse of trying to clear the man's name, he can leave this territory again. The father tells him to go, and the protagonist leaves the room, but the guy who looks half dead is just staring. Suddenly, a spirit appears beside him, the leader of the Marudins, Callus. The father asks what he thinks. Callus says that like him, he finds the boy strangely suspicious. The father agrees something's off. The boy looks like a child, but the mind inside him clearly doesn't belong to one. Then he stretches out his hand and laughs, saying, "Did you see that bastard trying to fool me? A little kid, shameless." Callus asks if he's going to let it slide, says he should punish him. The father chuckles and says the boy's eyes were so desperate. Did you see? He had that look of someone who'd say and do whatever it took to get what he wanted. But just being a genius isn't enough. Only people who reach a realm beyond genius can lead the Arahans. Still, now he's even more eager to see what the youngest does next. First, he needs him to be at the same level as the other brothers. Then he says he'll take the youngest to the mysterious tomb when he finds an appropriate date. Scene switches to a rundown mansion with the protagonist group arriving. The little brother's already talking. It's going to be a lot of work to clean this place. He mentions the Kimzera guys will help with the cleaning. So they start cleaning the whole mansion. The protagonist is cleaning a window when someone comes up and says hello to the young master. He recognizes the uniform right away. The Mardon guys who will be staying with him. 20 people. That's a whole troop, like a soccer team. He asks how long they've been members, and the guy in front says they're all recent and joined the Mardons about 3 months ago. The protagonist says they must be 5th circle, and the guy says yes. The protagonist realizes it's kind of disappointing that everyone he got is a bunch of rookies. But it makes sense, the strongest ones went to the older brothers. And one thing is clear, just like the protagonist disappointed, they are too. Thinking they're stuck being commanded by him, they're screwed. So Zed steps up and says, "Good to meet all of you. Let's do our best together." The guy says yes, but asks what the protagonist was doing. He answers, "Cleaning the mansion. It's filthy." The guy says, "Yeah, I saw, but you're doing it yourself?" Zed goes, "Yeah, obviously. What did you think, that I'd just stand around? Grab a broom too, since you've got so much to say. Let's all clean." The Marudins are like, "Wait, Marudins are gonna clean?" And the protagonist says, "Of course. Aren't you gonna live in the mansion too? You wanna live in a dirty mansion?" The guy and the protagonist both feel like something's off. Why aren't they obeying? They said they would. So he asks who the water mage is, and 2 guys raise their hands. He tells them to throw water on the floor to help with the cleaning. Another says he has wind magic, and the protagonist says, "Good, blast those smoke-stained walls to get the dust off." The 2 water mages start using their magic, but the protagonist says, hey, you're going too fast. Take it slow so we can make this place spotless." Not long after, the mansion is shining completely clean. The protagonist walks through the corridors assigning rooms. Ryu and Lisa will stay in this room. The beggar guy in the other one, the old man in that one. And everyone's chatting. Ryu says he's hungry, they never eat, and the protagonist goes to check what they have. It's just beggar food, even sewer rats had it better. It's funny, the kid just got a mansion and his main concern is what they're going to eat. Ryu says everyone's hungry because they all worked. Then the protagonist asks, is the closest mansion Tunda's? The guy at the table confirms, but warns him, wait sir, you're not thinking about talking to young Master Tunda, are you? The protagonist says, yeah. Why wouldn't I? The guy starts sweating and says, no, it's better to find another solution. One brother visiting another without an invitation is basically declaring war. And the protagonist, bold as ever, says, if that's how it is, even better. He was already planning to clash with that guy. Scene switches to another mansion, probably Tunda's. He's yelling, saying he hates the smell of onions. A plate is smashed on the floor, servants are working, and another servant girl brings something in. How come my boy got 20 men and Tunda has Miss Grace Monet all dressed up serving him? And there's Tunda chewing Grace out, saying she's being way too kind to that bastard, that she should wipe everyone out. Grace, grown and composed, says sometimes he has to eat what he doesn't like because it's good for his health. But she's thinking what a pain it is to keep this child happy. Looks like the charm magic stopped working. I'm gonna have to use a stronger one tonight. Tonight? What do you mean tonight? I want a spell cast on me. No, I don't, because it should be nothing should happen. Just make a circle and then walk away. Then, all of a sudden, a maid rushes in. Help, Grace. What is it, woman? Talk, girl. Young Master Zed is here. Grace slams the table right away. Hold on, why would he show up at this hour without an invitation? This is a declaration of war. She immediately orders everyone to be gathered and asks how many opponents there are. The maid goes, well, he's there alone. Grace, all smug, goes, oh, alone? And then, boom, the main hall door is already open. Greetings, kid. Everyone's like, oh my god, the boy's here. And the protagonist goes, hey, you guys in the middle of a meal? Out of nowhere, soldiers start coming in from all sides trying to figure out what he's doing there. The protagonist sees them coming. Hey, who are all these servants? Why aren't they bowing to me? Someone next to him, awkward as hell. Oh, young Master Zed, what brings you here? But the protagonist is already looking at the tall one. Her face changes every second, and he says, so you're the maid named Grace, right? You're not even gonna say hi. She shoots him that crimson, blood-red stare and gets chills. Shocked, she wonders what's making this kid so bold. He used to be easy to crush with a threat. And what is this weird aura? Looks like he awakened mana and came back different. The protagonist just stands there and asks, you're not going to bow. So she bows, introducing herself as Grace Monet, maid of Master Tunda. Meanwhile, she's boiling inside. Damn it. I run everything in this house, and I still have to bow to a kid like this. The protagonist points out that power's gone to her head. Is she really letting her hatred and energy leak out that carelessly? Grace looks even more frightened that he noticed everything. What happened to this kid? His attitude changed, and clearly his knowledge too. Something's off. Then she notices the priest's insignia. Right then, Tunda stands up and says, hey, you bastard. Nobody has to greet him. That trash should be greeting his elders. I'm older, so spit it out. Why'd you come crawling all the way here? The protagonist looks at Tunda like, seriously, this guy's a useless puppet. Tunda slams the table again, asking who he called a puppet. Zed apologizes, saying he didn't mean to offend his older brother, his amazing big brother. And then Tunda's already conjuring a fire spell, asking if he really wants war. He's trying to build up his aura, but with that face of his, it's not happening. He's showing off the big new spell he learned. Grace steps in. Master, stop. He snaps, move, I'm going to finish this kid. But she grabs his hand and tells him to stop. Tunda, confused, why are you acting like this? Didn't you see how disrespectful he was? He called me a puppet. She's still shaken and says she'll explain later, but for now it's better not to escalate things. Then she turns to the protagonist and apologizes on Tunda's behalf. The protagonist goes, whew, nice dealing with someone who catches on fast, knowing it's only this easy because of the insignia. Still, he knows this is risky. If the Empire's people come to his house, they could end up sealing his mana circle. Grace tries to calm down. For now, all she has to do is get this kid to leave peacefully. So she asks what brought him there. The protagonist says it looks like he'll have to negotiate with the maid, and she asks again what he wants. He says, fine. He just moved into his mansion recently and has nothing to eat. He wants them to share a little. She puts a hand to her face and tells them to bring whatever meat and bread is left. Back on his horse, she asks if that's really all. He says that's all for today, but they should get used to seeing him around. Grace stays there furious, saying that cursed Zed Arahan is going to pay for this. Next scene, tables set. The protagonist brings everything to the kids and tells them to light the stove and get it going. Meat, barbecue, everyone's smiling, eating happily. They think it's weird, and the protagonist asks what's so wrong about a big barbecue. Is there some rule that says mages can't do that? Someone explains it's just that usually the only people who eat a lot of meat are knights, since they need physical energy. The protagonist says that makes no sense. Are you going to stop mages from eating meat just because it's not knight culture? The guy answers that knights are barbarians, so anything they do is seen as lowering a mage's status. Zed cuts in. So are you eating or not? The guy says no, then sits down anyway. For God's sake, you all make life so hard. Just eat what you want. Why complicate everything? And listen, from now on, anyone who follows me doesn't need to worry about rules or taboos. In my mansion, I don't care. Do what you want. Eat what you want. As long as your work is done right, you won't be held responsible for that kind of nonsense. They look surprised. In other houses, the mage probably only eats bread. Next day, there's an older guy in an orange shirt hugging a house, saying this is unacceptable. That building was left to him by his father. The protagonist says, I know it's in your name, but the real owner is Master Tunda. Truth is, an Arahan usually doesn't buy things under their own name. So if nobody investigates, you can claim any Arahan property belongs to you. But he knows who it belongs to, and he's going to abuse that. One of the mages slams the table and says if they keep the young master waiting, there will be consequences. They're negotiating with an Arahan. The guy in front of him says, well, I don't have the documents. If Tunda bought it, he should have them. The protagonist drops the documents on the table. I knew you'd say that, so here. Now sign the paper, recognizing me as the owner. If you don't sign, you're going to die here. What the hell? He's intense. The guy asks, wait, if I sign, you guarantee my safety? The protagonist says yes. He always keeps his word, and he swears on the Arahan name. Now hand over the house that belongs to his family. So the guy signs, and the protagonist is thrilled. From now on, he owns the place. Technically, yeah, the Arahan blood really corrupted the kid. Now he's stealing from his own family. The scene switches to the city mayor's office, where the mayor is looking over the sales contract. The protagonist sits there asking if they'll recognize the sale immediately. The mayor says, well, it looks like a legitimate transaction. Once the rest of the funds are paid, there won't be any problem. This is Douglas, the mayor, and just looking at him, you can't tell if he's the biggest scumbag alive or the nicest old man ever. He says that since the guy was using property registered under his family name, it could be classified as theft. Then he adds, young Master Zed is a pretty peculiar kid. The protagonist asks what he means. Douglas explains, no Arahan usually buys anything under their own name, and you probably know why. The protagonist says he knows, but he's not interested. Obviously, they use a front name because then they can run slaves in the house and nobody can pin anything on them. Then someone starts pounding on the door, yelling for people to move. The door swings open. Look who it is. Grace. Using enchantment, Douglas says, Miss Grace, don't you know this is a restricted zone for using mana? But she fires back, asking if the one breaking rules right now isn't the mayor himself. The protagonist plays dumb. What are you talking about, Grace? She tells him to stop lying. That land belongs to Master Tunda. He's stabbing his own family in the back. The protagonist says he has no idea what she's talking about. The registered name is Iran Bit, probably that orange shirt guy, and he transferred it over. She warns him he's making a huge mistake. Is he really ready to deal with what's going to happen because of this? The protagonist says, I didn't make any mistake. Looks like you're the one being way too bold, yelling in here. Do you even realize the situation you're in? But she's fearless, saying that as Tunda's maid, she swears he'll pay for today. The protagonist laughs, saying she loves threatening people, but she should take this as a warning too. Revenge or kindness, whatever they do to him, he'll return it tenfold. And she better not forget, Arathans always do what they say. He stole his brother's house and still threatened them. The kid really is a criminal. But the world belongs to the clever ones. They got themselves a huge mansion. Eddie's even there, got it. So this is going to be my site. Am I working here? The protagonist says, yeah. From now on, you're in charge. Eddie turns to him. I doubted you, but you really handled it easily. You're more ambitious than I thought. Then he hands something to the protagonist, who asks what it is. Eddie explains it's a list of mages living in Sekazone, in Neka. The protagonist doesn't get why he needs that. Eddie says, don't you need a teacher? As far as I know, for an Arathan, the main goal in life is getting as strong as possible. Or you don't like that idea. And as far as I know, you don't have a master. You're not looking for one. That's when the protagonist realizes it's true. He isn't looking for a master. He thanks Eddie, appreciates it. Eddie says he's helping himself too. The stronger the protagonist gets, the safer Eddie is. The only problem is the protagonist doesn't recognize any of the names and asks who Eddie recommends. Eddie immediately says the top pick, Krang Gutra. Oh no, another old guy. Could have been Camila, Alice, Rosanna, could have been Grace 2.0. But the protagonist says he's never heard of him. Eddie explains the Gutra family are famous mercenaries in the East. It's old history, so not many people know. The protagonist finds it strange. A mage working as a mercenary? Eddie says for a mage family without much influence, being a mercenary is one of the best ways to make money. The downside is your public image gets wrecked. From the back, one of the meatheads says he's heard of the Gutras. People say one Gutra is better than an entire mercenary company. Eddie says that's right. They're extremely skilled and expensive. Only the richest nobles can hire them. The protagonist seems interested. A powerful mage who's also a mercenary. Eddie tosses the papers and says, I think you've got a lot to learn from Gutra, because you're not exactly a normal mage either. The mouse eaters say you fought weirdly well for someone who uses magic. The protagonist, a little embarrassed, says maybe he isn't a normal mage. And yeah, this Gutra guy living as a mercenary probably has a lot to teach. Eddie says that to him, that's the only person who'd be the perfect master for the protagonist. He shouldn't even worry about the others. So the protagonist asks, then why'd you write so many names on the page? Eddie's about to explain, but suddenly there's pounding at the door. It's Tunda at his house, furious, ready to kill that kid. How did he steal that building knowing it belonged to him? He yells, Grace, you worthless piece of trash. Why didn't you do anything while he pulled that? Do you have any idea how much money I put into that? She's losing patience, Master Tunda, for the love of God. He demands she explain herself right now. Then she steps closer, telling him to calm down and look deep into her eyes. He looks and suddenly, boom, a big hand goes to his head. His eyes go unfocused, and she tells him to shut up. He apologizes right there. She walks off, sits down, and thinks, how are we going to kill this Zed? You've got a good amount of money saved up, don't you, Master Tunda? why don't you hand it all over to me? And he all slack, yes, Grace, take whatever you want. She says, perfect, problem solved. They'll hire someone really expensive. If they get captured, they can just silence them later with illusion magic. With the money he has, it'll be easy. She pets him, saying he's a cute guy, especially when he's this obedient. I said I didn't want that spell. You can get seduced if you want. I'm out. I'm good. This is extortion with no benefits. He's just handing over all his money. Not even a marriage where the wife takes everything is that brutal. Scene changes to another fancy building in the middle of the city, where a guy welcomes him to the best hotel in the city of Neca, Rivera. Our boy says he's looking for someone, and the guy tells him to come in. But when poor Eddie tries to take a step forward, bam, he gets blocked, and the guy says that unfortunately he only lets nobles in. Eddie tries to argue, but the guy tells him to understand how things work around there. The main guy's like, yeah, looks like you won't be going in, Eddie. Stay here and wait, idiot. Eddie just stands there scratching his head. What a frustrating world. Feels like only nobles count as real people. And the main guy's thinking it's obviously frustrating for him too. So now we're in the hotel lobby. The place is seriously luxurious. There's gold everywhere in this city. I can already tell. Even the main guy is standing there with his mouth open like, damn, look at this flex. Go on, check it. I want to see the list of people staying at this hotel. The woman says, well, I can tell you who's in the regular rooms, but not the suites. She says she'll go get it. And the main guy realizes that even the Arahan name isn't enough in this place. If they're not scared of the Arahans in Neca, that means one of his brothers has to be here. Considering how influential the Arahans are, it's probably the owner, and with how much money is in there, it's gotta be the first or second brother. Then the woman shows a list with the normal guests. And the main guy sees that obviously the person he's looking for isn't on it. Right now he's hunting for this Krang Gutra, and since the guy's a mercenary who made a ton of money, he's probably in a suite. Eddie found out the guy is in this hotel, so it looks like the main guy is gonna have to work to find him. Suddenly he hears someone yelling that the food in this place is horrible. He ordered a Berthazon steak. What is this trash you brought me? On the second floor, the butler apologizes, saying, this steak is Berthazon, so the guest must be mistaken about something. But the bald guy tells him to shut up, saying he's eaten that steak plenty of times. Does the butler think he's an idiot? The main guy notices the one making a scene seems to be bald. And remembering Eddie said the guy is a mage, so he'd be skinny, maybe bald. And this guy is making a huge fuss. There's a chance it's him. He heads up the stairs, listening to the yelling, and then he arrives, sir. The moment the guy turns around, he seems to recognize him. And the old guy says he can feel a disgusting aura. Apparently it's his. The main guy doesn't get it, and the old guy walks past like, damn it. An Arahan first thing in the morning is bad luck. My day's ruined. The main guy is just standing there shocked, thinking, what a crazy old man. He's rude, even by Arahan standards. Or maybe he's someone who hates them. Now we're outside, with Eddie asking if he saw that old man. That's Krang. The main guy says, yeah, he knows. And Eddie tries to explain, like he warned him. Krang has a difficult personality. Eddie says, that's not difficult. That's just a terrible personality. Eddie says he figured it would be hard dealing with him. Looks like there's no choice, so they should go back to the list and look for someone else. Then the main guy mentions Eddie had talked about some 5th or 6th circle mages, and Eddie says, yeah, there are other more normal mages. The problem for the main guy is that he's training hard, eating right, sleeping well, according to him. But his magic attribute is stuck at 5. He needs something to raise that attribute. But he's not the type who can just meditate and suddenly it goes up. Then he takes off running, saying he's going crazy. And yeah, out of nowhere he just bolts. The main guy runs after him, wanting to know more about this Krang, because Eddie says Krang is really mysterious. All Eddie knows is that he's from the Gutra family, and has a tattoo. Maybe that's the key. The main guy asks, oh, so it's that tattoo on his forehead. Eddie explains that yes, the tooth and the claws are the symbols of the Gutra family. Now it makes sense. Eddie ran because he followed the guy and found him somewhere else eating that Berthazan steak. Then the main guy remembers. Torres said he was going to send some top-quality Berthazan steak from the Bao family that could help him get closer to this guy. Watching the old man, he knows he's not a normal mage. And the main guy needs a teacher who isn't normal, so he approaches. Sir? And the old guy slams the table again. Bastard, you came to curse another one of my meals? He turns and asks if the idiot is there to charge him some hotel bill. The main guy is like, for the love of God, it's impossible to talk to this guy. He turns away thinking, forget it. This guy won't work as a master. Then suddenly something comes flying toward him. Both of them notice, and in 1 second, Krang appears and blocks it. 2 daggers hit the floor, and the old man asks what that was. The main guy looks at him. Did you block that by putting mana into your finger? The old man says, watch your mouth, kid. If you saw it, you should have been able to dodge. The main guy says, yeah, I could have dodged, but you stepped in front of me first. And the main guy is even more impressed because it looks like the old man blocked everything without even looking at the daggers. It took like half a second. Then Krang says, kid, don't get it twisted. I only blocked it because if you died next to me, it would cause me trouble. But let's be real, this isn't the time to talk. While the crowd is running, there are 3 assassins coming in and they're clearly not here to play cards. Then Krang looks at him, looks like they're after you. The main guy says, yeah, I already knew that. The old man goes, you know what? Want some help, kid? The main guy says, no, small fry is easy for him to handle. The old man thinks he's pretty confident for an Arahan. Damn it, cut it out with that confidence. If an Arahan dies in front of me and I do nothing, I'm screwed. For now, I'll watch. If the kid's in danger, I'll step in. The assassins speak up and the old man doesn't get involved. Krang steps out of the circle saying, "Move, I'm just watching. I'm not getting involved." The guys are confused. This old man is bold. Then they see the symbol on his forehead and instantly recognize it's the Gutra mark. And instead of killing the main guy, everyone drops to their knees apologizing. Even the main guy is surprised. Like these guys came to kill him and now they're ignoring him, kneeling to the old man. They're all emotional, saying it's an honor to meet the legendary mercenary. But Gutra asks if they seriously call themselves mercenaries. A real mercenary doesn't take assassination jobs. They're just a bunch of filthy little thugs. The guys lower their heads and apologize, saying the job market is rough and they didn't have much choice. They have families to feed. But Krang says those are just excuses. Even mercenaries need a cause and a reason to take a mission. A hired errand boy who does anything for money isn't a mercenary. It's embarrassing. They keep apologizing while the main guy still doesn't understand what's going on. Then Krang says, "Well, at least you're polite. But now that you accepted the mission, you have to finish it." Set is like, "What do you mean? Their mission is to kill me." And the old man explains, finishing the job is the bare minimum for a mercenary. Worse than accepting that mission would be abandoning it. He sits down and says, "Good luck to you, I'm not interfering." Now the guys are fired up again, surrounding the main guy, who's thinking this whole situation feels like a joke. But then it starts. Electrification activated. From far away, the old man looks confused. An Arahan who doesn't use fire magic? That energy is kind of weird. Then in the next moment, who shows up? The trio Kimzera, asking if the main guy is okay. He says he is. Looks like everyone came. Kimzera says they suddenly got a mission to kill the main guy, and that's how they knew he was being hunted. They even laugh. Apparently someone tried to hire their own bandits. Whoever's behind this really hates him. And now he has to figure out who did it. He tells the mercenaries they should know better than anyone, so they're going to talk. Of course they say, not giving up the client's name is the minimum a mercenary can do. The main guy says eventually they'll get beaten so badly they'll end up talking. He tells Kimzera to go in and they obey, straight into a brawl. But a golden aura pushes the three of them back, and that's when Krang steps in, saying the juniors shouldn't die in such a stupid way. The main guy asks if Krang is going to get involved in the fight. The old man says it doesn't matter how much the kid tortures them, they won't tell. The main guy says it doesn't matter, he'll find out on his own. But Krang says, "You're not getting it. They're under an illusion spell. Until that spell is broken, their minds and mouths can't even pronounce the words. And the fact you can't detect something that low level shows you've got a lot to learn." The main guy says he could just break the block and get what he wants. Krang tells him to stop and says it'd be better to make a deal. The main guy asks what deal, and Krang explains, "I'm curious about that energy of yours and what your real ability is. So if you beat me one-on-one, I'll grant your wish. Not that you can actually defeat me, because that would be impossible. So let's do this. If you manage to scratch me, you win. How about it?" The main guy asks if he can change the wish if he wants, and the old man says yes, so deal or not. Zed smiles and says fine, he's in. It's the perfect moment to prove to himself whether this guy deserves to be his master. The old man shifts his foot and whoosh, in a second he's right in front of him, asking if this place isn't too crowded. Better to find another area. Suddenly, before the main guy can say anything, they vanish and reappear in the middle of some walls. The old man asks if that was the kid's first teleport. He doesn't need to worry, they're right next to the city. The old man came because he was kind of bored. "Now go on, Arahan, show me what you can do." They stare at each other in silence, and then the main guy says that as far as he knows, only 7th circle mages or higher can teleport. Was Mr. Krang at that level? The old man says being obsessed with rank is weak-minded. Anyone strong enough knows how meaningless those measurements are. The main guy just got put in his place. He asks if there's something more important than rank. The old man says kids need to understand that in a real fight, rank decides absolutely nothing. There are countless other factors. Experience in life or death situations, instincts, how your body reacts, things like that. The main guy thinks the old man is right. The young knights in the army and the people from Bahal all had circles above his. When you think about it, circle's basically a total power rating, not a measure of combat strength. He's genuinely excited. Krang thinks pretty similarly. He's the first person in this world who, like him, doesn't think rank matters that much. The old man's like, "Why are you looking at me like that? You don't agree? You'd better learn fast that this is just a basic belief people use to make it easier to understand themselves and others." The main guy says no. Actually, he agrees with Krang 100%. He trusts experience way more than anything else, especially what he's gained fighting other opponents. The old man goes, "Opponents, huh? Kid at your age." But then the main guy snaps into a boxing stance and says he'll prove he's not lying. Electricity spreads across the ground, tearing it up, and Krang says that attribute really is strong. No wonder they call it the dream attribute. The main guy threatens him, saying the old man better go all out, because he doesn't want any excuses afterward. And the main guy already knows the plan, same as always. Everyone assumes the mage will keep distance, but the moment the guy drops his guard, he'll rush in out of nowhere. The old man laughs and says, "Don't worry, a lion goes all out even when hunting a rabbit." Then, boom, the main guy charges at full speed, saying, "It better be true. Let's see then." He's coming in thinking it'll be easy. The old man is within arm's reach, but the old man is smiling. The main guy throws a punch. Looks like the old man threw one too, or hit some kind of barrier. It's hard to tell. The main guy jerks his gaze upward, forced to retreat, with 3 explosions going off in front of him. So it really was a wind barrier, with 3 blasts launched into the ground, and the old man says his instincts aren't bad. If he'd hesitated for even a second, he would have ended up skewered. And the main guy is thinking that yeah, if his backward jump had been even 0.1 seconds slower, he would have been pinned. The bastard said he was going all out, and he really is going all out, and the worst part is, just like the protagonist, it doesn't look like he used any enchantments. The old man looks like he read his mind and goes, "Kid, the more you use something, the more you get used to it. And once you've used it long enough, you can use it whenever you want. Also, I can tell you're using electricity's explosiveness to boost your speed. That's a smarter strategy than you look like you're capable of." Absolutely roasted him. The protagonist fires back that Krang doesn't seem all that surprised. And Krang goes, "Huh? You think I'm surprised because you punched me? That's expected, kid. Just look at your body posture. I've never seen anyone fight with their hands up like that, but it's pretty obvious it's for close-range combat." Yeah, protagonist got caught. He should have kept his hands down holding the staff. That would have been smart. You run in with the staff like an idiot, and when you get face-to-face, bam, you drop it. The protagonist asks how that's even possible, and the guy says it's obvious. He's guarding his chin with one hand and his solar plexus with the other, plus one leg back, ready to kick at any moment. That's not a stance a mage would take. The protagonist realizes, damn, this old bastard figured out my whole plan and I didn't even do anything. And the old man goes, "Well, if that's all you've got, I'm disappointed." He literally sits down. "Go on, show me what you can do." This guy's acting like he's Rasoka at the end of the hallway. Meanwhile, the protagonist is furious. "This asshole is humiliating me. I've got to be careful with how sharp his eyes are, so he doesn't notice what I'm trying to do. So for now, I'll try to distract him and create an opening." So the protagonist starts circling around him, moving fast, and the old man goes, "Hey kid, you trying to make an old man dizzy?" While Zed's thinking this might be his last chance, that he has to be careful, the old man is just stretching and yawning, and the kid's boiling. This bastard is doing it just to provoke him. He almost fell for the trap. Krang, arms up, says the kid held back pretty well. "But where's that courage you had?" And that's when the protagonist finally snaps. He explodes into a storm of lightning. Coming in from behind, he activates the Tenacious Challenger trait. "Alright kid, going for a slap? All stats plus 10. He makes contact with the old man's back and thinks it worked, but it was a clone. The old man vanishes, and the protagonist only hears his voice saying the kid is a damn brat. And also stupid, so focused on his own moves that he didn't even consider what Krang would do. And that's when the protagonist sees it. Where he just rushed in was a magic circle, and now he's completely wrapped up in chains. Poor guy turned into a steel mummy. The old man appears walking up, saying, "Ah, landed right in the middle, didn't you, kid? Now admit you lost, and I'll let you stay alive." Inside, Zed realizes he can't breathe. He never imagined the gap between them was this huge. And the old man keeps going, "Come on, kid, stop being stubborn and give up before you die in there." The protagonist panics, thinking about how to get out, until Tenacious Challenger deactivates. And seeing the word Challenger, he remembers why he came to this world in the first place. Back there, he was living the life he always wanted, people way stronger than him. A place full of strong people, where he's the challenger, not the one above everyone else, unbeatable. So why is he giving up? The old man himself said a lion gives everything it has, even when hunting a rabbit. From the start, he'd been looking at this fight the wrong way. Believing you have a 50% chance already proves you're not a challenger. Victory only becomes possible when you believe in yourself until the very last moment. So he reactivates Tenacious Challenger, stats plus 10 again, and at the same time activates that electric attack from before. Krang sees lightning wrapping around the chains and asks if the kid is really going to try something, and then suddenly the lightning barrage breaks over the chains and shoots straight at the old man, actually catching him off guard. No, actually he pulled it down from the sky and electrified the chains themselves. The kid just unlocked a new skill. The old man asks if the kid has lost his mind. He must be planning to die, burning through his energy in there with no oxygen. But the protagonist isn't dropping one thunderbolt. He's dropping a whole sequence. 3, 4, 5 non-stop. They keep slamming into the chains, which start turning kind of red, cracking, heating up like he might actually break them. The old man says the bastard really is tenacious. As the protagonist starts freeing himself, he says that today he's going to win, and he's going to make Krang his master. The old man immediately goes, "Master? You think I'm going to train an Arahan bastard kid? Like I'm going to waste the best years I've got left doing something that's stupid. I'd rather die." But the protagonist says the old man's screwed because he's going to win. And Krang goes, "Kid, you talk like a lunatic. You really think you're going to win when you couldn't even touch my clothes? Enough games. Now that I know what you're trying to do, I'm going to end you with even more intent." The protagonist says it doesn't matter. If he loses, Krang still has to obey. That was the deal. He drops back into a fighting stance again, and Krang calls him arrogant. Then Krang starts conjuring a white energy in his hand and warns, "Arahan, if you come at me one more time, you'll die." The protagonist tells him to do it, because if he doesn't kill him, he won't stop. The old man's eyes go wide and he says the kid really isn't right in the head. He throws the magic upward, and suddenly a gigantic sword appears coming down toward the protagonist from above. Damn, an 8th circle spell, Spear of Judgment. The protagonist recognizes it as the kind of power that makes tons of people dream of becoming a mage one day. Then he says it's incredible. The old man managed to hide that spell even if it was 8th circle. The old man looks confused and asks how he knows that, and then he says, "Unfortunately, the kid has to die here." I don't know if the protagonist is terrified or trying to keep up his aura, but he's like, that just makes me more determined not to give up. He knows there's no way to survive if that spear hits you. But it's exactly in that moment when survival isn't possible that his opportunity exists. The spear gets launched and looks like it's about to slam into his chest, while Krang says, there are times when people need to know when to retreat. The spear seems to hit the protagonist dead center in the chest, but he has the tenacious skill. The whole place lights up. Krang doesn't understand. The protagonist closes in, and before Krang can even process it, it's already I can't even tell what's happening. The old man's on one side, the protagonist on the other. He grabbed Krang's arm. What is going on? He slams the old man to the ground. I'm completely lost. And the old man is like, how the hell did that happen? He says he's lived a long time, but it's the first time he's ever been defeated by a child. It's honestly humiliating, especially at this stage of his life. He shoves the kid's hand away, saying, what a mess, my clothes are totally ruined now. 7 years ago, I quit that filthy mercenary life and thought I didn't have any goals left. But what was that mysterious ability that nullified mine? And what kind of weird kid throws himself in with the intention of winning? That idiot Jenny must be losing his mind for throwing this kid into a detention camp. And to think people say he only recently unlocked his mana and he's already this strong. Probably in a few years he'd have a shot at taking over the empire. Maybe he'd become as dangerous as Temuji himself. If someone at that level really appears, the whole empire will be shaken. And obviously if I help this kid, that possibility isn't zero anymore. He kicks the protagonist. Come on kid, wake up. That's enough, you've slept long enough. Every second of life is precious. He puts a hand on him. This kid's human circuit should be completely wrecked. But then he gets confused. Wait, this kid doesn't have a mana circle? How is that possible? He's got an electric attribute, high quality mana, but his circle hasn't even properly formed yet. And then suddenly the old man feels something weird. He knows someone is watching him, which should be impossible since he's supposed to be the only one there. It was probably his spear spell drawing too much attention. Damn, it's the Kimzera trio, calling the protagonist and running over. They show up like, hey, you old bastard. What did you do to the kid? Krang tells them to shut up and back off if they don't want to die too. The Kimzera are about to start cussing him out when shadows begin to appear. Right away, one of them asks if he's Krang Gutra. Krang says, well, if you know who I am, you must be high-ranking too. The guy introduces himself. Captain of the Black Mirror, Robin. It's an honor to meet the hero of the Great Demonic War. Our job here is to keep an eye on the boy Zed's body, so we'll need to take a look. Krang isn't having it, and says if they want to try, they can. Robin says the boy is the son of an Arahan, so is Krang. Against the Arahans or something. The stubborn old man suddenly changes his tune. I'm never letting you take my disciple. He might be unconscious, but don't get in my way. Robin and the others move in, confused. Disciple? What are you talking about? While Krang tells them to get lost, even Robin knows this old man is way beyond what the Black Mirror can handle. At minimum, they'd have to call the leader of the Meridians, Callus. Robin asks the old man to cooperate, basically let me check the kid's condition and I'll leave. No big deal. The old man goes, no, you won't. Robin warns him, you old bastard. Even you won't survive Arahan's fury. Everyone knows you're content living as a recluse, so what are you doing? The old man says he found a new purpose for his final years, and they're the ones interfering. He keeps releasing aura power while the others tell the captain it's not going to work. They already got a message, the family leader ordered them to retreat, and Krang says it's good they're retreating. Unless the leader wants to come personally, they can't solve this. But the messenger adds that the leader also said to make one thing clear, today's interference will be paid back. Krang tells him to get lost already, stop running your mouth, or next time he'll tear everyone apart. So they disappear, telling him to always remember, the Aurapans keep their word. You never know when, but the old man should know the day will come. Yeah, old man, unfortunately, the Aurapans really do keep their word. Watching everyone vanish, Krang thinks he's too old to be challenging people like this. The price will be high. In theory, a man's final years should be peaceful. Either way, they know Aurapan isn't dead. That's the only reason they backed off for now and why Krang was spared. But this kid is unlucky. Out of all the families he could have been born into, it had to be that one. His life would be so much easier if it weren't for that eye. A house full of rivalry. But on the other hand, maybe that's better too. Krang just has to make sure the kid doesn't become a monster, because what he's carrying is already heavy enough. Scene switches to Eddie's hideout. The kid wakes up confused, sits up, asking where he is. Nearby, the Kimzera are running around, and the old man says the kid really is young. He looks like a child, all he does is sleep. The chicken trio is all happy he got up, while the protagonist doesn't understand what happened. They say the old man claims he's Zed's master. The protagonist thinks, then remembers he won. Then he notices there are people kneeling off to the side and asks what that is. It's the mercenaries who were sent to kill him, and it looks like Krang is about to ask who sent them. The protagonist is confused. Wait, Krang, you said you wouldn't interfere? And the old man goes, oh, did I? Don't remember. Guess I'm getting old. Yeah, easy for you to say, you bastard. The kid pulls up a chair, sits face to face with the guy and says, come on, I know. It was Grace, the servant working for Tunda, who sent you, wasn't it? The guy goes, huh? What? No. But just from the reaction, the kid already knows. He says, I'm not going to punish you. The guy says, all right, but you're going to let us go? The kid says, sure, on one condition. Tell Krang the circumstances were bad and the mission ended up failing. The guy asks, hold on, are you asking us to be double agents? And the protagonist says, at least he's smart. When he gets the next order, he's supposed to come warn him. Until then, he's to keep working under Grace. Understood? They go, understood. The protagonist knows it's too early to take Grace out. But the moment he defeats her, that's when he'll absorb all the influence and power Tunda has. He sends the guys away, telling them to get moving already. But he knows even these guys could betray him at any moment. Still, they'd have to be complete idiots to go against Krang just to side with Grace. All of a sudden, one of the Kimzera comes over saying Ryu sent a message. That guy's one of the employees the protagonist took in, so it's family business. And the protagonist finds out the mausoleum ceremony is going to start next month, and it'd be best if he's fully prepared. The protagonist's like, mausoleum ceremony? And the Kimzera says he heard it's some kind of recognition ritual. On top of that, he's going to meet the head of the family before leaving. The protagonist knows that ceremony is when you get recognized as pureblood family, plus the right to be considered a future heir. He thinks it's weird. Wait, I'm not even 20 yet, who's going to this, me and Tunda? The guy says it looks like, yeah. The protagonist finds it suspicious. The head of the family is planning something. And honestly, becoming a possible heir has some upsides, but a lot of downsides too. The good part, you can travel across the empire and act as a member of the family, with the Arahan's influence behind you. The bad part, just like Torres, you can start getting missions from your family to handle. And that's when sibling sabotage and all the scheming starts. Also, failing any mission brands you as incompetent. And the incompetent one always loses the chance to inherit the throne and any kind of favor or support from the family. Anyway, it's at the start of next month, so he's got about 10 days. The old man asks, "Hey kid, you're gonna be busy, huh? Want to push our training back?" Zed says, "Unfortunately, getting ready for this mausoleum thing is gonna drain a lot of energy. So yeah." Then Krang says, "Alright boy, I promised I'd teach you, but there's still a condition. You'll have to pay me 100 gold coins a month. Only then will I let you call me master." The protagonist is confused. Like, I heard you're filthy rich, you bastard. After those 2 days pass, we're back at Eddie's hideout, where one of the guys who'd been sent to report the failure to Grace had 5 of his men sliced up. They begged for more time and all that, but there was no chance. Zed apologizes while the guy says no, it's not his fault. Dutra was right. Tunda never valued them. Now they want revenge on Tunda. These mercenaries are crying their eyes out. I've never seen a world where villains care about their friends this much. Every villain in this story seems more loyal than the protagonist and his family. And out of nowhere, the protagonist starts making a vow. He puts a hand on the guy's shoulder. "I swear to you, Grace is going to die by your hands. No, she's the only woman in the whole story. Don't kill her. Actually, kill her. Sure, I don't care." The ugly-faced guy thanks him, slams his head to the floor while the protagonist wants to know what Tunda's real strength is. Eddie starts talking about some buildings he owns in the city, a certain smart group, stuff like that. They disguise themselves as an exchange company, but they're really just there to gather information from the entire city. So the protagonist tells Eddie and Kimzera they've got work to do. And Jatma's mercenary company is going to be part of it too. Everyone's going to help each other and keep each other safe. He tells the mercenaries to stay in Eddie's building for now. Don't worry about money. The poor guy goes, "Thanks, Zed, you're really kind," which makes absolutely no sense. But then the guy warns him, "Zed, you should be careful. That woman's got eyes that aren't human." He asks if he means Grace, and he says yes. That woman has something in her gaze that makes it obvious she's going to cause a disaster at any moment. The protagonist just stands there, staring, totally still. Time passes, and Krang asks if the mausoleum test is tomorrow. "Yes, master," the kid says, completely obedient. He's been preparing for it, and time flew by. The item he asked Laketoa to forge is finally done, and he's been keeping an eye on Grace's movements the whole time. He knows she's ready to cause trouble tomorrow too. Then the old man asks what he thinks of this hideout. "You can see the whole city of Nekka from here." But the protagonist says, "Come on, old man, you didn't bring me here just to look at the moon, did you?" The old guy laughs, he already knows. Suddenly there are a bunch of eggs there with markings, some knives, and little balls on a table. The kid says the guy's prepared, and the old man says of course he is. When he decides to do something, he does it perfectly. That's why the boy has to be ready, because when he comes back from the mausoleum, things are going to get serious. Zed says that's exactly what he wants. Krang says he's an arrogant brat. "Alright, go on, break that golden ball there." The protagonist goes, "Wait, you want me using lightning power here? This place will get exposed." The old man says, "No, you idiot, break it with your hand." So the kid turns off the power and says, "Fine." Staring at the item, he still turns on the electrification in his body. By the size, it looks easy to break, but he's sure it's a mana stone that requires at least the first circle, which should be impossible for him. The old man tells him to hurry up. The protagonist obeys, throws a punch, and manages to break it. He tells the kid to break the next one. The protagonist goes over and bam, smashes it and cracks it in half. He goes, "Hold on, this should be impossible. This is a stone that only breaks for someone with 2 circles. Krang explains, "Everyone who has mana has circles in their heart, and the stronger you are, the more circles." But the kid still hasn't formed even one, only half of one. The protagonist figures maybe he can break it because his strength stat is at 100. Maybe 10 points equals 1 circle in terms of physical strength. And since his mana is 5, he's got half a circle. Exactly what the old man says. When you release mana, the first circle forms. You know what that means? The protagonist says no, and the old man says he's hopeless. Not even a full half circle. The kid's underdeveloped. But at the same time, it's funny, how is someone with half a circle breaking a stone that needs 2? He smacks the kid on the head, telling him to explain himself. The protagonist doesn't get it. The old man says, "For the love of God, imagine if you become a 10th circle mage. Your 10th circle will be way more powerful than anyone else's 10th circle." The protagonist still doesn't understand, and the old man says, "Kid, you're a genius. You might even surpass Temuji." Temuji Arahan is the character considered the beginning of the whole story in the game Last Saver. He's so overpowered that the game's story actually starts after the guy dies. A man more powerful than the Emperor himself, the strongest being in history. And he died mysteriously, with no answers all the way to the end of the game. The protagonist asks if that's possible, and the old man says yes. Everyone knows that guy is an untouchable existence in the Empire's history, and he believes the protagonist can reach that level. Now the protagonist is confused and says, hold up, do you really think I'm that rare? And while he thinks maybe it makes sense, he really is strong for someone with only 5 mana. Maybe it's because of that trait, the S-rank Archmage's Blessing. Like he expected, it's the kind of passive attribute that's always active, and it's probably what makes his 0.5 mana so powerful. The protagonist finds it weird, because Poison Immunity and Immortal Gambler are things he got in the game. Challenger, Tenacious, and Champion Soul are things that synced with what he did in real life. The more he thinks about this Archmage Blessing, the less it fits him. Krang tells him to snap out of it and stop daydreaming while his master is talking. Then he says, alright, get out of here, and for the love of God, do this properly tomorrow. The kid thanks him for all the advice, while the old man says things haven't even started yet. He'd better get ready for what they're going to do. But then the protagonist's expression changes. He calls to the old man and asks if he's free tomorrow. Next day, face-to-face with Arahan Castle, the Joker is on the throne and Tunda is shaking. And now, obviously, Grace's illusion isn't affecting him. The protagonist realizes she wouldn't be so bold either. The father asks, do you know what the mausoleum ceremony is? The protagonist says it's the certification that an Arahan has pure blood. And Tunda, trembling, that's it, that's right. Then the father says, Thunda, shut up. You're pathetic. I wasn't asking you. The guy apologizes. Honestly, I'd want to kill the whole world too, if I got treated like that. The protagonist realizes it's better to get this over with fast. The father tells him to answer what you gain when you pass the ceremony. The kid says he earns the right to be an heir and to wear the Arahan cloak, a supreme magical item. It never burns, blocks any kind of blade, even arrows. More important than being an heir was getting that cloak. The father says the Arahan cloak is an inheritance passed down since Tumuji's time. Carrying one means being a true Arahan, and that's why no guards can be taken to the mausoleum. They must prove with their own strength that they deserve to wear it. And from today on, they'll be judged by the same ideals as the brothers. The protagonist gets it. Now he can't say, I'm a kid, I messed up. That won't work anymore. He says he'll keep it in mind. The father says the day will be hard so they can leave. The protagonist stands up and only sees Thundel there, shaking like crazy. The father notices while watching, Zed doesn't even see Thundel as competition. It really was impressive. Callus appears from the shadows. This guy shows up out of nowhere all the time, saying Grace Bonnet's movements were detected and asking for orders. He says not to send anyone from the Black Mirror Guard. He wants to see how the youngest handles it. Callus says it's too risky. That would make it so the youngest won't come back alive. Looks like he doesn't care about the kid. The father says he'll find out. Maybe if he doesn't survive today, he never cared in the first place. Callus says fine, then he'll follow orders. Outside, some men approach Zed. One introduces himself as Michael Caden, captain of the guard and today's escort. He's there to serve the young master. The protagonist notices right away, these guys can barely use mana properly. At best, they're good for dealing with random mercenaries or small-time bandits. But yeah, nice to meet you. I'm Zed Arahan. I'm in your care. Meanwhile, Thunda is lying on Grace's cushions and says, Grace, I'm scared. She says, oh my dear Thunda, it's okay. The protagonist just sighs and says, so are we going or not, big head? You see everyone waiting, grab his arm and let's go. Move it, we've got to keep going. Grace goes, what are you doing? The protagonist says, you don't see everyone waiting for you too? Enough crying, let's go. But Grace pulls him back and says, everyone already knows they're waiting, now stop acting like this in front of everyone, it's embarrassing. The protagonist is confused and says, these people work for the Arahans, and the real embarrassment is you complaining like this, let's go. Then he turns and warns them they don't have time to waste. Grace is furious in the background, thinking this bastard is going to keep acting like that. But fine, soon he'll be the one begging for forgiveness. Scene changes to Mount Treman. Beautiful place, no desolate. And Thunda is trailing behind the exhausted army, asking how anyone is supposed to climb something like this. Then he says, Grace, you idiot, you should have brought a carriage. You really think I'm climbing all this? The protagonist is up ahead, confused. Why is he talking like climbing this is a big deal? Anyway, weirdly, everyone is exhausted. So fine, they rest. Everyone sits down and someone asks if the protagonist is okay. He says, yeah, this is nothing. Caden comments that he's impressive. Even he's getting tired and he didn't expect a mage to have this much stamina. Even Master Hondo wasn't that resilient. The protagonist recognizes the name Hondo. Sounds familiar. Hondo Arahan, the oldest son of the Arahan family and also one of the game's characters. Technically, he's the protagonist's rival, and right now he should be around 21. Then he calls to the captain and tells them to keep moving. Resting too much makes the body lazy, and it'll be even worse. But of course Grace is in the back. What are you doing? My young boy isn't ready yet. Everyone's thinking, so what do we do? And Caden says he'll keep an eye on things to make sure they'll be fine. But the young master can go on ahead. The protagonist realizes it. This kid is making life harder for everyone. Time passes and the protagonist working up a bit of a sweat. But he's even humming and whistling, thinking that whole thing actually recharged him. They've walked a long way, and it looks like the kid finally stopped complaining. Then he notices Thunda is being carried on Caden's back. He rushes over, grabs Thunda, and pulls him off, saying that if he can't even help, then at least don't hold everyone back. How hard is that? Thunda snaps at Zed to get his hands off him, saying Caden offered to carry him. The protagonist shoots back that of course he offered, because Thunda keeps whining like a little kid. Thunda slaps the protagonist's hand away and asks who he thinks he is, acting like he gets to decide whether Thunda gets carried or not. The protagonist warns him that from now on, anyone who carries Thunda will be punished. Climbing the mountain to the mausoleum is part of the ceremony, and anyone who interferes won't get off easy. And on top of that, they're marching forward right now. Anyone who falls behind can stay behind. Then he takes off again in a run. They reach the mountain peak, and the soldiers are sprawled on the ground, exhausted. The rest of the group comes in from behind, and the protagonist notices Ryu is there too. He didn't even know the guy was coming along. There's a woman there. He's kind of thrown off because he doesn't even know who this gray-haired woman is, saying Thunda, Grace, and the captain still haven't arrived. The sun's about to set, and they can't keep waiting. The protagonist scratches his chin and says, well, he guesses he'll start his certification first. The woman points out that Master Thunda is the 6th son and the youngest, so technically Thunda should go first. The protagonist asks if there's any rule about order. As far as he knows, whoever arrives first goes first. The woman, a little awkwardly, admits that's true. Then he asks if it's the butler's first time watching this ceremony, and she says yes. The protagonist comments that there's no rule saying he has to wait for Thunda, so he's going. Now they're standing in front of the Arahan mausoleum. She tells him to go in. There's a large altar inside. Mana is forbidden, and he can't touch anything except the altar. The protagonist, thinking that now that he's right in front of it, he's starting to get nervous. He takes a step forward, reaches his hand out, and starts to cross in, and it's strangely warm. Then he jolts in surprise. The Arahan's mausoleum is connected to another dimension. He's standing in this empty void when the butler appears again, saying only those with Arahan blood, and she's the only exception, can enter. The altar straight ahead is where he'll receive the pureblood certification. He walks up and places his hand on it, but he's confused. What if it gets revealed that he isn't really Zed Arahan? This is Temuji's own mausoleum, so it's possible Temuji would know that this body has a soul from another dimension. What happens if he goes through with this? Hand on his face, he thinks it through. Either way, the blood and the body are Arahan. The butler produces a knife. He has to cut his palm and let the blood drip onto the altar. After authentication, he'll receive the family cloak and emblem. He hesitates, and she asks what the problem is. Did something go wrong? He says no, and she tells him not to be afraid. The wound will regenerate right after authentication. But he says that's not it. He asks whether there's ever been a case where authentication didn't work. She asks what he means. He says he's just curious. Can authentication fail? She says she doesn't know, but if it succeeds, the altar will shine with light. It's simple. He answers that it's only simple if it works. If it fails for him, it won't be simple at all. If authentication fails, he'll have to find his father. But he's already too far in. There's no backing out now, so whatever, he'll see what happens. He takes the knife and makes the cut, and that's when he notices something weird. There's absolutely no pain. The butler has her eyes closed, and he realizes he doesn't have a choice. He slaps his hand onto the tomb. He has things to deal with, so let's get this over with. Suddenly, the blood starts spreading, and something says that he, the one who received the call, has finally arrived. The protagonist yanks his hand back, startled, and the butler snaps, "Put your hand back, kid. You can only remove it when the authentication is complete." He says he heard something, and she tells him to keep his hand there until it's done. He realizes she didn't hear whatever it was, but it looks like he has no choice. He puts his hand back. Now the voice says it's been waiting for him for a long time. The protagonist wonders how he's supposed to communicate with it, maybe directly through his mind. And then the voice says it was the one that invited him from the very beginning of this world. The protagonist doesn't get it. What does it mean, invited him from the beginning of the world? What is it talking about? He asks if the voice belongs to Temuji Arahan, and it answers yes. The protagonist is shocked it really is him. He asks if Temuji is the one who called him, and why him out of everyone. The voice says it was looking for someone obsessed with strength, and at the same time free of temptation or corruption. Zed still doesn't understand why he's there. Temuji explains that it's not time for him to have that answer. The stronger he becomes, the more he'll feel Temuji's presence. The protagonist insists he has to at least give a hint, the reason, the why. But the voice only tells him that since he answered the call, he should know Temuji will always be with him. That sounds like a threat, like the devil's inside the kid. But then, all of a sudden, the altar flashes with light. The butler looks startled that the light is golden. The protagonist steps back and she says something is strange. The light was supposed to be red. He asks if it's finished or not, and she says she can't tell. Why was the color different? The protagonist says, well, my brothers all have that fire aura, right? Since I've got lightning power, maybe that's why. Either way, the stone lit up, so we're done here. The woman says, I think so. Obviously, the protagonist wants out of there as fast as possible. If people find out Temuji's soul is inside this body, they'll want him dead. The butler says the pureblood authentication is complete, now you'll receive the cloak and the emblem. The kid puts it on with style, and she announces that from today on, Zed Arahan is the 7th heir. At that moment, the kid's sitting at -30 in his attributes. Everything's S-rank, nice and pretty. But the protagonist is disappointed. Nothing changed after that conversation. Then he wonders, where's that pathetic jerk? Still hasn't shown up. Oh, he's waiting for Thunda. And speaking of him, there he is, arriving with Grace, yelling at people to get their hands off him, calling them disgusting. The protagonist starts in too. Hey Thunda, if you came here to cause trouble, just get it over with and finish the ceremony so everyone can go home. Thunda sees the cloak and asks, hold on, you did the test before me? The protagonist says, you thought I was going to wait for you? Thunda says, of course, I'm the 6th brother. I was supposed to go first. Zed tells him he should have climbed faster. Now go do your authentication so everyone can leave. Thunda tries to pick a fight with the butler, saying she did something wrong. How could she let the youngest do authentication first? She apologizes, saying she's only conducting things according to the rules. He doesn't need to worry. She'll report everything that happened today to the head of the family without leaving out a single detail. Thunda looks alarmed and says he actually wants to apologize. And also, there's no need to tell the head of the family everything, right? The woman loses patience and tells him, for the love of God, just go inside already. The temperature's going to drop even more. Everyone needs to leave. In the background, Caden watches. Then he calls the protagonist over and says he has something to tell him. Off to the side, he says he's been feeling a strange presence in the middle of the mountain. But the Triman region is supposed to be deserted. And what he doesn't like is the way Grace has been acting. She didn't react at all when he felt that presence. There's no way a sixth circle witch like her wouldn't notice. Which means she's pretending she didn't. The protagonist says, so you're saying she's got a reason for it? Caden says yes. The protagonist says, if that's the case, then there's nothing to worry about. Caden is confused. Excuse me, sir. I don't know if you realize this, but Grace can be dangerous, especially with the conflict between you and Thunda. The protagonist smiles and Caden immediately realizes it. Wait, he already knew? The protagonist says yes, and he was about to tell the captain. They're probably going to get ambushed on the way back, so everyone needs to be ready. Then the protagonist hands Caden some metal spikes, saying they're used to create a barrier. There are 4, set them in a square, and inside that area will be the shadowless protection barrier. It prevents any mana from being used inside it. In theory, it's bad against a mage, but if you're fighting a mage stronger than you, it turns it into a physical fight, which is a lot better than getting blown up. He tells Caden it's meant to be planted in the ground, so as soon as the fight starts, he needs to set it up. He's got this feeling there could be a twist where Caden is actually an enemy, and this is a trap like a double reversal. The scene shifts to Ryu, coughing because it's freezing. The atmosphere up there is weird. That woman has an aura that's way stronger than normal. Could she be the girl who wants to kill Zed? Grace asks what he's staring at. He says it's nothing, and she turns away again. Ryu is anxious. He hopes all the preparations worked. Then suddenly he looks up and Grace is gone. He immediately thinks the ambush is starting. He considers warning Zed, but an arrow flies in and hits the guy next to him in the shoulder. Everyone shouts that it's an ambush. Draw your swords. Ryu runs forward, calling for the protagonist. Where's Zed? A bright flash comes flying toward him like it's about to hit him square in the back, but the protagonist shows up and shoves him aside, dodging it. Ryu's shaken, saying he thought he was going to die and begging Zed to stop disappearing. The protagonist is already moving, saying he has things to handle, so Ryu should stop wasting time. Then he sees a bunch of men in front of him, all under the effect of a strengthening spell. The problem is, these guys clearly aren't just bandits. There's a mage supporting them. The weaker soldiers rush the attackers on the outside and get beaten down hard. The protagonist just stands there watching as 2 of them charge him. Ryu knows a strengthening spell needs at least 6 circles, so someone strong is backing them. Maybe another noble house interfered. Just like Zed said. The 2 come in. The protagonist slips the first guy's slash and drives a punch up into his chin. The other swings a mace and sends it flying toward the protagonist's face, but he dodges again, dips low, and cracks the guy across the cheek, leaving it bruised and purple. The bad part is 3 more are coming. The good part is Zed is smiling, totally calm. They think it'll be easy, until one gets his chin smashed in, another gets crushed in the chest, and the last one goes down so fast it's hard to even tell what happened. A maid comments that Zed is strangely strong, and the girl beside her tells her not to call him Zed. He's the 7th heir of the Arahans now. Not long after, there's a line of bodies on the ground and everyone's exhausted. His allies ask Zed where he learned that kind of martial power, but he tells everyone to be quiet. The next ambush is the real fight, so they need to fall back. Since it's going to involve mages, everyone should leave and go around the other way. They protest, how can they retreat now? They have to fight at his side. But the protagonist explains he's going to have to go all out, and he won't have the chance to protect them. The friend says if the heir decided, then they'll obey. Some still want to argue, but the captain tells them they need to understand. At the end of the day, they'll just create more casualties and get in Zed's way. This guy is way beyond someone they can even think about protecting. So that's it. Leave. They turn back while the protagonist continues down the mountain. He can't feel any mage presence, but something is getting closer, and he's on guard. He's already activated his body electrification. At the base of the mountain, everything starts shaking, and suddenly something appears that looks like a water horse, a 6th level spell. Everything's getting wrecked. Flash floods everywhere, rushing straight at the protagonist. That's when he realizes it was an area attack. He looks back and knows the problem is those guys back there could end up getting hurt by it. He didn't want that, but he orders the captain to activate the thing already, and then all the stakes get driven into the ground. The huge water magic hits, but in the end it just looks like it rained. The protagonist, though, is up in the air, flying there, completely stunned that the mountain got reduced to that level. The range on that special move was insane. The good part is everyone's safe. What really shocks him is how bold those guys are. They're destroying the mountain where the Arahan mausoleum is. If it gets found out who did this, the price is going to be brutal. And then the protagonist realizes it. They used high-scale magic because he wasn't the only target. Even little Grace was starving there. She's saying those bastards are acting different from what they promised. Looks like they're trying to kill everyone. So the protagonist turns to her and says, "Ah, now I get it. I thought you were smart, but you're actually stupid." And he explains, if she stayed alive, she'd be the only person who knew about the deal. Of course they were going to kill her. Grace says she doesn't know what he's talking about, and the protagonist says she's really going to play dumb to the very end. If they're already killing him and Arahan, killing one more person to cover everything up was the best option. Suddenly a blue boot appears and a red-haired guy shows up, wanting to know how that got blocked. What is this? Are they training? Grace recognizes him and asks how that bastard can betray his own sister like that. It's Rooker Monet from the Billy family, and he goes, "Hey sis, since when do we care about that connection? We've been completely separate since the day you joined the Arahan family." She says it makes no sense. She joined the Arahan family to destroy them. But Rooker says that's enough. This conversation won't last. He's just gonna kill them both right here and be done with it. Please don't hate me too much. But before he can keep going, a golden bolt almost hits him. The protagonist is moving like he's speed. Rooker looks and says it's an interesting power, too bad it's at such a pathetic level that it's a waste of energy. The protagonist says it's a shame, but that woman isn't dying here today. Robber asks, "You know you're already dead. What's a kid like you going to do by yourself?" The protagonist laughs and says that lightning that looked weak was actually just a signal to call someone specific. Robber's sure he's trying to call the Black Mirror Squad. The protagonist tells him he should be nervous because what's coming is way worse. But they stand there and nobody shows up. The protagonist is furious. That damn old man. I knew I shouldn't have trusted him. And Robber goes, "Interesting. That was a good bluff, but it's not worthy of an Arahan." The protagonist is confused, so the Gatra family doesn't keep promises. Punctuality should matter to a mercenary. His disciple is fighting for his life here. What is he doing? Robber says he's done wasting time, forms a crystal and fires it at him. But suddenly it all gets blocked, and who shows up? The cute little trio. They apologize for taking so long, and tell the protagonist not to worry. He doesn't look thrilled, but at least they came. Meanwhile, Robber is pissed because his little sister started running. He says he'll let those guys deal with the pathetic ones because Grace is his. He flies off, leaving the protagonist thinking that's a blessing in disguise. While Rooker's gone, he'll cut down their numbers. He activates lightning again, shoots forward like a bullet with the trio, gets up there, and the enemies are kind of shaken. But fear isn't going to stop anything, because they're all hitting the ground at the same time. The protagonist and the trio don't care. They start tearing through everyone, but now the enemies are running. The Magmanta won't let him get close. Everyone jumps and activates a bunch of circles. But the Kimzera trio, those guys are furious. They catch people midair and slice through them. The protagonist smiles and sends another rain of lightning, and it looks like they finished it. The Chicken Coop trio gets all hyped, saying his strategies really worked, but the protagonist is surprised. In front of him, all the mages group up and form a huge sphere. That's called linked magic, a method where all the mages combine to build the same power. It turns a group of level 4 mages into something as powerful and dangerous as a level 9 mage. They're hitting the circle, but the trio says they can't break it. Whatever's forming is coming. The protagonist tells everyone to run as far away as possible. Then something comes out from the top of the sphere. He yells for everyone to get out. Blue energy flares and the mages laugh, saying it's too late. This is the secret technique they trained to wipe out the Zarahans, and it's impossible to dodge. Out of nowhere, a claw appears. Some blue, scaly creature, and obviously a massive dragon shows up. They're laughing, saying today is the end of the Zarahan. The protagonist is in shock. He just tells the trio to leave. He's the target, and there's no reason anyone should get badly hurt or die because of him. They insist it makes no sense. But Zed knows he has that talent, the immortal gambler, and he can block an attack. If those guys can't keep enough mana to maintain the creature's attacks, maybe it'll work. The cooldown on immortal gambler is 5 seconds. Every 5 seconds, nobody can kill you with an instant hit. Think about that. It's like he really is the protagonist. He knows his best chance is to tank one hit, buy time, and make them burn mana until the spell collapses. They're a bunch of level 4 mages. Even if they can run the circle, their mana has to be draining. This turns into a time battle, and he activates electrification again. He uses another lightning attack that hits the dragon right in the head. The lightning runs down its body as he closes in. The dragon screams and charges him. It's way faster than he expected, and it lands a direct hit. It goes straight through him, tearing everything up. Good thing he has Immortal Gambler. The mages are freaking out. Why is he fine? They're sure the dragon hit him dead on. The dragon looks confused too and charges again. This time the protagonist says no way, the same attack works twice. He jumps and manages to avoid it. The problem is there's smoke everywhere. Total chaos. He can't even see the dragon. He feels it coming from behind, and he gets hit again. Immortal Gambler triggers. The jump bought him 5 seconds, but it's hard to avoid the follow-ups. Another wave of smoke. He doesn't know where the dragon is coming from. Then it appears beside him and triggers his mana again. This ability is absurd. It keeps activating. But now the kid's mana runs out and the electrified form disappears too. Still, he forces it again. Turn it on. The dragon keeps attacking, hit after hit after hit. Basically, he's immortal. As long as he's fighting something that can't deal 2 lethal hits within 5 seconds, he won't die. And the mages, somehow they've got endless mana too. He's talking about himself, but these 4-star mages have been maintaining this spell for half an hour already. Again, the dragon prepares another attack, watching the kid with its little green eye. Then the energy across the whole field starts getting pulled in. It's going to use a breath attack. Now it's bad because it's not a single hit. It's a continuous stream that doesn't stop. He'll probably die and then die again right after. The protagonist is stunned. The Billy family really was preparing to wipe out the Arahan, and at that moment, someone with high potential was a key target they needed to eliminate. The mages say that's enough. The rat race ends now. The protagonist knows if that breath comes at him, he's dead. Immortal Gambler will hold for a moment, but right after that it'll drop. The attack is coming. He hesitates, then activates 2 balls of electricity, an electric combo. The sequence slams into the dragon. Water dragon, water dragon. He collapses on the ground exhausted. Spent all the mana he had, but it still wasn't enough. He's a little happy he at least learned what it means to do a double enchantment. At the same time, he wonders what happens if he dies. Does he go back to the original world, or does he just disappear? Boom! Explosion. Everything flashes. Debris flying everywhere. Rebel's in shock, screaming, telling them to let him go. He wants to see what happened to the kid. And from up on the mountain, you can see a strange red aura rising. Wait, am I imagining it? Is that his father? Or is it that Temrud guy showing up? And the protagonist is going to wake up that Asta-type vibe, you know? Like that Clover kid with that dark red energy. The boy is there now with red lightning all around him. The dragon keeps staring like it's about to attack again. Meanwhile, the little mages won't let go of each other, trying to figure out what's going on. Why is the dragon just standing there, and how does he still have mana? The protagonist stands there face to face with the dragon, lightning everywhere, and then he just says, "Return." The dragon seems to hear him and turns toward the mages. He's controlling it. Now they have to defend themselves while the dragon attacks them from all sides. They're asking how he did it, while the protagonist looks at his own hand, confused. And then no, whoever it is, maybe it really is Temudi, says he truly has a splendid body. A fourth attack comes toward him, but nothing seems to affect him. Around him was magical nullification. That's only possible when the distance between the person casting the magic and the person defending is huge. The mages try to keep attacking, while Temudi says they're all just insects. He stretches his arm again and everything falls apart. They're saying something isn't right, this is impossible. Another one wonders if this is the true power of an Arahan. If that's the truth, then the Billy family's goal from the start was nothing but a delusion. Even attacking together, they can't kill this rookie. One of them looks back and says it has to be some kind of trick. Attack again, use everyone, all our mana. They focus, water forms again. Temud says the insects won't stop moving. Then he looks up, and the water circle breaks apart. The idiots realize the kid is actually using mana interference. Since they're mages, there's nothing they can do, so they run. But Temud calls them pathetic. In the blink of an eye, everything stops. They all look at their hands with zero control over their own mana. They ask what's happening, and everyone turns around trembling. The protagonist slowly walks toward them. They drop to their knees, sure they never had a chance. They beg for forgiveness with their foreheads on the ground, saying it'll never happen again. They'll never rebel against the Arahan. But Temud just says an Arahan feels no pity. Then he uses some kind of magic on their hearts. Everyone's clutching their chest. One of them looks at his own arm and wonders why he can't feel any mana at all. It's obvious what happened. He messed with their circuits and destroyed them from the inside. For a mage, losing access to mana is more painful than losing an arm. Suddenly, Rukas comes back, carrying Grace, asking what happened while he was gone. Wait, did someone use illusion magic? What's going on here? Then he sees it. The protagonist in the distance, standing there with his back turned. He figures he has to finish this kid right now. He fires a sequence of attacks into his back and smiles. Then boom! When he looks down, his own magic is in his chest. Then 5, 6, 7 more strikes stabbed in. He gets absolutely shredded. It's brutal. Robert doesn't last even a second. And in that, the Talmud says that the one who answered the invocation must take the like on this video. That helps Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers. Activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.